new year has begun. That's what that man said. Maybe what we are facing is not just a new year on the calendar, but the end of an era and the beginning of another. January 7th. Winter break is over and the new semester has begun. Next to the windows, with the sunlight shining on them, are the sleepy faces of the students. After the class bell rang, the classroom was still full of a weary atmosphere. Only the irritating sound of the teacher's chalk scratching on the blackboard was lively. During recess, I went to the middle school classrooms to take a look. Kirigiri Kaiko's seat was empty. I asked the students nearby and learned that she hadn't come to school. She has been missing since that day. On that day, we solved the black challenge that was held at Norman's Hotel and witnessed the peculiar end of the case. From that place, we both escaped, hand in hand, trembling. Thinking back on it now, it was a mistake for me to separate from her after that. Maybe I shouldn't have let go of her hand at the time.
She wanted to go home, and I didn't stop her because I thought it was the safest place for her. After sending her home, I went back to my room in the dormitory. For the next week, every day I lived a life that was devoid of murders and black challenges. However, whenever I do my homework, whenever I take a shower, whenever I lie on the bed, those dead people are still in my mind and I can't stop thinking about them. Probably because my heart hasn't moved on from the cases yet. For me now, the uneventful and peaceful days are even more surreal and unusual. I tried calling Kirigiri's house to talk to her, but no one answered the phone. Not just her, even her grandfather, and according to her, the servants who live at her house didn't answer the phone either. I have called many times and the result was always the same. I found it very suspicious and even went to her house. I pressed the video phone, but there was no response, and the surveillance camera just stared at me motionlessly. I couldn't see any lights in the house behind the high wall, or even feel anyone's breath. Did something happen to Kirigiri? After hearing that she hadn't come to school, I was finally convinced. It's as if Kirigiri Kyoko had disappeared from this world. Maybe the Crime Victims Relief Committee has finally started to act. The leader of this organization, Shinsen Mikado, seems to have some connection with Kirigiri's grandfather, who is a detective, and Kirigiri Kyoko perhaps is involved in the conflict between them. If she was really kidnapped by the organization, then as a detective who belongs in the 88 of the detective shelf classification specializing in kidnapping cases, it's my turn to step in. I must save her. That being said, I don't know if Kirigiri was really kidnapped. I don't think she would have fallen into the hands of the enemy so easily. The Kirigiri family has been in the detective business for generations, and their only daughter has amazing talents. I know this very well. Just where did Kirigiri Kyoko disappear to? It should be the duty of the detective to find missing persons. In order to follow her footsteps, I decided to go to the detective library. Maybe there are some messages or clues left there. The detective library contains information files of approximately 65,500 detectives. These files are open to the public and can be read by anyone no matter who they are. It's the best place to learn more about detectives. This is the most basic principle. I got out of the bus at the stop in front of the detective library, stopped and walked through the old-fashioned gate. I went up the historically flavored Western-style porch and came to the entrance of the detective forest. I've been to this place several times before, and I had been here with Kirigiri not long ago. However, looking closely at this detective library, it's not only full of mystery, but also full of bottomless darkness. Probably because I already experienced 2 black challenges, I couldn't help but feel that behind the detective library, the creepy dark shadow of the Crime Victims Relief Committee is lurking. On the surface, the detective library has expressed its neutral stance. It does not have any involvement with any organization. Is this the truth? Shinsen Mikado, the founder of the Crime Victims Relief Committee, is said to have been one of the members involved in creation of the detective library 15 years ago. Moreover, the black challenge also refers to the DSC rank in selecting the detective to be summoned. In addition, the detectives with the highest rank of 000 DSC seem to be working with Shinsen. Considering the facts of the situation, it's not surprising that the detective library and the Crime Victims Relief Committee are secretly colluding. And if this is true, I am now alone and deep in the enemy's territory. It's okay, I'm not scared at all. That's actually not true. Still, I tried my best not to show my fear and walked toward the counter with my chest straight. But I don't think I was quite able at hiding my fearful face. Are there any messages for me? I showed the detective library registration card to the gray-haired staff member who was about to enter old age. Could he actually be a member of the criminal organization? The staff member checked my name on the card and immediately shook his head. None. Then, please update my card information. The staff member moved slowly to the computer and inserted my card into the terminal. No updated information. Really? The staff member nodded silently and handed me back the card. It's true that I wasn't of any use in the last black challenge, but in my heart I was still looking forward to maybe being able to get a rank up. I guess such good things don't happen often in reality. I left the counter and walked towards the room where the bookshelves are. There are countless files on the neatly arranged bookshelves. There is no one here, it's quiet, with only the sound of my footsteps echoing under the high ceiling. I passed between the shelves and came to the one numbered 9. I found Kirigiri Kyoko's file and pulled it out from the shelf. I opened it and found the contents were the same as last time. No change, and no mention of the Norman's Hotel case anywhere. The person chosen as the detective in the last case wasn't Kirigiri, and that's why there is no record of it here. No, the Sirius Observatory case is recorded in her file. At that time, it wasn't Kirigiri who was the detective summoned. Could it be that the incident at the Norman's Hotel hasn't been made public, so there is no record? In fact, I haven't seen any report about the case on TV or in any newspaper either. I suddenly thought of something. I went to the 900 bookshelf and found Nanamura Suisei's file. Nanamura was the 00 detective who was summoned during the Norman's Hotel case. His file is full of his brilliant achievements, but there is no page that recorded his end. Detectives who died should have the year of death written in the character profile, but I can't find any record of this. However, there is no doubt that Nanamura is dead. He shot himself in the head with a gun, and then his body folded up and disappeared alongside the Norman's Hotel. Shinsen Mikado folded his handkerchief in front of my eyes, and at the same time, all the sights in my field of vision were also folded. It felt like a dream. However, Kirigiri immediately told me that that was reality. Yui-wan-sama, your vision was obscured by the handkerchief, so you probably didn't see it, but my eyes did. The hotel flipped over with the surrounding ground. Flipped over? We turned back to the original location of the hotel, and found that there was a very small gap between the footing of the hotel perimeter wall and the ground. According to her, the entire hotel was originally located on a piece of something similar to a thick board, and in the center of this board, there was a rotation axis that ran through the entire thing, and so, the board rotated 180 degrees like a stage, becoming an empty space. That was the mechanism of it. The walls were used to cover the cracks in the ground. When the locked room murders occurred in the hotel, Yuyona-sama once suspected that the walls might be able to rotate. But in fact, the walls weren't what can rotate, but the entire hotel. Shinsen unfolded the handkerchief in front of my eyes to temporarily hide this mechanism, which is a common blinding technique used by magicians and illusionists. To make an object of that mass flip smoothly without making a single sound requires a device of unimaginably large scale. Maybe the buildings related to the Black Challenge are all able to instantly disappear from sight through a variety of methods, and usually they are hidden, only appearing when the game begins. Then how do you explain the fact that everything around them fold up and disappear? I think they just fold up and disappear too. They are basically things like set boards or paper models that can be recycled at any time. The Black Challenge is essentially a kind of show, so it's not surprising that everything is a stage set including the background. Despite what Kirigiri said, I still found it unbelievable. The Crime Victims Relief Committee offers all kinds of crimes in all kinds of places. Does it all require the large-scale installations and setting a backdrop? It feels like no amount of funding would be enough for that. Also, the problem is not only money, but also the manpower. Both the arrangement and removal of the stage require manpower, and the more people involved, the easier it is for secrets to leak. Despite this, the existence of the Black Challenge is still a secret. So we can say that they must be a highly unified organization. How many people are involved with the Crime Victims Relief Committee? Maybe some of the people who pass me on the street are on their side, and I just don't know it. When I thought of this, I felt an indescribable chill hitting me. When they were leaving, they were probably showing off their overwhelming financial and organizational power to us. Or was it their execution power that was enough to turn unreal nightmares into reality? If we investigated in a more detailed way at that time, we might have at least been able to find the body of Nanamura. As long as their bodies weren't found, then that case will probably not be made public. I sighed heavily and put Nanamura's file back on the bookshelf. Among the files of the detectives that are on this bookshelf, there are probably several who have cooperated with the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Then, how many prideful detectives still remain in this world? Even the awe-inspiring 000 rank detectives are in the enemy camp. I wonder if anything is credible. Even the sites in front of me might be fake. The only one I can trust is Kirigiri Kyoko, but she is gone now. So who do I rely on to distinguish the real from the fake? In the end, I couldn't find any clues in the detective library that could point to Kirigiri's whereabouts. It's almost closing time, so I hurried to the entrance and exited the place. Perhaps this is an illusion, but I felt my surroundings suddenly darken, and the old-fashioned oil lamp-shaped electric lamp installed on the top of the exit began to emit a dim light. In the dim light, as I walked through the door, a figure suddenly appeared on the opposite side, passing by me and entering the room. The moment I passed him, I smelled a sweet fragrance. This fragrance is not a chemically synthesized smell of perfume, but the fragrance of flowers blooming in the morning, which is somewhat nostalgic and refreshing. The figure was a young boy with brightly colored hair. He was wearing a very adult three-piece suit, with the top off and put on his arm, and walking forward silently. The moment I brushed by him, I saw his face and held my breath involuntarily. I think I had seen him somewhere. He didn't look like someone I remember, but someone more subconsciously popular, like an angel in religious paintings, or a spirit playing with light in legends. He was a pretty boy who didn't seem to belong to this world. It felt like he is one that only exists in fantasy. I turned back to look at him. However, his figure had already disappeared. Only a trace of residual fragrance spoke of where he went. I feel like I just saw a ghost or a phantom. Is he commissioning a detective? Although I was a little concerned, I didn't delve into it, and just left the detective library. I was more worried about Kirigiri's whereabouts than some boy from who knows where. Kirigiri didn't come to school the next day either. I asked the homeroom teacher and the nun principal, but they didn't respond to me seriously. It looks like the adults haven't realized the gravity of the situation regarding Kirigiri Kyoko's disappearance yet. If Kirigiri really did disappear like this, then what should I do? Can I confront the Crime Victims Relief Committee alone? Or should I pretend to be ignorant and live my daily life, knowing that they are operating in secret? How can I possibly do such a thing? To turn a blind eye to the existence of evil while knowing it's there is no different from being complicit with it. Until Kirigiri returns, I will fight on even if I'm the only one doing that, even if she never comes back. The next day, I went to the detective library again. It's to confirm once again whether there is any message for me. Although my hope is very thin, this action isn't without meaning. With this belief in my heart, I got off the bus at the stop in front of the detective library amidst the light snow. After pushing open the old-fashioned door and entering the building, my exhaled breaths are still turning into clouds of white mist. It may be because of the snow, but I felt like it's colder and quieter than usual. Judging from the empty umbrella stand at the entrance, I guess no one came to visit. I asked at the counter if there are any messages for me, and sure enough, nothing. Should I seek help from a detective who specializes in finding people? But if I call the detective this way, it would be difficult to tell whether they are an enemy or not. Should I call the police? I don't know if the police are reliable. From my previous experience, the police aren't trustworthy. I feel lonely. No one can be trusted. It's not an exaggeration to say that the world I see now is completely different from a few months ago. Before I got involved with the Black Challenges, my world was very simple, but now, even the shadows of tall buildings on the roadside at sunset look to me as if there is a deep darkness lurking in them. The bottomless darkness is enough to make me lose my mind. If only Kirigiri Kyoko was by my side at this time, how reassuring it would be. Kirigiri-chan, where on earth are you? You left me alone. I was walking aimlessly among the bookshelves when I saw a figure suddenly pass by a few rows of bookshelves. I felt inexplicably concerned and chased the figure around the shelves. What I saw about 20 meters away in front was the pretty boy in the jacket and vest from a few days ago. There is that sweet scent again. He has his suit jacket draped over his right arm and is standing facing my way as if he is waiting for me. He is a little shorter than Kirigiri and his age. I'm not good at judging that, but he looks very young to me. I met his gaze, and he showed a smile. His smile is as innocent as a boy's and as charming as a girl's. To give an example, he is like a library Yosei. Pale skin, long eyelashes, and a slender body. Is it possible that he is actually a girl? No, maybe a child with no gender. Neither a boy nor a girl. Perhaps an existence similar to a Yosei. His slightly long hair and slightly bluish pupils emphasized his unbelievability. He immediately hid in the shadows of the bookshelves. I chased his afterimage and quickly ran around behind the bookshelf. The boy stood tens of meters away, as if waiting for me again. Then he immediately disappeared in the shadows of the bookshelves. Is he trying to play hide and seek with me? Wait, you. I called and went after him. After turning around the next row of bookshelves, the boy was gone. Instead, there is a small metal door on the innermost wall at the end of the room. Did he escape into that door? I didn't expect that there is a door in this part of the room. It's almost like the entrance to Wonderland. I approached the door cautiously and held the cold doorknob. I gently opened the door. The cold wind blew in immediately, and snow started covering my hair. It's the outside. The stone pathway stretches all the way to the outside of the hedge arch, probably the back door. I didn't know there was such an entrance/exit here before. I can't see the boy. He must be hiding behind the arch. I stepped out and walked through the hedge arch in the light snow. In front of me is a parking lot surrounded by high hedges, almost enough for 2 cars to park in. There is a limousine parked in the parking lot. Its black body contrasted sharply with the white snow. The boy is standing by the limo. He opened the door of the limo as if gesturing for me to enter. What is this? Are you asking me to get in this car? The boy nodded in silence. Are you kidding me? I said in guard posture. Where are you planning to take me? A place where I can't come back from perhaps? The boy didn't answer my question. I'm not sure if he can't speak or didn't understand what I said. He just has the limo door open and waiting like a porter. Who is he, and for what reason is he trying to take me away? It's too polite to be a kidnapping, but if it's an invitation to a banquet, it's too suspicious then. It would be stupid to fall for such an obvious trap. But there is also a reason for me to not turn around and leave right away. Maybe they used the same method to take Kirigiri Kyoko away. If that was the case, then getting in the limo is an option. The destination must be the same. Maybe after I get there, I can see Kirigiri again. Alright, I'll get in. I mustered up my courage and said in a strong tone. The boy in the suit vest smiled, stretched out his hand and invited me into the limo. It feels a bit strange to be treated politely by a boy younger than me. I took his hand, bent my body and sat inside the dimly lit limo. The door closed immediately. The sound of the door closing startled me and I almost jumped up. Across the limo seats is a man, whose face gradually emerged in the faint light of the headlights. Where have I seen this man before? I came back to my senses and almost screamed. In fact, before I could scream, my body moved subconsciously, looking for the lever to open the limo door. I have to run away. I won't hurt you, the man said with a gruff voice. If I intended that, then you wouldn't be on this earth right now. Do you understand? I couldn't help but shrink my body, nodding hurriedly. In the dim limo, the face that appeared in front of my eyes with a beard around his mouth and slightly long hair combed backwards smelled of wildness. There is a passion hidden in his glowing eyes, which is striking, but at the same time, his complexion looks like he hasn't been exposed to the sun for a long time, with a thin shadow on his cheeks that showed an unhealthy side. His attitude is very calm, from which a mature man could be felt. Do you know who I am? He coughed while pulling out a detective library registration card from the inside pocket of his jacket that looks like a black cloak, and casually tossed it to me. Ryuzoji Geka DSC number 000. This is the first time I see 3 zeros. This proves that as a detective, he is the best in all fields. He is one of the people who stands at the top of the detective library, known as the armchair Earl Ryuzoji Geka. I carefully returned the registration card to Ryuzoji, who took the card with a slightly trembling hand. His fingers are as thin and dry as dead branches. He coughed again, poured whiskey into the glass on the coffee table, and took a sip, as if it's his medicine. At the same time, the limo moved. Why would he show up in a place like this? Is it to wait for me? As the limo sped up, the questions in my head were weaving at breakneck speed. In this mobile confined space, Ryuzoji and I are sitting face to face. The boy from before is sitting behind the partition, probably in the passenger seat. The seat is very soft and comfortable to sit on, making my body, which is stiff due to fear, relax a bit. If it weren't for the current situation, it would have been an extremely glorious thing to meet Ryuzoji Geka. When did fate turn out like this? How old are you? 16 years old. That's a good number. The moon of the 16th day symbolizes hesitation and hope. For the real term, it most likely because his appearance gives people such an impression. Why did you come to me? I've seen the black challenge you participated in. You caught people's attention exclusively with your incompetence, but I couldn't laugh at you. Do you know why? Ryuzoji was waiting for my answer. He was silent. I didn't know what to answer and kept my mouth closed, so he immediately went on to say. It's because you are a lot like the old me. Not only that, but your sincerity is worthy of respect. What Ryuzoji just said was odd. I feel like what he said didn't sound true at all, but rather like he is looking down on me. What does that mean? I said a little bit unconvinced. It means it's a shame if we were to lose you. Lose? Have you ever imagined what you would be like at the moment of your death? Or have you ever written a suicide note? Ryuzoji suddenly raised a hand and interrupted me, then took out his cell phone from somewhere and started calling. And their accomplices will be in a convertible. Despite driving in the middle of winter, the convertible's roof will be fully open. When the bus passes by the convertible at an intersection, they will throw the valuables out of the window onto the convertible. This is their plan. Based on the content stated by Ryuzoji, I understood the situation roughly. It seems that there is a bus hijacking case currently underway, and Ryuzoji is trying to solve it. Park in the middle of the next intersection. Ryuzoji gave instructions to the driver's seat. I looked out of the car window. The limo will soon be at an intersection, but there is a red light ahead, and there are no other vehicles ahead of us. 2 seconds, 1 second, 0. At the end of Ryuzoji's countdown, the traffic light in front turned green, and the limo maintained its original speed and drove to the intersection. At that moment, a convertible came up on the left side of the intersection at a swift speed. Just as Ryuzoji said, despite the light snow, the convertible's roof is fully open. At the same time, a specialized bus is being driven on the right, and the letters SOS are displayed on the electronic screen. They're going to pass by each other. Both sides seem intent on forcing their way through the intersection at the point in time when the light turns green. However, the limo we are riding in suddenly braked in the middle of the intersection and blocked the road. And due to its long body, both lanes got blocked. The convertible and the bus approached us from the left and right. At this rate, we're gonna crash. I couldn't help but close my eyes and shrink into a ball. The sound of emergency brakes stunned my eardrums. For a moment I thought I was dead and regretted not writing a suicide note. However, the impact didn't come. I opened my eyes to see. Both the convertible and the bus stopped next to the limo. The convertible is near the front left and the bus is near the rear right. The fronts of the cars almost touching the limo. The siren sounded and the police cars came. The convertible and the bus turned around and tried to run away, but were immediately surrounded by police cars. The SWAT team carried out a raid and rescued the hostages safely. All this looks like something that can only be seen inside a movie, but now it's happening in front of my eyes. That's so cool. I couldn't help muttering while seeing the scene outside the window. Unknowingly being involved in the case, and before I knew it, everything was over. It's not the first time that an ordinary person like me has been dazzled by a great detective, but it feels like Ryuzoji Geka is a little different. After the struggle was roughly over, the police officers saluted our way. As if that was the signal for the resolution of the case, the limo drove off again. I thought I would die. Don't worry, no one dies while I'm solving the case. Ryuzoji said while holding a mobile phone in one hand, coughing desperately. Oh, excuse my rudeness, I was talking to someone else. Presumably the murderer transported the entire soil warehouse on a trailer to carry it away. When he arrived, he opened the warehouse and killed the victim inside. Afterwards, the murderer returned to the original place. He has already begun to solve the mystery of another case. This is the armchair Earl Ryuzoji Geka. He is a genius of parallel thinking and multitasking. Among the many detectives registered in the detective library, he has solved the largest number of cases. Well, do you have anything else you want to ask me? Ryuzoji magically stowed his cell phone somewhere and said with his hands on his lap. Is it you who took Kirigiri-chan away? Where is she now? Unfortunately, I don't know where she is. I'm not lying. It's impossible for a person's whereabouts to be out of our grasp, but since no one has discovered her movements, it means she is using her detective skills to hide herself. Kirigiri-chan is hiding herself. Does that ring a bell? You should advise her not to run and hide from us, because it's a waste of time. Looks like the Crime Victims Relief Committee is also looking for Kirigiri. She has not yet fallen in their hands. As long as I know this trip is not a waste. I would like to go back as soon as possible. I slumped into the car seat dejectedly. You have nothing to worry about, Ryuzoji said with a calm smile. I also said earlier, we have no intention of hurting you. We invited you as a fairy tale princess, and we will also return you as one. What's your purpose? I'm doing this for personal reasons. Personal reasons? Yes, you being here now has nothing to do with the Crime Victims Relief Committee. It's entirely due to my preemptive action out of personal will. It's getting more and more inexplicable. I'm filled with suspicion. This is an internal secret. The committee is preparing for the next black challenge and intends to choose you as the detective. Although this was very shocking, for some reason I was unable to produce shocked emotions. My mind has completely failed to keep up with the series of sharp twists and turns in front of me. I have your challenge on me. It's easy for me to hand it to you, but I admire you a lot. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to lose you. His sweet voice is almost intoxicating. If possible, I wish that sentence came from someone else. So I decided to make a bet. My life has always been far away from things like gambling, but this time I suddenly wanted to seek the answer from fate. Ryuzoji stared out the window to the falling snowflakes. He took a moment before turning his eyes back to me. Samadar-kun, would you like to play a game with me? Game? Is he going to force me to play one of those boring games that adults come up with? There are no complicated rules to this game. I will just ask you to make two choices from now. You only need to choose the answers you believe in. But I will ask the same question both times. Just choosing one out of two? It's quite easy to understand, don't you agree? I nodded vaguely and agreed. It feels like a very simple game. Then I'll ask the question. Ryuzoji took out a pitch-black envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket. On the top of that disgusting envelope, the red seal of the Crime Victims Relief Committee was on it, as if it had just been printed. In addition to this envelope, he took out another envelope, this time it's snow white, but the seal on it is the same as the previous one. Ryuzoji held the black envelope in his left hand and the white envelope in his right hand, and handed them to me. The black envelope contains the challenge letter. Not the first time you have seen it. It was prepared by the committee. The detective summoned is you, Samidare Yui. As long as you open this envelope, the black challenge will begin. Ignoring my puzzled glance, Ryuzoji continued. The white envelope contains a recommendation letter for you to become a member of the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Normally, a letter of recommendation from an executive is required to join the committee. This one I signed for you. Ryuzoji looked at me with tentative eyes. I finally understood the intent of this game. White or black. To obey or to defy. You also have a third option, which is to choose neither, but in my opinion, you should not choose that path. Alright then, it's time to make your choice. The limo stopped at a red light. At the same time, the time inside the limo also stopped. I can't move at all until the car starts going again. Don't be so nervous, as I said before, you have two instances to choose, and it won't be too late to give me the conclusion in the second choice. Then what's the point of this first choice? Ryuzoji did not answer this question. He just handed out the two envelopes forward, as if telling me that the choice is time limited. To be honest, there is nothing to hesitate about this question. But I still can't help but feel puzzled. This is because of Ryuzoji inviting me to join the committee, which surprises me. I don't have any special talent, and I don't have any great achievements. What good is it for him to pull me in? Have you found your answer? Yes. That goes without saying. I didn't hesitate to point at the black envelope. Who would be in cahoots with a criminal organization? Very well. Ryuzoji showed a winning smile, then put the two envelopes into the inner pocket of his suit. Make yourself comfortable. That's the end of it? Let's continue later. We'll be at my workplace soon. There is something I want you to see there. Would you like to come over? Yes. I'm so scared that I wish to run right away, but on second thought, this might be a good opportunity to scout the enemy fortress. After all, I have to collect a little bit of information about them, or it would be in vain. The scenery outside the window gradually changed from high-rise buildings of the city to fields and mountains covered in silver. I joined the Crime Victims Relief Committee 6 years ago. Ryuzoji suddenly started his monologue. Since then, I have been writing the techniques of the Black Challenge cases. In most situations, the formation of the Black Challenge generally requires several people creating and adjusting it, and ultimately Shinsen Mikado controls it. He continued revealing sensitive info in a casual manner, as if he is making small talk. He must be confident that his position will not be shaken even if I knew his secrets. The fall of godlike detectives. Once again, it hit me hard to learn this fact from Ryuzoji himself. You may think that the Crime Victims Relief Committee is just a generic criminal organization. An underground organization that caters to big shots and have a special hobby of providing murder programs for them. Is it not? That's just a fundraising system to keep the organization running properly. There is no philosophy in that. If the committee is nothing more than this, then I wouldn't have cooperated with it from the beginning. Philosophy, huh? Does it mean they have their own philosophy? The limo passed through a brick archway and drove down a boulevard with only dead trees. From here on, this is all my privately owned land. Ryuzoji said while looking out. Can you hear those voices seeking help from the detective? I looked out the window. This isn't a downtown area, but there are a lot of people walking on the boulevard. There are families walking together, as well as couples. For some reason, the children walking on the road waved at us and ran chasing the limo, but they couldn't keep up with the speed of the car. The distance gradually widened, and finally they disappeared from my sight. The limo continued to drive forward, and the number of people increased. Finally, the crowd gradually formed a straight line. What are they queuing for? The car drove to the end of the boulevard and once again passed through a brick archway. In front of us is a fountain and a courtyard planted with roses. The scenery here looks quiet in winter, but it still gives a feeling of magnificence. The line of people stretching forward around the fountain courtyard. The car continued along the line. Finally, I could see the detective office of Ryuzoji Geka. It's not an exaggeration to call this building a castle. There is a deep trench dug beside the high wall, and an antique stone bridge is erected on it. Passing the stone bridge, I could see the castle gate, the countless windows on the round tower and the jagged battlements on the roof. It's like a medieval castle. Since entering this private land, the scenery my eyes has seen is a bit divorced from reality. The limo stopped in front of the marble-clad foyer. The boy in the suit vest opened the door of the car from the outside. He stretched out his hand to me. I took his hand and got out of the car. I found that the line in front of the foyer is a bit disorganized. People clustered around the limo. Among them, men, women, and children are all at a slight distance apart, casting hopeful glances toward the car. The car automatically extended a slope, and Ryuzoji got out along the slope in the electric wheelchair. The crowd around immediately erupted, shouting happily as if they are cheering. Ryuzoji-sensei, welcome back. You've worked hard, Ryuzoji-sensei. Thank you so much for your help last time. Everyone welcomed Ryuzoji, and the scene is quite lively, just like with idols or movie stars. Ryuzoji silently raised a hand, beckoning them not to get too excited. The young man in the suit vest immediately walked around behind Ryuzoji, pushing his wheelchair and starting to walk in the direction of the building's entrance. I was stunned by the scene that I followed them in a daze before I recovered. The entrance door opened automatically. The first floor of the castle is designed like a hotel lobby, and in the front desk stand several kids in suits who look like receptionists. There are soft carpets and waiting sofas in the lobby. Surprisingly, in order to welcome Ryuzoji, the children lined up from the entrance to the elevator on the opposite side, wearing what appears to be staff uniforms. Ready. Welcome back, Ryuzoji-sensei. The children saluted together. Their greetings are slightly out of tune, as children would be. A long line of people came in from the outside, walked through the hall, and extended towards the door inside. Presumably they are the lost lambs who have come to Ryuzoji for help. The room. Behind the door should be for consulting cases or talking about troubles. The young boy in the suit vest pressed the elevator button. The door opened immediately, and he pulled the wheelchair backwards into the elevator. You come in too. I got into the elevator as Ryuzoji said. A second before the elevator door closed, two children in overalls, mops and buckets in hands rushed in. Ah, Ryuzoji-sensei, welcome back. Welcome back. The two children said in unison. The door closed and the elevator began to rise. Are you done with the cleaning? Ryuzoji asked the young children. Yes, the windows and floors are all polished to a shine. Polished to a sparkling shine. Very good. Ryuzoji's words made the children very proud. The children got off on the third floor, then the elevator continued to rise, and we got off the elevator on the fifth floor. The red carpeted hallway stretches straight ahead. The boy in the suit vest slowly pushed Ryuzoji's wheelchair forward. I'm sure you're wondering what this is all about. Ryuzoji saw through my thoughts. Perhaps you still feel like you have strayed into a cult. But all this is just my daily life, without any pretense. People who have full respect for Ryuzoji as a teacher come to him for help. The children who trust him and work under him. This is the daily life of a great detective who has saved countless people from death. Is this what he wanted me to see? This is the world that an accomplished detective sees from his chair. At the same time, it's also the peaceful Neverland he created. At the end of the long hallway is a double door. As soon as we approached, the door sensed us and opened automatically. However, the view behind the door is like a lonely battlefield for heroes, in sharp contrast with the pure and beautiful world of Neverland. Files and documents are piled up like a mountain, and information books are in a mess, with photos and notes cluttered everywhere. The room is about as big as 30 tatami mats, about 54 square meters or 540 square feet. The books stacked around forming mountains, and the scattered papers formed an ocean. It's like a garden. Maybe this room is a visual representation of Ryuzoji's mind. They are only responsible for investigative work. In other words, they don't know what you are doing behind the scenes. I uttered the anger in my heart. As a detective, you have gained both status and fame, and you have done your best to solve cases. I just can't figure out why people like you would want to work with a criminal organization. Can the identity of a detective and the identity of a member of the Crime Victims Relief Committee coexist with each other without conflict? And what contradictions do you think arise from that? That calm tone made me speechless. Whether it's by a detective or by a committee, the purpose of saving people is the same. Of course, the means are not necessarily always justified. My hands are already covered with blood, but I'm proud of the fact is that these hands have also saved countless people. And it's because of this pride that I can continue to be a detective. Ryuzoji continued to work on the documents while talking. But it's not acceptable trying to justify criminal behavior. I said compulsively. It's even worse for detectives. We must stand on the opposite side of crime and fight against those unjustifiable adversaries. Fufu, maybe so. His hand was still for a moment while turning over the file, then his eyes looked at me. But don't get me wrong. We are also standing on the opposite side of crime, fighting against unjustifiable adversaries. But which of us is really doing the fighting, the ones who just talk in pretty words without getting their hands dirty, or the ones who actually stand on the bloody battlefield? But I didn't know what to say. I've only been involved in the detective business for a few years. How could I be able to outspeak this detective who has been in the front lines for more than a decade? If you become a detective for a long time, you will eventually face situations where you will never be able to save people by using fair methods. I'm a person who have always been strict and disciplined about rules, both legal and ethical, and I've been frustrated many times because of that. I have prayed to God many times to please help me save more people. It's precisely because he is an excellent detective that he has prayed this way. Maybe the world is too small to accommodate his talents. This is your reason for joining the Crime Victims Relief Committee? That's it in a nutshell. After all, the black challenges are carried out under fair rules, and it is this spirit of fairness that I see shining through in Shinsen. If he was a simple terrorist, then I wouldn't have spared him in the first place. You call involving those innocent people for revenge fairness? Sacrifices are inevitable to achieve pure relief. That's the conclusion I've come to. That's not how it's supposed to work. In terms of experience and talent, I'm far behind him, but the only thing I know very well is that if one justifies an act like killing and has no doubts about it, such a person can only be evil. That's unforgivable, is what you're thinking. Ryuzoji slowly came out from behind the table and approached me. You are the same as me. I can't tolerate the existence of evil. Therefore, in order to eliminate evil, I decided to become a weapon more powerful than it. Wrong. I'm different from you. No, you just haven't made up your mind yet. You're wrong. Am I sure about that? I want to uphold justice. I want to help those who ask for help. That's why I chose the path of the detective. Thinking about it now, I suddenly felt terrified. Isn't my ideal image of the detective like that of Ryuzoji? It's no wonder you hesitate. I like your character, you are the old me. Wrong. I am not like you. You, as a detective, value your pride very much. I think this is the absolute only condition for going down the path of the detective. I don't know when Ryuzoji got in front of me. His eyes are shining sharply, almost piercing me. Go ahead, listen carefully, you should hear them, the voices that are calling you for help. Wanchin. Yui-1-sama. Ah, the voice calling for me echoed. The voice of my sister calling for help. Kirigiri-chan's voice. What am I fighting for? I know that, in essence, you are on our side. You will get your hands dirty for the sake of those who ask you for help. What is the detective's justice? What do I want to do in the first place? Now, let's continue the game. Ryuzoji suddenly offered. That sentence gave me a jolt and brought me back to reality all of a sudden. Remember the rules? You only need to make a choice, but this choice will be a major divergence point in your life. So be careful. While I was at a loss, Ryuzoji took out the 2 envelopes from the inner pocket of his jacket. One pitch black envelope. One snow white envelope. After taking one of the envelopes, you can immediately turn around and leave this room. Ryuzoji pointed to the room's exit. At that time, outside the door will be the new world of your own choosing. White and black. Which side will truly save others? I have no idea. Which side should I choose? I have no idea. The only thing that's clear to me is the sound of her call. Maybe the answer lies in it. Moving forward. I grabbed one of the envelopes. On the path of my own choosing. Ryuzoji gave a satisfied smile and turned the wheelchair around, his back toward me. Looks like I won the bet. Your decision makes me very proud. I also turned my back to him and walked towards the exit of the room. I opened the door and left the battleground. At the end of the red carpet, the young boy in the suit vest is standing in front of the elevator, and he is holding his jacket over his arm. He waited until I walked up to him before saying, "You chose that one, huh? What, so you can talk?" I was taken aback. "I thought you were a moving doll." I said this half-jokingly. He silently grabbed my right hand and pulled it to his chest, letting my hand touch it. Through the fabric of the suit vest, I could feel his little heartbeat. I suddenly felt embarrassed and withdrew my hand subconsciously. He looked up at me with a questioning expression. All right, you are not a doll, and this proves it perfectly." Hearing me say this, he smiled faintly and pressed the elevator button. The elevator doors opened immediately. Under his guidance, I followed him into the elevator. Inside the small compartment, there are only the 2 of us, and the boy still exuded a nice scent. "Can you tell me why you chose that?" Without turning around, the young boy stared at the elevator's buttons panel and said, "It's what will allow me to meet my most important friend with my head held high. I'm not experienced nor mature enough to answer the philosophies and ethics of detectives. However, I still know that some things cannot be let go." That's probably the pride he was talking about. I turned my gaze to the envelope in my hand again. The black challenge envelope. It feels thicker than the one I received last time. So maybe the rules for this black challenge are more complicated than last time. Even so, I can't lose. "This is interesting," the boy expressed his thoughts. "No matter which envelope you chose, I will provide you with temporary help. Please take care of me. Please take care of me. What's your name? Is this necessary?" I meant the name. "If I don't know your name, how can I call you?" "Then please call me Licorn, as everyone else here calls me. Licorn." This is a strange statement. Licorn-kun, right? I said it once to confirm it to him. "You can simply call me Liko. Okay, I'll stick with that." The elevator reached the first floor. The general line of clients is still out of sight. The staff of little ones are no longer in the lobby. They probably went back to work. Liko and I walked through the marble foyer. "I have a question to ask you right away. Are you also a member of the Crime Victims Relief Committee? Ryuzoji-san said that the children aren't involved in the crimes, but you seem to know inside info about this black envelope." "I have nothing to do with the committee, I just know the story." "Really? But you and Ryuzoji work together, right?" "Yeah, that's why I'm here to help you." "So in short, he is in charge of spying on me? Or is he really just here to help me? Maybe this is just what Ryuzoji said about fairness." "When did you start working under Ryuzoji?" "About half a year ago." He tilted his head and said while thinking. This action was very childish, but he omitted a very mature aura. This child is really becoming more and more out of this world. The car was still parked at the entrance of the building, and the outline of the driver in the driver's seat could be seen. As expected, the driver doesn't appear to be a child. Liko opened the rear door and took my hand to let me get in the car. "Where do I need to send you? The detective library or your home?" "Just send me to the dormitory." "Okay." Liko walked around the car, gave a few instructions to the driver, and then returned immediately. "I will say goodbye to you today, and finally please accept this." He took a thin wooden box tied with a ribbon. This box is about the size that can be held with both hands and is quite light. "This is a gift from Ryuzoji, but it should only be opened when necessary." "When necessary, huh? Goodbye." Licorn closed the door, took a step backward and bowed. The car quickly drove off. The limo bypassed the courtyard with the fountains and roses, then drove along the line of help seekers, gradually speeding up. Liko's figure outside the car window gradually went out of sight. Passing through the brick archway, the car drove through the boulevard. The surroundings were completely dark, and in the scattered streetlights, I saw light snow falling. Halfway down, I saw 2 children sweeping with brooms under the streetlights. "Driver-san, please stop for a moment." I quickly yelled out to the driver's seat, which I couldn't see because of the partition in the middle. The limo responded to my voice and stopped immediately. The children who were sweeping didn't know what was going on, so they came over and looked at the car. I opened the car window and showed my face. "Hey, you two." I greeted the 2 kids. The 2 of them are about elementary school age and looked at me with disbelief on their faces. What kind of person is Ryuzoji-sensei? The 2 kids looked at each other and then smiled frankly. "He's a very nice person, but a little scary when he's angry," the 2 said in a giggle. "My dream is to become a detective like Sensei." "Me too, I want to be like Sensei when I grow up." "Really? Thank you for telling me, work hard and keep cleaning." "Yep." I waved goodbye to them. The limo started moving again. Those kids didn't look like they were lying, at least their expressions weren't what a forced or brainwashed person would have. However, when I think of the terrible power of the Crime Victims Relief Committee, I felt like everything I saw today might have been a pre-staged illusion. I felt as if I was in a dream, and this floaty feeling lingered. I stared out the car window blankly, and the scenery outside gradually turned into the city I'm familiar with. I held the black envelope to the car window, trying to see what's inside by the light of the street lamps, but I couldn't see anything. Eventually, the car stopped in front of the school gate. The driver said nothing. I opened the door and got out of the car. I bowed to the driver, and the limo drove back into the driveway as if nothing had happened, then disappeared from my view. I had a feeling of finally returning to reality. I can see the lights of the dormitory from far away, and I felt intimacy. I walked into the dormitory and there was a large group of people in the hallway. It felt a bit noisy. For some reason, I feel a little uneasy. The girls living in the other room saw me and shouted, "Ah, Yui. This is bad." "What happened?" "Don't ask, come here." I got dragged by them along the corridor. The place where the crowd has gathered is the door of my room. There is a suspicious girl trying to pick the door lock of your room. Pick my door lock? I passed between my dorm mates and came to the door. There is a girl sitting on the ground with her back leaning against the door of my room, hugging her knees. Even under the light of the old fluorescent lights of the dormitory, her hair still looked smooth and soft, and her pale cheeks almost a little bleached out. She was staring at the other side with an unsatisfied expression, but when she saw me, her expression instantly became radiant. "Yui-wan-sama." It's Kirigiri Kyoko. She stood up, jumped over and hugged me. I caught her slender and light body, which is covered with stains and smells of dirt and dust. This is the first time she has ever leaned on me like this. I held her head and felt how fragile she is, as if she would break at any moment. The students in the dormitory didn't know what was going on, but when they saw Kirigiri and I like this, they suddenly applauded for some reason, probably because they witnessed a touching reunion. Aren't you going to call the police? My dorm mates asked me. It's fine, I know her, thanks everyone. I said, opening the door and pushing Kirigiri into my room. Well, good night everyone, I'll take care of the rest. I entered the room and closed the door behind me, shutting out the chattering voices and curious eyes. I locked the door. Kirigiri looked up at me with embarrassment. I tried to sneak in, but I was accidentally caught. Everyone fails at times. I tossed my backpack on the bed, letting Kirigiri sit down next to me. So, you failed when you planned to sneak in through the front door, right? At first I was going to break the window to get in, but I figured there would be a hole in the window, and you'd be cold. You were thinking of me, thank you. I patted Kirigiri's head. She looked defiant and shook her head. I sat down on the chair at my desk and came face to face with her. Why were you trying to sneak into my room? Because I just wanted to get here. Kirigiri lowered her head and stared at her clasped hands on her lap. Silence came. If I continue to remain silent, maybe she will start explaining. That's what I hoped in my heart at least, but she stayed silent. In any case, it's good that you're fine. I said, placing my hand on hers. I was worried about you, Kirigiri-chan. Where have you been? I couldn't contact you at all. I can't talk about it yet. What does that mean? I was a little annoyed. You don't believe me? Or do you think people like me can't be trusted? That's not the case. Kirigiri said with haste. How should I put it? My mind hasn't calmed down yet. She has always been calm and collected, but she is distraught now. Has she encountered a bad situation that overwhelmed her? As a detective, she is top-notch. If there is anything that can push her to this level, I can only think of one answer. It was them who did it, right? After a long silence, Kirigiri nodded. Unforgivable. A group of adults mercilessly chasing after a middle school girl just because she happened to be born in a family that inherited a detective's bloodline. I'll explain that to you later, Yui-wan-sama. Kirigiri said, still with her head lowered. In short, in order to avoid them, I have been on the run these days, thinking I would at least hold out until my grandfather comes back. At the moment, their target is me, so as long as I hide, they shouldn't be able to do anything about it. As expected of Kirigiri-chan, they haven't yet figured out your whereabouts, even they said they don't know where you are. Yui-wan-sama. Kirigiri interrupted me with a stunned expression. Who did you hear this from? Well. I hesitated. Should I tell her what happened today? Should I tell her that a new black challenge is about to begin? But this may cause her more trouble, and I don't want her to have any more unpleasant experiences. Yet, I don't need to worry about that since Kirigiri can see through the confusion in my heart. Have you been in contact with someone from the committee? A small frown formed between Kirigiri's brows, and she bit her lower lip. As I expected, things are going the same way as I feared. At the time of my disappearance, I thought they might target Yui-wan-sama, and they might use Wan-sama to draw me out. That's why I came here immediately. Is that so? But I think this time they're not just aiming at you alone. How so? I told her about the conversation between me and Ryuzoji. While listening to me, Kirigiri's face gradually returned to the usual frosty detective expression. Although she looks a bit cool this way, at the same time I pity her a little. Her talent makes her both powerful and fragile, and might even be enough to shatter her. I wonder if they would have really let me join if I took the white envelope. Do you regret it? No way. I answered her with a chuckle through my nose. I won't let them succeed. But I fear that everything is going as they are expecting. Indeed, at the time, Ryuzoji seemed to think that I wouldn't take the white envelope. The fact that he acted even though he knew how it would end was terrifying. According to Ryuzoji-san, they truly believe that the black challenges are a means to save the victims of crimes. Perhaps for them, the Kirigiri family is the biggest obstacle. It's hard to tell. Kirigiri fell into deep thought and said in a low voice absent-mindedly. By the way, here's the new challenge letter. I took out the black envelope from my backpack. You haven't opened it yet, did you? Yeah, the black challenge will start as soon as I open it, right? I didn't have the guts to open it on the spot. A sensor or the like is installed in the envelope of the challenge letter. As soon as it's opened, it will send this information to the criminal and the committee. The 168 hours counted from that moment is the game time of the black challenge. If the criminal kills all the targets of revenge and is not exposed by the detective, then the criminal wins. Conversely, if the criminal is exposed or fails to kill all the targets, then the criminal is declared the loser and is obliged to pay back all the money spent in the black challenge, the money provided by the committee. Since the amount of money is basically impossible to be repaid with personal wealth, this means that the criminal must pay the price with their life. What happens if it stays unopened? The challenge letter will probably be sent to another detective, but this time they seem to be aiming at you, Yui-wan-sama, from the beginning, so even if you don't go through with this plan, they'll probably just send another envelope. I held the black envelope up to the fluorescent light, but I couldn't see what was inside. We will probably be locked up somewhere again, huh? I couldn't help but sigh. Will it be a mountain resort or an isolated island this time? My specialty is in murder cases anyway. But the difficulty of the case should be in line with your rank, Yui-wan-sama. Maybe it will be easier than last time. True. In black challenges, the murder weapons and techniques used in the cases all relates to the rank of the detective summoned. This time I'm the one summoned, so I can mostly predict the difficulty of the case. Kirigiri-chan, you are going to help me, right? I don't want you to disappear on your own again. Yes, of course, the black challenge is neither meaningless nor irrelevant to me now. If anyone goes after me, I will go after them in turn. Kirigiri said, her eyes were more serious than ever before, and there was an icy flame burning in her eyes. Let's pick a time and then open the envelope, so that the deadline can be better calculated. I said. How about tomorrow noon? Kirigiri nodded in agreement. Before that, we must be fully prepared. First of all, Kirigiri-chan, you go take a shower, and your hair is messy, I'll brush it for you. That night, as soon as Kirigiri lay down on my bed, she immediately let out a quiet snore. I wonder where or how she had been fighting her battle alone, but at least she can relax now. January 10th of the new year. After opening the black envelope and pulling out the black washi paper inside, I finally knew why the envelope was so thick. There were 12 challenge letters in it. Before opening the envelope, I imagined a variety of different types of cases, but reality was far beyond my imagination. It plunged me into complete despair. My name is written on all of the 12 challenge letters. What is this? I held the challenge letters with trembling hands and looked at them over and over. They don't look like 12 duplicates, each one contains a different case. The techniques are uniformly locked room mysteries. Kirigiri tried to keep calm and said, but her face clearly didn't look too good. This is asking us to solve 12 incidents within a week, and all of them are locked room murders? This is just too messed up. I started feeling again how terrible the Crime Victims Relief Committee really is. Common sense doesn't work with them, and that was actually clear to me from the start. The game has already started. What should we do? I held my head and started pacing back and forth in the small room. Among the 12 challenge letters, only 2 cases will take place in the same location, which means that we have to travel to all 12 cases. I don't know exactly where these locations are until I do some investigations, but their relief measures are probably not concentrated in one city. No matter how I think about it, 1 week is far from enough. Calm down, One-sama, let's discuss countermeasures. What countermeasures? How can we solve this problem without a teleportation device? And even if teleportation devices exist, it's impossible to handle 12 cases at the same time. In worst case scenario, you can just give up. Give up? Even if the incident isn't resolved, the detective will not suffer any punishment. Since this is the case, we should choose cases that looks easier to solve and forget about the rest. It's the same as skipping questions that you don't know how to answer during an exam. These are cases, not an exam, right? Some people will actually get killed, and some will kill people. This is a matter of human life. There's no such thing as a case that you can just ignore. Yes, what I meant was to try to solve as much as possible. A little bit here and a little bit there results in nothing getting solved. It's better to start with the cases that can be handled in sequence. It's more reliable this way. Kirigiri sat down on the bed and looked at me seriously. Maybe you're right. I sat down next to her, finally regaining my composure. Normally, with my skills, it's questionable whether I can solve even one of these cases. I was deluding myself that I could handle all of them with a little extra effort. Wait, that won't work. I immediately dismissed it. We can't trust the detective library. I think they're most likely secretly cooperating with the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Some of the detectives must be members of the committee. Those who accepted the white envelope. I heard that some detectives went to track down the Crime Victims Relief Committee, but their whereabouts afterwards became unknown. Their number has exceeded double digits. Thinking about it now, they might have all been murdered, but maybe some of them were invited to join the committee just like me, and they accepted the white envelope. Yes, it's people like that who will gladly get in our way. That's right, isn't it? We don't have time to figure out one by one whether the detectives we gather are friends or foes. I glanced at the desk clock and said, look, 30 minutes have already passed. At this rate, a day will pass before we reach a conclusion. What should we do? What should we do? The detectives in the detective library cannot be relied on. In that case, should we hire detectives who aren't registered in the detective library? Where can we find a detective who hasn't joined the organization and is familiar with locked room mysteries? What about your grandpa? Is he still unavailable for the time being? Yeah. Kirigiri nodded and replied, lost in thought. He hasn't contacted me since that day. 10 days ago, the current patriarch of the Kirigiri family, Yuhito Kirigiri, contacted us and reminded us to never approach Shinsen. Since he has an important job to deal with abroad, he will not be back until sometime later. I guess we'll just have to fight it out on our own. There is one more person who can help. Kirigiri said, raising her head. Hiring dozens of detectives may not be as good as just hiring them. Who? Are they a detective friend of yours? No, I don't know that person either. They are one of the 000 rank detectives, Mikagami Ray. There are currently 3 detectives with the number 000. Armchair Earl Ryuzoji Geka. Law Enforcer Johnny Arp. And the unknown Mikagami Ray. No information was disclosed in Mikagami's personal file, nor is it known where that person is currently. Only the report files of the cases they had handled so far indicate their existence. The cases handled by Mikagami were basically bizarre cases similar to supernatural phenomena, historical mysteries, and extremely confusing cases. It is said that when Mikagami solved the Zodiac Killer, a serial murder case in Los Angeles that had occurred in the 1960s and remained unsolved, they gave an interview to a local newspaper while hiding themselves behind an opaque glass. In the interview, their name, Mikagami, was translated as Ghost in the Mirror. That phrase became synonymous with Mikagami Ray. Although it's certain that Ryuzoji Geka and Johnny Arp are with Shinsen, Mikagami Ray wasn't present at that time. But that person must also be a member of the committee. They are a well-known detective who haven't disclosed their identity to the public. They must be their accomplice. I think it's worth trying to contact Mikagami to find out for sure. If they are an enemy, we should know who they are as soon as possible. That's right. Once again, I feel like I have been thrown into an untimely battlefield where I have to deal with a 000 rank detective as an enemy. How did things turn out this way? No matter how you look at me, I'm just an ordinary high school girl. How are we supposed to get in touch with someone whose true identity is unknown? The first step starts with this question. I hope this week won't pass while we're thinking about this. If you still have time to be pessimistic, you should think about it together with me instead, One-sama. According to past experiences, high-ranking detectives may not necessarily be decent people. Since they hide their true identity, they must be a very strange person. It sounds like it's coming from my backpack. Ah, could it be? I remembered what the boy Liko gave me when I left Ryuzoji's detective office yesterday. I quickly yanked it out of my backpack. The sound is coming from the wooden box. I untied the ribbon and opened the box. There is a cell phone in it, surrounded by cushioning material. The phone is flashing, indicating that I'm receiving a call. There is nothing else in the box. This is? Ryuzoji-san gave it to me. I replied succinctly, taking out the phone. I'll answer. Kirigiri nodded. Hidden number incoming call is displayed on the LCD screen. I pressed the call button. Hello? Good morning, how are you feeling? I remember his distinctive voice. Ryuzoji-san? The answer is correct. Looks like the challenge letter has been opened, and the style this time is very different from before. Did it surprise you? It probably doesn't qualify as fair now, does it? I said with a sting in my words. I turned on the speaker of the phone so that Kirigiri could hear the conversation between us. Foo-foo. It's only a fair black challenge. In fact, it's too much in your favor. Ryuzoji's voice sounded as if he was enjoying himself. Me contacting you like this is an exception among exceptions. What do you want from me? 3 things. In this black challenge, police intelligence will be quite important. You can get all the necessary intelligence that the police have through Liko, just ask him anytime. I see, so that's what he meant by help. Okay. How can I contact him? His number is stored in that phone. You can use it as you like, oh, and we will cover the phone bill. Ryuzoji probably thought that he just told a joke and laughed. It wasn't funny. The second thing is that this time, the black challenge is managed and directed by myself, Ryuzoji Geka. In other words, this black challenge is both a challenge from the 12 criminals and a challenge from me to you. I hope you understand this. Yes. Therefore, I want to set the win and lose conditions for you and me. Yes. Win and lose conditions for both of us? A 000 rank detective actually wants to duel me? If you solve all cases within the time limit or prevent them from occurring, you will be considered the winner. However, even if one case is not solved, then you will lose. Can you accept that? This is not a duel, no matter how you think about it, it's unfair to me. Except Ryuzoji ignored my opinion and continued. If I lose, I will resign from the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Resign? You mean permanently leaving the committee? That's right. As long as I, the main creator, resign from the committee, it will lose its right arm and suffer a heavy blow. For you, this condition is begged for. What if I lose? Nothing much. You will just go back to the battlefield if you lose. If anything, that might not even be a penalty for you. As long as you stay a detective, your battle will not end. It won't be an easy win, but it's a low-risk, high-reward kind of game. It feels like there is something more to it, but... I glanced at Kirigiri and silently asked her for advice. She said nothing and nodded slightly. I made up my mind. All right, I accept your challenge. Very well, not bad for the detective I fancy. There was no turning back anyway. The arrow is on the string and I'm the one who have to fire it. What about the third thing? You know Mikagami Ray, right? That name made my heart jump. I've learned about them from the archives. That's good to know. Mikagami Ray was last seen a year ago when someone confirmed that person's whereabouts in Fairbanks, Alaska, and there has been no news about them since then, but it's now certain that that person has returned to their home country. That means Ryuzoji-san also doesn't know where Mikagami Ray has been before? Unfortunately, even for us, Mikagami Ray is an elusive ghost in the mirror. The news that that person has returned to their country is the result of our analysis of several organizations entering the country at the same time. I don't quite understand. All organizations in the world are tracking Mikagami Ray, Interpol, spy agencies, special forces, military, assassins, detectives, mafia, right-wing groups. Simply put, some organizations want to use Mikagami Ray's abilities, while others don't want this to happen. Since a few years ago, there have been fierce battles for Mikagami Ray. A certain country has put all its power to form teams dedicated to capture Mikagami Ray. Only by tracing the movements of such professional teams that we were able to get a rough idea of where Mikagami Ray is. The scale of the case has exceeded my imagination. Moreover, according to Ryuzoji, the Crime Victims Relief Committee seems to be far behind others. Moving on to the main topic, today we learned that 2 organizations and 3 assassins are on their way to Mayura Station. We can be sure that they have been tracking the whereabouts of Mikagami since a while ago, and they certainly won't be going on a picnic together. Do you understand what I mean? Yes. Mikagami showed up at Mayura Station. Mayura Station is a big station located in the middle of the commercial district, and it's not too far away from here. I often go there to buy clothes during sales. In a place where I always make a fuss about the length of shorts, an international battle of this magnitude will break out that can reshape the world. It's hard to imagine such an extraordinary affair happening in a place I'm used to seeing. It feels too far from reality. It's also necessary for you to visit the station. You might be able to meet the ghost. The committee has also started to act. The committee doesn't know the true identity of Mikagami Ray, nor that person's whereabouts. Does this mean Mikagami Ray is not a member of the committee? If Mikagami Ray was a member of the committee, I wouldn't have mentioned this to you. Mikagami Ray is not an enemy. What a pleasant surprise. This means that the enemy's power is about 30% lower than I initially thought. In this case, as long as Ryuzoji Gekka can be pulled down from the position of the committee, the opponent's combat effectiveness can be essentially halved. But why are you telling me the news that Mikagami Ray has appeared? It's just for the sake of fairness. You urgently need help now, correct? By the way, it's not against the rules of the game to rely on collective knowledge to investigate the cases, so feel free to get more companions. It seemed that everything is in his expectation. Just because the other person is not an enemy, leaving them alone is definitely not going to work. We have to go for Mikagami even at the cost of losing some time. As for whether it's possible or not is another story. I sighed heavily. It feels like things are getting out of hand. I said my honest feeling. As a high school detective girl, this is way out of my league. There's still middle school detective me, said Kirigiri encouraging me. But I'm really shocked that Ryuzoji Gekka talked to Yui-Wan-sama in such a casual way. It felt like he is very close to you. You think the conversation between me and him sounded casual? My hands were shaking the whole time. Don't tell me, are you jealous? Not at all, I'm definitely not jealous. Oh really? Anyway, we are seeing a little thread of hope. We need to negotiate with Mikagami as soon as possible. Hope. I wonder if Mikagami Ray can be our hope. Having said that, can we get in touch with Mikagami before the squads of spy agencies and assassins and such from multiple countries? In any case, let's go to Mayura Station. Before that, Kirigiri-kun, do you want to go home first? No need. Kirigiri shook her head. But your clothes are only the uniform and the shirt. Don't you want to go back and change into? No, let's hurry up and get ready to go out. Why are you so worked up? At that moment, the phone in hand rang again, interrupting our conversation. I looked at the LCD screen of the phone, and it said incoming call, Licorn. I pressed the answer button. Hello? Is this Samidare Yui-san? You're quick to answer the phone. Ryuzoji should have already talked to you. Yes. Then I won't explain further. Ryuzoji ordered me to go to Mayura Station. Let's meet there. Did he tell you to spy on me? I'll be waiting for you beneath the snowflake. The phone hung up. It was a little annoying, but his last words sounded nice, so I resisted throwing the phone across the room. I ended up leaving the dorm in my uniform in the end. It's a rare occasion to go out with Kirigiri. I originally wanted to dress up, but thinking that the time left for this life-threatening game is ticking away, I chose the battle attire I'm used to, so it would be more convenient to move around. It's 5 stops away by bus. Kirigiri and I sat side by side, looking out at the view from the window. Snow is falling on the streets that's already covered with a thin layer. We can go to the beach on this bus. When I said this, Kirigiri looked at me in surprise. When summer comes, let's go to the beach together. Kirigiri still looked surprised, then dropped her head and nodded, but her expression was gloomy, as if she didn't believe that such a day would come. I smiled at her, she looked a little embarrassed and turned her head away. We got off the bus and went to the place where we have agreed to meet. Because it's the daytime of a weekend, there weren't many people around. There's a hexagonal monument in front of the station, which is shaped like a snowflake crystal. In front of this monument stood a boy with a tie around his neck and a suit vest. He is standing there with a black umbrella in his hand. Sorry to keep you waiting. Yui-Wan-sama. Kirigiri tugged at my clothes from behind me. Don't get carried away. No, I just thought Yui-san might want to go there. You're quite understanding, aren't you? Yui-Wan-sama. Kirigiri poked my back. Jokes should be done in moderation. I'm not joking around, I'm very serious about buying you clothes. I'm going back. Kirigiri turned around to leave, but now that she is inside the elevator, she could only walk in place. She looked like she was annoyed with me and just kept her back to me until the elevator reached the 3rd floor. I grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. As for the true identity of Mikagami Ray, there are various rumors that are so diverse that it's almost impossible to figure out which claims are true. Some people even think that that person is some kind of an urban legend. Liko walked down women's clothing aisle and suddenly started talking. The other customer's attention was focused on the merchandise and no one was interested in us. It looks like there is nothing wrong with my camouflage theory. I thought maybe Mikagami Ray could be several people. Is there any truth to this argument? I said casually. Maybe like Ellery Queen, Mikagami Ray could actually be a shared name for 2 people. It could also be a team of several people like Michael Slade. Don't you think Kirigiri-san would look good in this dress? Liko ignored my words and walked into a boutique. Hey, were you listening to me? Ah, that dress looks pretty. Kirigiri-chan, give it a try. I picked up the aqua blue dress, the color of the spring sky, with a lace on the chest and decorated with ribbons. The color is a bit too bright. It doesn't fit well with her style. It needs to be paired with a dark cardigan. A young girl's taste. Kirigiri said reluctantly as she looked down at the dress clinging to her chest. What are you talking about? Aren't you a young girl now? How could this dress not suit you? But it's true that a little more mature would be better on you. I'll just stay wearing my uniform. You can't wear a uniform for a lifetime. What do you think, Liko? Let's hear a boy's opinion. Cute dresses are certainly nice, but a more elegant look is better on her. You know it. I think so too. Maybe a shirt with a kitten or bear pattern would be a good fit. Ah, that's it. Let's go to another store and have a look. Liko quickly went out of the store, so I also took Kirigiri's hand and followed him. Kirigiri has already resigned to her fate. The two organizations that tracked Mikagami Ray here this time are the Chinese Intelligence Agency and the Scientific Research Unit of the Russian Army. Liko suddenly started talking about serious topics again. For us, all this extraordinariness is no longer the opposite of daily life, since both seem to be developing in parallel. You are quite knowledgeable. It's my task to convey detailed information. Liko innocently smiled as he looked back at me. The two organizations each have two non-combatants. They don't carry weapons when operating abroad, so it's safe to say they are low risk. Especially the Russian unit, they aren't soldiers, but researchers developing super soldiers. That is, experts in the study of supernatural phenomena. I looked around. From what I can tell, I didn't see any customers who looked like Russians. They were all female customers with happy faces and several shopping bags in their hands. The problem is not with them, but with the three assassins. Liko said these chilling words with a normal expression on his face. Assassins. We're about to step into their field next. It must be impossible to ignore their presence to get close to Mikagami. The first assassin's nickname is Copycat, nationality unknown, female gender, an assassin who is good at mimicking crimes. She assassinates targets by imitating the modus operandi of the target's country or state's unsolved serial murder cases. In other words, she puts her assassination target among the victims of unrelated serial murder cases to remove the suspicion on herself and her client. Because of her assassination method, most of her assignments are treated as if they were committed by other serial killers. It's just that, in this way, she can't kill people in a very overt manner. She acts cautiously and isn't able to make many attacks. It's as if a computer is searching, and information is coming out in a steady stream. Liko's appearance is already extraordinary, but I didn't expect his intelligence processing ability to be beyond ordinary too. We took the elevator to another floor, and the next one is also a women's clothing section. In the midst of the mundane and unexceptional scene, this unbelievable conversation continued. The second assassin's nickname is Nightflyer. He is said to be a Romanian with a small build, but the actual circumstances around him are unclear. His assassination method is more common. He assassinates with a silenced pistol after approaching the target. Nationality is Japanese, and he doesn't have any special nickname, but he had studied at Hope's Peak Academy. He was once the super high school level rock climbing athlete, and his name is Hidemoshi Tsurugi. He conquered many cliffs abroad after graduating from the academy and rose to fame, but from a certain period onwards, he began to perform performances of climbing historical buildings like the Eiffel Tower, Angkor Wat, and others, and as a result was expelled from the profession. Now he is using his talent as a reliable assassin who can appear at any moment, and kills immediately with a single hand. Only the Yakuza know about his current services. He can bend the body of a heavy rifle with one hand. In addition, some sources say he once crushed the heart of a police officer wearing bulletproof vests through their clothes. I'm beginning to feel bad for Mikagami, who was being chased by these guys. A super detective, known for their limit-exceeding talents, becoming a tool for political struggles and strategies, just like in the past great wars when countries kidnapped and assassinated scientists for weapon development purposes. If this is the case, then Kirigiri Kyoko may one day be used as a tool. No, maybe she's already. Walking down the aisle of the store, Liko spoke again like he is talking about the weather. By the way, before I met you two, I sleuthed around. I received witness information that a woman suspected to be the copycat was seen entering this general store. I suddenly felt a hint of murderous aura and hurriedly put on a vigilant stance. I don't see any suspicious people around. As usual, the only people around are older girls going about their business in the store. Then you should have said it earlier. What are her characteristics? She is wearing a coat with a hood, like Little Red Riding Hood. She has blonde hair and a suitcase. That appearance is very conspicuous. You can see it at a glance even if you are far away. When you see her, be careful not to approach her. One-sama, we won't be able to find Mikagami this way, said Kirigiri. As soon as we see her, we should follow her. If we want to keep going, then danger is unavoidable, right? That's true. Is this path really worth the risks we are taking? Having said that, we are not sure that Mikagami is waiting for us at the end of this path. Everything is blurred. It really feels like we are trying to capture a ghost in the mirror. Yui-san. Liko stopped suddenly. What's wrong? Is the assassin around? The swimsuit store is just up ahead. Liko said, pointing to the front of the aisle. Nice, young boy. I was about to pull Kirigiri and run forward. However, I had to stop in my tracks. Just now, a shadow passed between the aisles. A red hat just passed by our eyes. I glanced at Liko for affirmation. Liko nodded. No doubt, that person just now was Copycat. We followed her casually. Fortunately, there are several guests walking along the aisle, so we cleverly used these people for cover and followed her. Little Red Riding Hood didn't seem to notice us. She is dragging a suitcase with her left hand. She isn't particularly tall and she is also very slim. Her hand of which she is dragging the suitcase with is very pale in skin color. She should be white. The clothes she is wearing isn't so much a coat as they are a cloak, and the hat has two protrusions shaped like cat ears. Although she is wearing a hat, we can see her fluttering blonde hair from behind. For an assassin, she is really distinguishable, and she's much thinner than I thought. I whispered to Liko. It's not like you need brute strength to kill someone. Liko said with an innocent face. We followed Copycat for a while. She turned a corner in the aisle, pushed open a door with a staff-only sign, and walked in. We followed her to the door. These stairs are for the staff, I think. I wonder where it leads to. I reached out to push open the door. Wait. Kirigiri grabbed my hand. I have a bad feeling about this. Is it the footsteps of the Shinigami that you told me about? It's okay, I won't go after her. Let's just see if she went up or downstairs. I slowly pushed the door open. From within the opening of the door, a thin arm suddenly appeared and grabbed my wrist. Kaya. Then I got dragged into the door. The inside is a stairway landing and dimly lit. Copycat is standing by the door, restraining me from behind. Although I'm only separated from the store by a door, it feels deserted here. The in-store broadcast sounded very far away, almost like an illusion. I should have listened to Kirigiri's words. A sharp object is pressing against my throat. I raised my hands to indicate that I wouldn't resist, and at the same time taking a peek at Copycat. She has white skin, reminiscent of pretty girls from Scandinavia or the Alps, wearing thick glasses that appears to have a high prescription and light makeup, presumably to hide the freckles on her face. Her eyebrows are drooping, as if she is a little embarrassed, but to say the least, she gave the impression that she is rather shy and introverted. I wonder if the cat ears on her hat are because she is the copycat or because she is a foreign cosplayer. She said a few words in some foreign language and dragged me over so she could keep me under control. At this moment, Liko opened the door and rushed in. Are you alright, Yui-san? Yeah, it's fine. I reluctantly said, even though I'm still being held hostage. Did you understand what she said? She was asking, who are you guys? Liko started talking to Copycat. Although I don't know what foreign language they are speaking, the voice of Copycat gradually calmed down. As expected of Liko, his smile must have a therapeutic effect. I suddenly realized something. Kirigiri is gone. Hey, where's Kirigiri-chan? I interrupted Liko's conversation with the assassin and asked, but the two of them ignored me and were engrossed in their conversation. Even though I'm the hostage, I seem to have a subtle sense of detachment to the situation. What on earth are you two talking about? She's asking me who is your favorite manga artist. Well, Why are you chit-chatting about that? I wonder if Liko managed to persuade her. No. She is an assassin, and according to the current situation, as long as she wants to, she can kill me at any moment. Although I have been very unlucky recently, this is the first time I have been held hostage by an assassin. What should I do? I don't know any self-defense techniques, and I don't have any weapon in my hands. I was going to ask help from God. But I decided to ask from Kirigiri Kyoko instead. Help me, Kirigiri-chan. Click. While Liko was talking to the assassin endlessly, a sudden metal click was heard from behind. Copycat also felt something is wrong and looked back. By that time, it was already late. One of Copycat's hands, the empty hand, was already handcuffed at some point. The handcuffs chain extended to her suitcase, the other side of the handcuffs being cuffed to the handle of the suitcase. And behind the suitcase at the landing of the staircase, Kirigiri Kyoko was already standing there for some time. She was about to push the suitcase down the stairs. Copycat cried out, trying to catch the suitcase. She let go of me in order to chase after the suitcase. In the next instant, the suitcase began to roll down the stairs. Copycat, which was handcuffed to it, was also pulled by the suitcase and fell down together with it. The suitcase was heavier than I thought. The slender and lightweight Little Red Riding Hood with cat ears was quickly taken down the suitcase and fell on the landing of the lower floor. She bumped the ground with a loud thud and slammed into the wall of the landing downstairs. She groaned in pain and collapsed on the floor. Yui-sama, are you okay? Kirigiri came to me in a hurry. Why yeah, when did you get behind her? I just took the stairs on the other side of the store and came up from below. Kirigiri put her hands on her hips and straightened his chest. This time it was Kirigiri's quick wits that saved me again. I wonder how many times I would have died without her. There is a pen at my foot. It seems that this is the thing that was placed against my throat just now. We walked down the stairs together and gathered around Copycat. She hadn't lost consciousness yet, but she had bruises all over her body, and she could only lie on the ground, unable to move. We opened the suitcase and checked it and found that in addition to newspaper clippings related to serial murders and a few books on unsolved crimes, it was also full of Japanese manga and Thinojinshi. No wonder it was so heavy. There are several passports in it. I wonder which one is real. Maybe they are all fake. D. Among the items she carried with her, there is nothing that could serve as a murder weapon. The pen was her only weapon. She assassinates the target after making her plan, so she must have only come here today to confirm the target, and did not intend to assassinate. Liko said. Fortunately, she is a cultured assassin. Should we finish her off? And no, that's not good. I quickly said. Really? If we let her live, innocent people will be killed. After all, she is an assassin. That's not what we're after, right? We're tracking Mikagami Rei. Liko stared at me for a few seconds, and then said nothing. There are no information related to Mikagami Rei in her belongings. Kirigiri stood up from the suitcase and said. Liko, did you hear anything from her? She knew nothing about Mikagami Rei. The reason why she is here today is because she got information that the assassination target will appear on the rooftop of this department store at 4 p.m. This is significant information. Mikagami will appear at 4 p.m. I checked the time on my mobile phone. 3:50 p.m. Whoa, there's no time left. Shall we go upstairs to the rooftop from here? Liko said, not looking panicked at all. The rooftop seems to be on the upper layer of the 9th floor. It will be quite tiring to run up from here, but we should be able to arrive before 4 o'clock. Let's go, Kirigiri-chan. Wait a minute. Kirigiri squatted down next to Copycat and took off the handcuffs. What are you doing? Retrieving the handcuffs. This thing is a memento to me. Oh, from that time. Kirigiri put the handcuffs in the pocket of her uniform. So turns out she was hiding the handcuffs there. We left the Copycat and ran up the stairs. From the 4th floor to the 5th, from the 5th floor to the 6th. However, as we climbed up to the 6th floor, a siren suddenly sounded. We couldn't help but stop in our tracks, looking at each other. Fire alarm? Let's take a look inside the building. We opened the door and entered to the 6th floor to check the situation. This floor sells bedding and daily necessities. The constant sirens made the shop assistants and customers feel uneasy, but they weren't in a state of panic. The in-store broadcast soon sounded. There is currently a fire in the dining floor. Please follow the staff's instructions and evacuate in an orderly manner. Repeat. The atmosphere on the entire floor finally tightened, and some people began to scream, as well as the sound of hurried footsteps. Please take the emergency exit this way. A clerk shouted. The customers understood the current emergency situation, and they began walking in order to the emergency exit. Do you have any idea? A fire alarm at a time like this, there's no way it's not related to Mikagami Rei. Kirigiri said calmly. The problem is that we don't know whether it's intentionally created by the hunters or the person who is being hunted. In any case, let's go up to the rooftop and check it out. While we were careful not to be seen by the clerks, we went in the opposite direction of their instructions, to the staff-only door. There were no more people in sight there. It seems that the evacuation went smoothly. This floor is usually full of customers. It was very lively, but now people are gradually disappearing from here. This kind of scene looked like when the end of the world is approaching, a kind of creepy and special feeling. We opened the door to the stairs. Just as we were about to leave this floor, someone from behind suddenly stopped us. You guys, the evacuation exit isn't over there. We looked back, and there is a security guard standing on the opposite side of the aisle about 10 meters from us. He probably followed after spotting us, and he is looking at us with suspicion. Where are you going? Hurry up and evacuate. No, we were thinking, this way might be quicker. I replied hesitantly. It's dangerous over there, come here. The guy waved our direction, and I reluctantly walked away from the door a few steps. However, Kirigiri and Liko did not immediately follow his orders. Didn't I say it's dangerous? Can't you hear me? A sense of aggressiveness was added to the voice of the security guard. Why yes, we're sorry, we'll come over right away. Hey, Kirigiri-chan, follow along. Yui-wan-sama, you can't go there. Eh? Alright, time up. Disobedient children must accept penalty. The security guard stretched his arm to his back and took out something from behind. It wasn't something like a flashlight or a transceiver. It's a gun. Die. The gun with the cylindrical silencer was aimed at us. Surprisingly, however, before the man could pull the trigger, Liko had already struck first. Liko raised his umbrella, which was supported on the ground, and threw it at the enemy. The umbrella turned into a black javelin by centrifugal force and struck the security guard. However, the tip of the umbrella wasn't aimed at the man's body, but the gun. The tip of the umbrella got stuck inside the silencer. A bullseye. When the umbrella got stuck, the trigger of course couldn't be pulled, and even holding the gun with one hand became very difficult. It looks like the umbrella wouldn't be pulled out for a while. The man cursed in a foreign language, then threw the gun aside. At that moment, Liko's figure had disappeared from the man's vision. At some point, Liko had already walked around the man's back. He twisted his right arm effortlessly to an unbelievable degree without hesitation. There was a distinct sound of bones breaking over the sound of the fire alarm. The security guard let out an inarticulate scream, landed on his knees, and then fell face down to the ground. Liko stepped on the man's neck from behind without mercy and completely subdued him. A large man defenseless under the foot of this young boy. However, Liko's attacks weren't over yet. He took out a hammer from the inside of his jacket that's resting on his arm. It isn't the kind of simple tool that carpenters use to hammer nails. The overall material is similar to carbon steel, which means it must be manufactured as a weapon. He raised his hammer. Liko! I quickly grabbed his arm to stop him. Liko turned his head to look at me, his face still like a Yosei. Why are you stopping me? Enough already. No, it's not. You want to kill him? Not really, I wouldn't do that kind of thing, said Liko, spinning the hammer in his hand. I just want to break his throat, eyes, and limbs. What are you saying? It's so that he can't say anything, see anything, or catch anything from now on. There is no need to do that. Yui-san, please calm down, you don't need to speak for him. I'm not speaking for this person, I don't want you to do this stuff. I don't want to do this either. I'm only doing this so he can never get up again and come back for revenge or something afterwards. It's the same as closing the window shutters before the typhoon comes. Yes, just kill me, the man on the ground said reluctantly. I'll come for you no matter how many times it takes, so it's better to nail me to death now instead of being paranoid every night over the night sky-flying murderer. Since you think the same, then don't mind if I do. Liko smiled and raised his hammer again. That's enough. Kirigiri's voice stopped Liko. At some point, she had pointed the gun at Liko. The silencer pierced by the umbrella was taken off the muzzle by her and tossed aside. She is holding the handle of the gun tightly with both hands, her elbows aren't stretched out, but on her chest, the muzzle is aimed at the target. The gun looks too big and heavy for a middle school girl's hands. It's almost 4 o'clock, let's hurry upstairs quickly. Okay. Liko raised both hands, then tucked the hammer into his jacket and retracted the one foot that was stepping on the man. He is finally willing to listen. But just in case, I should break his left arm as well. Just like he said, Liko grabbed the man's left wrist and broke it easily. And the man once again let out a scream, his entire face covered with cold sweat. What kind of education did you grown up with? I looked at Liko tremblingly. I didn't have much of a formal education because my parents died early. Liko said with a slight smile. My ambition is to go to university and study something related to the universe. Is that so? I couldn't say anything else besides this. Kirigiri wrapped the security guard with duct tape from next to the cash register. Then we started checking his belongings. He has a wallet in his pocket, but the picture on the driver's license isn't the man in front of us in any way. He must have stolen the uniform from a security guard. He is obviously a foreigner even though he is disguised. He is Night Flyer, right? I wonder. Why don't we ask him directly? Liko approached the man, who got a little frightened, and his body trembled. Are you Night Flyer? No. Liko took out the hammer from the inside of his jacket. Yes. Yes. Seems like it. I wonder if testimonies obtained under duress can be considered truth. I said irresistibly. Yui-wan-sama, time. Ah, yeah. I checked the time on my phone. Only 1 minute left. Let's go quickly. We left Night Flyer in place and took the elevator from the 6th floor, which was almost empty, to the 9th floor in one go. We walked through the hand watches and glasses store and opened the door to the rooftop. It's still snowing outside. As soon as we opened the door, the violent cold wind rushed to us. There is a plaza on the rooftop, where beer shops and events would be in the summer, but now it's a blank sheet of snow. There are several scattered footprints on the snow, but there is no reference value to this as customers can enter and leave the rooftop at will in winter. At a glance, there is no one here. Someone has fallen over there. Kirigiri pressed her hair that's tossed by the wind and pointed deep into the plaza. Behind the flower bed made of bricks, the feet of a man lying on his back can be seen. I wonder who he is. We walked outside across the plaza. Dark clouds are right overhead. I feel like I can reach them as long as I stretch out their hand. We passed the flower bed. It wasn't only one person who had fallen there, but 4. 2 of them are Chinese males who are wearing suits that resemble that of white-collar workers, and the other 2 look like Russians with wrinkled clothes and trousers. It's hard to say they are dressed fashionably. They are scattered around the guardrail, their postures twisted like they were dancing. Outside the guardrail is a void, and we can see the gray street below from here. Kirigiri squatted down beside one of the men who looks like a Russian and touched his neck. Dead. Really, dead? I grabbed the wrist of the man on the ground. There is no pulse, but there is still a bit of temperature. What's the time now? 4:05. The time had passed. Now there is only the remnants after everything is over. I wonder if Mikagami Ray did it. These 4 people should belong to the same organizations that tracked Mikagami Ray. Liko said while rummaging through the pockets of the men lying on the floor. He found wallets and passports, but didn't have the most crucial information about Mikagami. Looks like there are no external injuries. What was the cause of their deaths? They have marks on their necks. So they were choked to death? But everyone have marks on their necks. Even if it's true that Mikagami Ray did it, in a 4-against-1 situation, why did Mikagami Ray use this time-consuming method to kill? Even if the opponents are non-combatant, the others can slip away while one of them is being strangled. Kirigiri lifted the corpse's head upside down and checked his neck. Ah. Kirigiri whispered as if she had discovered something. Broken neck. The same as for the man over here. Both Kirigiri and Liko looked very interested in the abnormal condition of the bodies. They squatted beside the bodies and discussed together. All 4 men died with broken necks? What happened here? I don't know anything about postmortems, and I couldn't help much, so I only stood on the side and watched the 2 of them. Because of this? Kirigiri and Liko didn't notice outside the guardrail, that is, the edge of the rooftop where there is nowhere to step 1 foot further. Something moved a little. I was the only one who noticed this slight change. But it wasn't clear at first. I didn't know what it was. The thing gradually grew larger, showing a clear outline. It's a human head. Outside the guardrail where there should be nothing, there is a bald man staring this way. That. The extreme fear made my whole body tremble, and I pointed at the man. What's wrong, Yui-sama? By the time Kirigiri and Liko noticed that something was wrong, the man has jumped up and is standing outside the guardrail, revealing his whole body. He is wearing a tight diving suit with sleeves and pants that are 7th length, flaunting his perfect muscles like a work of art. Before I could scream, his fingers pressed against the diamond-shaped mesh of the guardrail, just like opening a sliding double door. He easily separated the mesh to the left and right, and got in through the open hole. This person must be the former super high school level rock climbing athlete Hidemoshi Tsurugi. He has neither a rope nor a harness on him. All his equipment is a powder bag hung on his waist. Which means he only relied on his own fingers to stick to the outer wall of the building, and he was waiting for us in an ambush. The man began to walk here. Kirigiri tried to raise the gun, but the man realized her intention and rushed towards her. With a bull-like slam, Kirigiri was unable to resist. Her whole body was knocked away, her gun flew into the air and landed on top of the water tower. It would be difficult to get it back, it seems. Kirigiri-chan. She collapsed on the snow. The next target selected by Hidemoshi is me. While I was at a loss, he began closing in on me. I have to dodge. Too late. I could only watch as the man approached me. I will be knocked off my feet. I prepared myself and closed my eyes, but yet another unusual change occurred in my body. I can't breathe. Only then did I realize that the man's hand has grabbed my throat. So that's what it was. I'm experiencing firsthand how those Russians died. Just a little more force from the fingers of Hidemoshi and my neck bones would probably shatter. The face of the man who was intending to kill me doesn't have a killing intent or hatred. On the contrary, it's closer to the expression of an athlete trying his best to set a new record. 4. Him who was expelled from the profession, the final destination he found is probably the hardest cliff of conquering human life. As I thought about this, my consciousness gradually began fading away. In my blurred vision, the last thing I can see is no entry for irrelevant personnel. Kirigiri is holding a sign with this line in her hand and is walking behind Hidemoshi. Then, she swung the sign at the back of Hidemoshi's head. However, Hidemoshi acted as if nothing had happened, his body didn't move at all, and his expression didn't change in any particular way. However, from his bald head, a strand of blood dripped down his forehead. It seems that it still hurt him a bit. The hand holding my neck loosened. I was thrown and fell to the ground. Hidemoshi's strong right arm chose Kirigiri as its prey this time, and it bit into Kirigiri's neck like a snake. Hidemoshi thus lifted Kirigiri's body, and Kirigiri's feet quickly left the ground. Stop it. I wanted to yell, but I couldn't make a sound because I was being choked by my throat just now. This guy. I'll kill him. I tried to stand up with such determination, but my legs wouldn't obey me. Kirigiri's face turned blue. Kirigiri is going to die. Just as I was about to give up from despair, a black cloth suddenly fell down from above, covering Hidemoshi's face. A jacket. That's the jacket Liko threw out. Hidemoshi took off the jacket covering his face with his free hand. Then he cast his eyes on the young boy standing in the snow. Come here, the young boy untied his tie and waved his palm upwards a few times, as if provoking him. Former super high school level. Hidemoshi took this as a sign of challenge. This time, he showed a smile from the bottom of his heart. Then, like a toy that has no more meaning to him, he dropped Kirigiri and ran towards Liko. Liko had already untied his tie. With such a huge disparity in body shape, can the two sides compete with each other? Liko's body looks almost as thick as Hidemoshi's thighs, so he is really not a match with his opponent. Hidemoshi reached out his right hand like lightning and tried to grab Liko's neck. Liko doesn't have any intention to dodge. Hidemoshi showed a triumphant smile. If the neck is caught, it will be over. I almost yelled. However, Hidemoshi's arm suddenly stopped midway. The middle of his right forearm, which he reached towards Liko with, was entangled with the tie. Liko pulled one end of the tie with both hands, pinching Hidemoshi's right arm, and continued to tighten it from the sides. The expression on Hidemoshi is distorted, and blood began flowing from where the tie is tied. There is a thin steel wire in it. The more force your proud muscles exert, the deeper the wire will sink. Despite Liko's warning, Hidemoshi gritted his teeth and began to break free. Oh. He growled. At the same time, blood spurted from his arm, staining the snow around him red. Yet he failed to break free from the restraints. Hidemoshi gave up his right arm and attacked Liko's side with his free left arm. However, Liko loosened his tie without hesitation and jumped back with a quick movement. Hidemoshi regained freedom. The tie is still wrapped around his right arm, but he could still use his left arm. I don't know which hand he is used to, but since he is a rock climber, the grip strength of both hands should exceed that of ordinary people. It would be bad if he used his remaining left arm to grab Liko. Sure enough, Hidemoshi next attacked with his left arm and swung it towards Liko, but Liko managed to dodge it. It was quite thrilling. By this time, the difference in size between the two gradually forced Liko into a disadvantage. Before he knew it, Liko has his back against the guardrail. You're quite strong. Hidemoshi said his first sentence. Probably because he has completely pushed his opponents into a desperate situation, he began to be a little more relaxed. Before I kill you, tell me your name. Is it necessary? What the heck is going on? Are you really Mikagami Ray? There is confusion in my mind as I staggered out a few steps. If you had told me earlier, things wouldn't have turned out like this. As much as I want to press him, I have more important things to do. Kirigiri-chan. Liko and I ran towards Kirigiri still lying on the ground. Are you okay, Kirigiri-chan? I picked up Kirigiri. She opened her eyes and moaned. Thank goodness, I thought your neck was broken. You are. I rubbed my cheek against her soft hair. Where's that guy? Kirigiri looked around and saw Hidemoshi covered in blood and fallen on the ground. Liko knocked him down. Did he? The venom applied to the wire made the man unconscious, but he is strong, so I'm sure he won't die, but I don't think he will be able to move for a while. So it was venomous. More and more, I find this pretty boy frightening. Let's get out of here before trouble comes. With Liko's help, I lifted Kirigiri on my back. We went out of the roof and took the staff elevator downstairs. When we came out of the back door into the station, the surrounding roads have been colored red by the red lights of fire trucks and police cars. We jumped into a taxi parked on the side of the road. Liko, you get in too. Are you angry at me? I'm not angry. Liko had a troubled expression and got in the passenger seat. And with that, we left the station that was as chaotic as a battlefield. It was 6 p.m. when we returned to the dormitory, and the sun had completely set. Before I walked to my room, I ran into other girls in the dormitory hallway. They were staring with wide eyes when they saw Kirigiri sleeping on my back and the young boy in the suit vest. Yui, your range of interests has expanded lately. Just pretend you didn't see anything. I entered my room and put Kirigiri on the bed to let her lie down. There is still a frightening bruise on her pale neck. She was almost dead at that time. I feel so bad for her. Liko looked around my room with a curious look. Huh, so this is a girl's dorm room. Don't look around. I kicked the clothes and underwear thrown around under the bed. Okay. Liko sat down on the floor with a big smile on his face. I have many questions to ask you after Kirigiri-chan wakes up. But first tell me one thing, are you really Mikagami Rei? That's what some people call me, and if it's that, then the answer is yes. I don't remember what my real name is. As I said before, my parents died when I was very young, and I don't know when I got in an orphanage. Then who is the Mikagami Rei registered at the detective library? Me. But you, are you a 000 rank? That's an impressive achievement, do you know even that? I know, it's for this reason that I'm being chased by many people. How old are you now? About 12 years old. Wait, that doesn't feel right. How old were you when you registered at the detective library? When I was about 7 years old. A registration card from the detective library was needed to solve a certain case, so I went to register. In other words, a 7-year-old child rose to 000 rank in the short 5 years he took to grow to 12? To be precise, when I was about 9 years old, I already got the 3 zeros. Is this what is called a genius? It took me 3 years to finally reach my first rank up, and another person only got to rank 6 by constantly solving cases through self-directed means. It's probably because Mikagami Rei rose to 000 rank in the blink of an eye after registering that the Crime Victims Relief Committee failed to grasp his identity. Having said that, the more likely reason could be that he is very good at hiding his identity. The cases I solved with the Mikagami Rei name are all recorded in the detective library. I wonder who was watching me all this time. The members of the committee are definitely watching everything at the closed-circuit broadcast exhibitions. It has nothing to do with the committee. But isn't the detective library secretly colluding with the Crime Victims Relief Committee? No, they're not colluding. Wrong, this must be wrong, no matter how you think about it. The detective library, just like its philosophy suggests, adheres very closely to the principle of a database without a will of its own. It doesn't associate with any organization as a way to ensure the neutrality of the detectives on record. So, doesn't this mean that's just a lip service? Who knows? Liko smiled and tilted his head. Ah, you don't think all this matters, you just want to fool around, right? Fufu, sorry, after all, I have no interest in the detective library. Liko said with a childish laugh. At least there is no mutually beneficial relationship between the committee and the library. If I have to say, the committee is only using the library one-sidedly. Really? By the way, if the committee and the library are really in cahoots, wouldn't it be unnatural for the file of the committee's head, Shinsen Mikado, to be all erased? Everyone else's files are clearly left untouched. This is because, if the head of a criminal organization can let others see his files at any time, it would be very detrimental to them. Is that so? If they can arbitrarily tamper with the rank or file information at will for their purposes, then why let Shinsen be the only person whose files have been erased? Isn't this too conspicuous? Ah, that's right. In other words, it should be considered that the committee has no right to interfere with the ranks of the detectives and the contents of the files. To be precise, I think the committee didn't think about including the library from the beginning. The Black Challenge is, from a certain viewpoint, a show with a gambling nature, so it must be ensured that the detectives called in the games are rated by a neutral organization. In this sense, for the committee, the position of the detective library must be neutral. So the matches won't appear faked or else they might disappoint the audience. The audience's pleasure in the Black Challenge is probably watching real crimes. Of course, as a program. Many places have also been arranged. But this time the Black Challenge deliberately chose me as the detective, right? Can you call that neutral? As long as the limits of the expenses range are not exceeded, it's not unfair to choose any detective. I still can't accept this. I threw the 12 challenge letters to the ground. This game is about whether Ryuzoji stays or not in the organization. His worth as a detective will not be affected by 12 sheets of paper. You're biased towards Ryuzoji-san, aren't you? Yes, I have a lot of respect for him. Who are you helping, the committee or me? This sounds like a question a date would ask. Liko smiled shyly and seemed to enjoy the state act. I know that there is poison hidden in that smile. I'm afraid I might accidentally fall for it. I believe you are at least not an enemy. It's wonderful that you believe this. Liko smiled, he looked really happy. This young boy is a 000 rank detective, yet he isn't at all cocky about his bright achievements. He follows his heart and is passionate about solving mysteries. I did think he would be such a person, but I still don't know why he is working as an attendant of Ryuzoji. There are just too many mysteries about him, and there are many things I must ask him. Just as I was thinking about what to ask, Kirigiri on the bed groaned and sat up. She coughed painfully. Are you okay, Kirigiri-chan? Here, drink some water. Is it really okay not to go to the hospital? Yeah, no problem. She answered me hoarsely, then took a sip of the water from the bottle. It seems that it isn't just her throat, there are bruises all over her body, but she still tries to be strong. If I continue to be worried, I might hurt her self-esteem instead. I decided to continue where I left off. I'm going to interrogate him. I pointed to Liko, who was sitting respectfully and upright. It turns out, he is Mikagami Rei. I thought so. Kirigiri said while rubbing her throat. You knew already? I was suspicious. When Yui-Wansama introduced him, he only said he is a friend, but somehow he knew my name. Maybe I learned about your face and name from Ryuzoji? Liko retorted with a smile still on his face. Then you would have been at least surprised when you saw me. From Ryuzoji's point of view, I am the enemy he is currently searching for, and it should be impossible for me to appear in that place. Nevertheless, I confirm that you are not an ordinary person after seeing your actions facing the assassins. In that case, there is no reason to keep my secrets. This may sound like I'm making excuses, but after getting rid of those assassins in the general store, I originally intended to confess, really. Who knows if that's true? I gave Liko a slanted look. Speaking of which, why did you end up at Ryuzoji-san's place? If I can't be immersed in the unbelievable for a long time, I'll turn into dust and die. Liko showed a composed smile. There was something so genuine in his smile that there was no way to take that as a joke. That's why I sneaked into Ryuzoji's castle, which is the place with the highest concentration of mysteries in the world. However, while the number is impeccable, it's so bad in quality that it's simply suffocating. Your brain is too good for it. It looks like traveling around is more suitable for me than staying in one place. Somewhere in this world, there must be something mysterious waiting for me. Liko said with a smile like a young child looking forward to summer vacation. A detective who is purely pursuing mysteries, this is probably one of the detective's ways of existence. Some detectives are bound by the idea of what or who they want to save. Compared with those people, he appears incredibly independent and pure. Does Ryuzoji-san know that you are Mikagami Rei? I think he didn't know when he hired me, and until yesterday, he only suspected that I might be Mikagami Rei. And this suspicion of his will surely become a certainty today. Why? Could it be that Ryuzoji-san is watching us from somewhere? No, I think some of the assassins were hired by Ryuzoji. Liko said calmly. Why? Of course it was to kill me, or to be precise, it was to confirm that I'm Mikagami Ray. From the results, all the assassins have survived, and they should have reported back to Ryuzoji by now. Mikagami Ray will appear at Mayura Station. This information should have also been passed down by Ryuzoji. Kirigiri sat on the edge of the bed and said, Wait a minute, what's going on? Why would Ryuzoji-san do that? Kirigiri looked at my panicked self with a blank expression and began to explain to me. Everything was arranged in advance. First of all, Ryuzoji spread false information and arranged for the assassins he hired to go to the destination. Of course, he didn't tell the assassins the truth. At the same time, he threw a forced black challenge to Yui-Onsama, creating a situation where you had to go to Mayura Station in order to solve this black challenge. This way, he found a reason to naturally send Liko to help Yui-Onsama at Mayura Station. It was only natural that those assassins ran into Liko. It's getting more and more confusing. If this is the case, then these 12 challenge letters were a trap from the beginning, just to expose the true identity of Mikagami Ray? Thinking about it this way, there is a deeper meaning to the game Ryuzoji played with me, and making me choose between the black and white envelopes. It was an experiment, to test if I was a person who would do anything he wants. That is, when Mikagami wanted to kill those assassins, Ryuzoji needed someone present to stop him. That makes it clear why he kept someone who had only been employed for 6 months as an attendant by his side. Presumably he did this to expose my true identity. Liko looked like he is talking about something that has nothing to do with him. Seriously. It's because of you that I was being played around. I didn't expect that all this was a trap to force Mikagami to show up. However, it's a good thing that these challenge letters are fake. I'm so relieved. I let out a long sigh of relief. The scary thing about Ryuzoji is that he doesn't work like this. Liko said with a shrug. These challenge letters aren't fake. They are the real deal. And therein lies the reason why Ryuzoji is known by others as the genius of parallel thinking and multitasking. He is good at doing things simultaneously and concurrently. So then the black challenge has really begun? That's right. My brain can't keep up with the pace anymore. How many plots did Ryuzoji plan out, and he made them all work with a flick of a switch in his hand without moving from his spot? It was a terrible idea to be an enemy of the armchair detective. The black challenge has just begun. There is still plenty of time left. Liko said with a relaxed smile. The remaining time is about 161 hours, which can either be said to be a lot of time left or not enough time at all. By the way, Liko, do you know the contents of this black challenge? Kirigiri asked Liko with sharp eyes. Liko shook his head. Basically, I wasn't allowed to enter Ryuzoji's room when he works. Even if I was watching him work from the side, I couldn't figure out which of the matters he was dealing with in parallel was related to the black challenge. You did, right? You did figure it out. I wonder. Liko smiled and tilted his head, as if playing dumb. Just tell us the truth, Liko. I demanded. Who are you helping? I'm not sure. Liko spread his hands and said. Not sure about what? Is there something unclear to you? Left or right, A or B, enemy or friend, I don't know why I have to draw hard lines like these, and why I have to put myself on one side or the other. Isn't it the same on either side? It's because people like to draw hard lines that countless wars have broken out in this world. Unfortunately, there is no time to talk about philosophy now. Liko, I need your help. At least that should be clear enough for you, right? You need me? I do, please help me. Then I have a condition. A condition? Okay, go ahead. Please give me a kiss. Wah. A miracle-making magic kiss. Stop joking. On the cheek will do. CH cheek? Just the cheek? Yui-Onsama, are you going to accept this condition? H, how can I accept it? What a pity, then I'm going back. Wait. Liko was about to stand up when I held him down. Okay, I get it, sit down, Liko. Yui-Onsama, are you serious? What's the alternative? It's just a kiss on the cheek, like a greeting. Then don't show how reluctant you are through your expressions. Liko looked up at me and said. Listen, let me just say first, a magic kiss is one that a prince gives to a princess. What I'll do is just. I know, it was just a joke. Liko raised his hands in a pose of surrender. I don't need any magic. I'm on Yui-san's side from the beginning. You. I really wanted to pummel the boy in front of me, but I held back. If I can't contain my temper, I will lose. First of all, about whether I know the contents of this black challenge, the answer is no. I know neither the contents nor the solutions. Think about it. Ryuzoji had always suspected that I might be Mikagami Ray. How could he possibly let such a person know his secrets? Then you should have made it clear from the beginning. I will also tell you now, by the way. I sneaked into Ryuzoji not just to pursue mysteries. In fact, I have been investigating the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Why didn't you talk about this before? This is really irritating. I guess because I expected you to figure that out yourself. That aside, the number of people approaching me has suddenly increased over the past year. They are all detectives sent by the committee. I learned that person, Shinsen Mikado, wants to win me over, and if I don't agree, he plans to kill me. It seems that the committee really intends to use Mikagami. Generally speaking, when you want to increase your combat power, you naturally have to choose people with high ranks. So I infiltrated Ryuzoji's castle and investigated the committee's movements for a while. To be honest, if the committee had aroused my interest, I would have joined them. No integrity, huh? I don't have a policy about being a detective. Liko smiled wryly. How can he say that about himself? It's just that the committee is ultimately a mystery maker. But as much as I love mysteries, I don't want to write my own exam questions, so I lost interest in the committee. I'd rather be the detective summoned by the Black Challenge to solve mysteries than that. However, it looks like it's difficult for someone with 3 zeros to be summoned. The higher the expenses of the Black Challenge, the higher the rank of the detective summoned. Therefore, if you want to summon a 000 rank detective, it will cost a considerable amount of expenses, and from a psychological point of view, the criminal basically won't spend such a large sum of money. In conclusion, I'm willing to help you too in this Black Challenge. Yui-san, I really want to solve this mystery. Please let me help you. Seriously, you should have said that at the beginning. I scratched my head and said, I really don't know if you're being honest or deceptive. Yui-san is such a simple girl. He said innocently, and I gave him a hard hit on the head, although it was only in my imagination. In reality, I held it back. All in all, please take care of us. It's great to have you around. I held out my hand to shake Liko's, but he just grinned and didn't reach out. What's wrong? Is it really okay to accept me so easily? What are you talking about now? Kirigiri-san doesn't seem to trust me that much. Now there's a problem on her side. Kirigiri still stared at Liko with sharp eyes, almost glaring. What's the matter, Kirigiri-chan? Don't you believe Liko? Shinsen Mikado. She whispered. He can turn into anyone. Hearing what she said, I got a fright. The variationist detective who specializes in disguise and camouflage, Shinsen Mikado. So, you are wondering if I might be Shinsen Mikado? I don't think so myself. I said without hesitation. No matter how you look at Liko, he is on the small side, smaller than even Kirigiri-chan. The Shinsen we saw at Norman's hotel is at least taller than me. Even if he is a master of disguise, it's impossible to shrink himself that small. If it's the other way around by making himself look bigger, then it's possible. Kirigiri retorted. Maybe it's possible. But Liko is relatively small, and there is no point in doubting that. No, what if Liko's appearance is the real one, and the Shinsen we saw at the hotel is the disguise? In fact, the Shinsen that appeared at the hotel at that time was indeed in disguise. Theoretically, it's possible. Liko did not deny. If that's the case, then I might also be Shinsen pretending to be me. Yui-wan-sama is definitely the real one. How are you so sure? Because of the softness. Kirigiri turned her face away. So she jumped over and hugged me yesterday to confirm my identity, huh? Liko, come up with something to say. It's difficult. It's the so-called devil's proof. No matter how we discu. You're making things complicated again. All you have to do is say no, I'm not dot. No. I'm not Shinsen Mikado. However, Kirigiri's sharp eyes did not ease in the slightest. Kirigiri-chan, you don't believe that? To be honest, I believed about 60%. That's a finicky number. Liko shrugged and smiled helplessly. What's the basis for that? Voice. You haven't changed your voice yet, but Shinsen clearly had the voice of an adult man. That's right. No matter how good at disguise he is, it's impossible to switch the voice before and after the voice change period at will. No, maybe Shinsen can do that? This idea flashed through my mind, but I didn't bother with it much. Do you believe me now? Didn't I just say, I only 60% believed you from the beginning? Then you two should shake hands to demonstrate your friendship. Just use 60% of your usual. Kirigiri stretched out her hand reluctantly, and Liko shook her hand respectfully with a smile. Okay, everyone is good friends. All right, shake hands with me too, we didn't do it earlier. I reached out to Liko, and he responded honestly. His hand is as small as a girl's. I don't think there is any way that this hand can be Shinsen's. Now, we can finally move forward. I lined up the 12 challenge letters on the floor. These challenges are all cases that will happen soon, and maybe a few of them have already happened by now. And we must solve all 12 of these cases. I stretched the instruction stick and continued to speak like a commander, facing Liko, who was sitting upright on the ground, and Kirigiri, who was sitting on the edge of the bed. To overcome this black challenge, the three of us will never make it if we all act together. We need to split up and do some reconnaissance. No objections? Liko and Kirigiri nod their heads in agreement. Fortunately, the 12 cases can be fairly divided into 4 for each person. I felt a little dizzy while talking. 4 cases? It was life-threatening enough to solve one case, but now I have to solve 4 at the same time by myself? First, let's find out where the cases will happen, and divide the ones that are geographically closer into groups of 4. Excuse me, sensei. What's the matter, Liko-kun? Actually, we don't have to go to every crime scene. If the cases occur, we can take advantage by learning all the basic information from the police, can't we? It's better to use the armchair detective method to handle the cases. Doesn't that mean waiting for the predicted crime to happen? This is absolutely not allowed. The challenge letter is also a crime prediction letter. As long as the detective uses their brain, it's possible to prevent the crime before it occurs. But it's still unlikely to solve all of them. Kirigiri shook her head slowly. It won't be good if we end up spending all the time tied up in a single place, like the hotel from last time. This time there's a cruise liner and the like. Once you go out to sea, you probably won't be able to return on your own. Why yeah, that's right. With this in mind, it would be better to group cases based on the amount of expenses rather than by location. Start with the low-cost cases and group them in order, whether it is from high to low or from low to high. Choose whatever order you want. Then let's first arrange these challenge letters according to the expenses. Hey, can you hurry up? Liko stretched out his hands, looking impatiently waiting. If you leave it all to me, these incidents can be solved in time. Even you are unlikely to be able to do that. It's possible. Liko's expression is still cheerful and lively. If it's him, it might really be possible. To be honest, including the Kirigiri family, the two sides of this black challenge battle is actually detectives with the 000 rank from the beginning. Ryuzoji should have expected for a long time that Liko, Mikagami, will participate in the battle as a detective. The enemy in Ryuzoji's mind isn't me, but Mikagami. No, maybe it's Kirigiri Kyoko too, even though she is a newcomer, and her rank isn't much. Come to think of it, me being involved in this battle is already starting to feel out of place. Wouldn't it be better to just leave it all to them? Which case is the most exciting? Liko is like a puppy with a toy, as if he is about to wag his tail at any time, and he chose the challenge letter with bright eyes. There is no depth to mysteries without 2 or 3 deaths. Isn't it more likely that the more expensive cases are serial killings? How these murder weapons will be used is a great point of interest too, ha. He got excited. It's still no good. As a detective, he is not bound by any restrictions and is completely free, but at the same time, he also lacks a sense of morality and justice. His interest is only to solve the mystery and reveal the truth of the mysterious cases. As for the outcome of the events, he doesn't care at all. I can't leave everything to him. But I don't have the talent to solve cases. If he could only share a little bit of his talent with me, I would go around saving people all over the world. I feel a sudden lack of confidence. I put away the instruction stick and sat down on the ground. Yui-wan-sama, the cases haven't started yet. I know. It's really disheartening to be alone and being completely useless. But if I hang my head down now, then I really won't be of any use at all. At least I have to look forward with my head held high. Kirigiri-chan, no matter what you say, I still think we should go to the crime scenes to save people. This battle is about the pride of the detective. Yui-wan-sama. Kirigiri stared at me with a troubled face. In her eyes, I'm probably like a bad student tensing her nerves before the exam. It must seem very pitiful. Even so, I still have to keep going. I believe there is hope waiting for me ahead. Hey, Yui-wan-sama, how about this, said Kirigiri, touching the tip of her 3-strand braid. I'm also in favor of splitting up to solve the cases, but instead of everyone splitting up to solve it, how about a duo team of Yui-wan-sama and me? It's more reassuring to be together. She had a hard time saying the last sentence. I would only get in the way of Kirigiri-chan, is what I wanted to say, but then hesitated. I suddenly remembered that from the nature of the game, the role of a detective is indispensable in the black challenge. This time the detective is me, so the criminal is not allowed to hurt me. Yes, there is only one thing I can do. That is to be your guardian. That's it, Kirigiri-chan, you can concentrate on your reasoning. As for collecting evidence and taking down the criminals, just leave it to me. Am I all alone? Liko interjected. We should split the cases between us in half, 6 letters on each side. In this way, you can solve 2 more mysteries than the 3 teams plan, how about it? That's fine. Liko said with a smile on his face. Maybe he is actually quite simplistic. Then I'll continue. I picked up the 12 challenge letters. About who is in charge of which challenge letters. Each one looks very interesting, it's a real dilemma. Liko, don't say interesting, people are going to die. I'm sorry. Liko apologized honestly. But choosing specifically will only waste time, so why don't you assign them randomly? That's true. Judging from these challenge letters alone, there is no telling what kind of cases will actually happen, and it doesn't seem to make much sense to pick and choose at this time. Then I'll shuffle them. Liko grabbed the 12 challenge letters, raised them above his head and threw them upwards. And then... E.I. He pulled 6 darts out of the folded jacket on the floor like a juggling act, and tucked them between his fingers, then threw all 6 darts with a wave of his hand. One of them swept past my eyes, and I subconsciously leaned back. Tuck, tuck, accompanied by a brisk sound, some of the darts hit the wall of the room and some hit the ceiling. Each dart nailed a challenge letter, which was an amazing trick. Upon closer inspection, one of the darts pierced my coat hanging on the coat rack. Kaya, what are you doing? I'm in charge of the challenge letters that got nailed. Liko didn't seem to hear what I said at all, and happily pulled out the darts one by one. I picked up all the challenge letters scattered on the floor. I sat down next to Kirigiri and looked at the 6 challenge letters we are in charge of with her. First one. Location, goodbye bar, 20 million. Murder weapon, pocket knife, 5 million. Murder weapon, carrot dachshund, 30 million. Murder weapon, rope, 3 million. Technique, locked room, 20 million. Total expenditure, 78 million. Second one. Location, Museum of Medieval Western Europe torture devices, 30 million. Murder weapon, Iron Maiden, 30 million. Technique, locked room, 80 million. Total expenditure, 140 million. Third one. Location, Takeda Haunted Mansion, 30 million. Murder weapon, Dotanuki, 30 million. Technique, locked room, 100 million. Miscellaneous, rubber bands, 1 million. Total expenditure, 161 million. Fourth one. Location, Karyobana Academy, 30 million. Murder weapon, candle, 20 million. Technique, locked room, 150 million. Total expenditure, 200 million. Fifth one. Location, Libra Girls Academy, 200 million. Murder weapon, iron pipe, 3 million. Technique, locked room, 150 million. Total expenditure, 353 million. Sixth one. Location, Twins Ability Development Institute, 50 million. Murder weapon, pocket knife, 5 million. Technique, the ultimate locked room, 500 million. Miscellaneous, chains, 3 million. Miscellaneous, padlocks, 3 million. Total expenditure, 561 million. In order of cost. Hey, Liko, we have something more to your taste on our side. Would you like to exchange it? I'm talking about the most expensive challenge letter. The high cost means that the case will be tricky, and I want to avoid it as much as possible if I can. But Liko shook his head. Please don't let me hear such interesting ideas, you foo-foo. Liko struggled to say no. Once we start thinking about which ones to exchange, we won't have enough time. Let's make it a rule. Otherwise, I won't be able to suppress my desire anymore. He'd probably get all excited over seeing a simple picture of Stonehenge or the pyramids. Although I really want to try it, I don't have time to play around now. The technique written on this 500 million challenge letter is the ultimate locked room. Kirigiri still maintained a calm attitude. I wonder what a locked room that costs 500 million yen would look like. I mean, are these expenses even within my rank? I know that 1.3 billion can summon a 00 rank detective, but I, who don't have even 10, actually have to deal with a 500 million yen case? With 500 million yen, one can do anything. As long as you have money, you will have a wide range of options for killing. If this is the criminal's own money, it would be fine, but the money was given by the Crime Victims Relief Committee on its own initiative with a face of compassion. Perhaps this is the scary thing about this black challenge. Since the division of work has been settled, then I will go back. Liko stood up with the challenge letters. Are you going back? Yes, I can hardly wait for the moment I open the doors of the locked rooms. Speaking of which, where are you going back to? I will go back to Ryuzoji today. Aren't you and Ryuzoji-san enemies now? Will he let you in? Ryuzoji isn't so narrow-minded, and besides I wouldn't be so mean as to sneak up on him when he isn't looking. Moreover, I still have work to do over there. Work? It's my original job to receive information from the police and deliver it to Yui-san. Please feel free to contact me if necessary, and I will hand you the information. You're just like a spy. Will Ryuzoji-san give you the information under these circumstances? You shouldn't worry about this, he is a fair man. There is indeed little room for doubt. If he just wanted to get rid of me, there are many ways to do it, but he justly asked for a battle with me. I think his excessive fairness is probably one of the reasons that drove him to become a savior. Then let's all do our best. Yes, please, Liko. We parted in front of the dormitory gate. 9 p.m. For most minors, this is the time when they get reprimanded by adults if they aren't home, but for me and Kirigiri, the night has just begun. We arrived at the station and caught the train. This time we aren't going to the beach, but to the mountains. Among the 6 challenge letters, the closest crime scene is the Takeda Haunted Mansion. The total expenses is 151 million. Compared to the first black challenge I experienced, which was 120 million, this time it's even higher. I borrowed a computer from one of the girls in the dorm and looked up information on the internet. As expected, the Takeda Haunted Mansion is a well-known paranormal site among paranormal enthusiasts. The Takeda clan was once a powerful and famous local landlord. It is said to be a descendant of the Kai Takeda clan. It was very influential in the surrounding area about 300 years ago until World War II. The Takeda clan was known as Takeda the Executioner for a period of time. They were known to have suppressed peasant uprisings and small-scale conflicts by force without mercy. However, since the Meiji era, the war has left the farmlands barren, and the prestige of the Takeda clan deteriorated, eventually becoming an ordinary country clan. Now with the decline of the countryside, the owner of the mansion has also gone far away, leaving the empty Japanese-style mansion sleeping in the darkness. This long-standing and historic place has thus become one of the common places for spirits. Some people say that they have seen the ghosts of exiled samurai wandering in this mansion, and that there are heads floating in the air laughing and chasing people everywhere. It was inevitable that the Crime Victims Relief Committee would choose the Takeda Haunted Mansion as a stage for the Black Challenge. We arrived in an hour by train. Kirigiri and I got out of the train in a dark, unmanned station. Hi-ya. Once on the platform, I almost screamed because of how cold it was. The sound left a white trail in the air as if it was frozen. The chilly air unique to the mountain basin made me feel cold to the bones. Kirigiri and I walked out of the ticket gate with our faces buried in our scarves and clung up to each other. When we stepped out of the station, what awaited us was a darkness that we couldn't discern. The path in front of us stretches straight ahead, and the sporadic street lights are like signposts guiding us to this dark world. Only in this faint light can we barely see the falling snow. Yeah, this is gonna be tough. I began to regret. The deep darkness stunned me. And the next place we are going to is known for being a haunted mansion. Kirigiri has kept clinging to me for a while now. There won't be any ghosts, don't worry. I'm only next to you because I'm cold. Kirigiri replied briefly, looking around with a nervous face. The taxi we had reserved appeared in the darkness and stopped in front of us. The driver's face was gloomy, and he didn't even glance our way. Although I was hesitant to get in the car, I couldn't find any other means of transportation, so I had no choice but to get in. Where to go? A listless, calm voice. Do you know where the Takeda clan's mansion is? When I asked, the driver thought of something, then answered yes and began driving the car. I was a little concerned about his reaction, but I didn't ask further. Kirigiri was lost in thought, looking out the window in silence. There was still a constant darkness outside, and the cab was like a submarine diving deep into the darkness. When the car had been going for about 30 minutes, the dark silhouette of the mansion appeared in front of a slope. At the end of the road surrounded by bamboo trees, the silhouette seemed like a dark sediment, showing a striking outline in the night. A Mercedes-Benz and a red lightweight car are parked side by side among the shadows of the bamboo trees. Kirigiri-chan, is that? The Takeda haunted mansion should be the same as what the name suggests. An unoccupied haunted mansion. No one should be living here now. But the cars parked there are not abandoned cars by any stretch of the imagination, which means that someone has come to this mansion. An ominous premonition. There is 1 to 2 centimeters of snow on both vehicles. Judging from the snow conditions today, it is conceivable that the 2 cars have been parked here for several hours. At least the tire tracks have been covered by snow and are hard to notice. Customer-san. We arrived. The cab driver said in a gloomy voice. I paid the fare and I was about to get out of the car. Customer-san. I have a question if you don't mind. Will something happen here tonight? I don't know. Driver-san, do you have something in mind? I also drove a young man during the day. It was really cold yet he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, so I thought the customer was a bit strange. He murmured, but I didn't hear the rest of it clearly. All in all, it seems that several guests have come to the mansion today. They had already announced that this will be the stage of the Black Challenge, so this can't be unrelated to the events to come. I'm feeling more and more uneasy. Kirigiri-chan, let's go. We got out of the taxi and headed for the mansion. There is an old door in the middle of the bamboo forest. The gate is wide open. We passed through the gate and walked on the stone road leading to the entrance. In front, the tile-roofed mansion finally emerged as a solid entity. The inside of the frosted glass in the entrance of the mansion revealed a hazy light. This mansion isn't haunted, there is no doubt that there are people inside. I tried to find the doorbell, but there is no such convenient thing here. I reached out and pushed the door, which is unlocked, and it opened easily. What should we do, Kirigiri-chan? Since we are here, we should intervene, even if done forcefully. I nodded in agreement and stood in the hallway and shouted at the corridor inside. Excuse me. Is anyone there? No response. There are several pairs of shoes on the concrete floor in front of the foyer, including leather shoes, pin heels, zori, sandals, and zori. Tennis shoes. It seems that there are at least 5 people in the mansion. Having said that, these shoes are really not in uniform at all. Let's go in. We took off our shoes and walked into the foyer. On the wall of the hallway that connects to the foyer, there are disorganized collections of ink and oil paintings. Although this is a famous paranormal site, the interior is very clean and showed no sign of decay. This is also one of the common features of the buildings used in the Black Challenges. It must have been repaired by the Crime Victims Relief Committee in order to make it a game stage. We walked aimlessly around the corridors looking for people when we heard a voice from the depths of the mansion. Hey, please open the door. It was a male voice. Is he locked in there? We walked in the direction where the voice came from. After turning several turns along the wood-paneled hallway, a spacious room like a reception appeared in front of us. The sliding doors to the side of the hallway are open, allowing us to see the interior. On a glass coffee table, there are library books and a half-drunk mineral water bottle. It feels as if someone was here not long ago. This view was very similar to a scene in the ghost ship horror movie that I had seen before, and I suddenly felt a little chill. We continued further down the hallway. The door at the end of the hallway is ajar, and the air conditioning is leaking from it. Is this the place? Please open the door. The voice indeed came from there. I grabbed the doorknob and opened the door at once. Are you okay? The short hallway led straight ahead. On the right side is a row of windows. The floor underneath is made of fair-faced concrete with only a layer of mats. The cold air is wafting from underneath our feet. There is a door at the end of the hallway, and several men and women are standing motionless in front of that door. Huh? Who are you two? The big man in the Hawaiian shirt pointed at us and said, I wondered if he is the one mentioned by the taxi driver. The man, with his mesmerizing very thick gold necklace and bracelet, looked like a punk, but his appearance was so typical and over the top that I can only assume he did it on purpose. What the hell is this? This doesn't rock at all. The man in the Hawaiian shirt seemed confused. Could it be new guests? Said the woman with a bob haircut, glasses, and kimono. She is petite, and by just looking at her body shape, she looks like a teenager, but judging from her appearance, she should be between 25 and 30 years old. She looks like an intellectual beauty. If Sashiki were to grow up, this is probably what she will look like. Why yes, sorry, we are late. I subconsciously responded. What are you doing here? Is someone locked up in there? I don't know if he was locked in or if he locked himself in. Speaking of which, there is an old man behind this door, but no matter how much we call him, he doesn't respond at all. Kaya haha. The woman is wearing an exaggerated sweater with sequins, her makeup is extremely thick, and she has bright brown hair, her chest looks like it's intentionally wide open, and she is wearing a mini skirt, which feels very suitable for the kind of entertainment places that adults often go to at night. You are the 6th and 7th among the guests who have mistakenly entered here. The man in the suit and sunglasses with a model body type said, he should be more than 1.9 meters tall. He speaks with a slight foreign accent, perhaps because he is half Japanese as his looks. The voice we heard from the hallway just now was this person's. He was calling out to the one who was locked up in that room. We must not waste time. We should hurry up and interrogate that old man. I am sure he knows what is going on. But why cannot we open the door when there is no lock? You have got to be kidding me. The man shook the door back and forth. There is no lock hole on the door, yet there is no sign of it opening. What's strange is that the door will move slightly when being pulled back hard, as if someone is pulling the door from the inside. To sum up the situation so far, this group of people are invited visitors to this mansion. And there is a man locked up behind the door. Did the person inside do anything bad? I asked, and the woman with glasses and bob haircut replied. No, not really, it's just that he may know everything inside and know why we were called here. So that's how it is. I gradually understood a little bit. They must have received some invitation letter from the criminal of the Black Challenge and came here. However, the host who invited them was slow to show up, so they were at a loss as to what purpose they were invited for here and what to do. At that point, there is a man who is locked in that room and cannot come out. So they guessed that that man might know what's inside. This should be what's going on. Why can't the door open? It feels like someone is pulling the door behind the door. Hey, you, open the door. Yui-1-sama. Kirigiri drew closer to my ear. The challenge letter said rubber bands. Huh? What's the matter? At this moment, a strange noise came from the room. All of us gathered in the hallway turned silent for a moment, listening carefully to this series of noises. It sounded like something crashing on top of something else. Then there was a dull male voice. The sound of a big thing falling down, accompanied by a subtle vibration. Then there was silence. Hello? What happened? The man in the Hawaiian shirt shook the door violently. Don't shake the door slightly. Try to pull the door back using all your strength. Kirigiri suggested. Oh, let me try. The man straightened the nose of his Resento, held the door handle, and pulled the door with all his might. The door opened slightly towards us. Although it was only for a moment, a gap formed in the door, and it was barely possible to see the situation inside the room. Did you see that just now? No, it was so dark inside that I couldn't see anything. That is not what I meant. I saw something right next to the door. Please pull the door again. The man in sunglasses asked. The man in the Hawaiian shirt agreed, and pulled the door back with all his strength. This is... I see. It looks like something like a rope or rubber band is holding the door from the inside. Does anyone have scissors or a knife with them? If we cut off the thing that is holding the door closed, it might open. Ah, I do have an ordinary knife. I removed my backpack and took out the knife from the stationery box. This should work. Then, Yaki-san, the task of opening the door is left to you. Can't be helped. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event for a man like me. Watch me take care of it. The man rolled up his sleeves, showed us his rather strong muscles, and then grabbed the door handle. Here I go, rock and roll. He pulled the door with all his strength. Keep it like this. At the sunglasses man's gesture, the man in the Hawaiian shirt remained motionless. The sunglasses man inserted the knife into the gap that appeared in the door, and then moved it up and down. It's cut. In the next moment, the man in the Hawaiian shirt bounced back as the door opened and fell into the hallway. However, almost no one cast their eyes on him. After the man in sunglasses turned on the light in the room, everyone's eyes became firmly attracted by the strange scene in the room. I couldn't help holding my breath. The first thing that broke into my sight. It lies miserably in the middle of the room. A dead body. A middle-aged man in Japanese-style work clothes is lying prone on the ground. It was obvious from a glance that he is dead. To answer why, it's because a Japanese sword has pierced deeply into his back. We were a little too late. If we arrived earlier, things wouldn't have turned out like this. I bit my lip. However, in the face of the strange view of this crime scene, this feeling of regret did not last long. This crime scene is extremely bizarre. There are two armor-clad samurai are standing, and they seem to be looking down at the corpse. Kaya WH, what is that? The brown-haired woman pointed at the armored samurai and screamed. The ghosts of the wandering samurai. No, these aren't ghosts nor phantoms, it's certainly there, real existing sets of armor. Among the two armored samurai standing side by side, the one on the left is holding a Japanese sword in its right hand. The armored samurai on the right is also standing with its arms bent. It assumed a posture of holding a sword, but there is nothing in its hands, and the scabbard hanging around his waist is also empty. Could it be that the sword of the armored samurai pierced the man's back? Both sets of armor seem to be empty inside. The sunglasses man stepped into the room and approached the armors. The inside of the armors are indeed empty, and they are both wholly placed on armor stands similar to a mannequin. However, armor stands alone are still unstable, so a board-shaped pedestal is installed underneath, supported by pillars. We were at a loss for a while, but in order to find an answer that would convince us, everyone stepped into the room one by one. Kirigiri approached the man who fell on the ground first and checked him for signs of life. She shook her head from side to side in silence. The woman with the bob haircut and glasses took out her mobile phone from her kimono sleeve to call the police. The phone connected smoothly. An ambulance should probably be called as well, although I think he is dead now. Kirigiri said. I didn't bother with the body and went to check the inside of the armor sets first. They are complete sets of armor from top to bottom, Hakama with sleeves, Kodi and Sunny Tenwaraji, as well as a Warja Kabuto with beautiful magnificent decorations and Amanguto cover the face. I looked inside the helmet trembling, but there is only darkness inside. There is no doubt that both sets of armor are empty. Were these armors here originally? I asked no one in particular. Yes, that is right. The sunglasses guy next to me replied. It is just that these two sets of armor were placed on the wall as decorations, not in the center of the room like this, and the swords were also in the scabbards. That means someone moved the sets of armor here and put them side by side like this? Or maybe it moved by itself. The man in the Hawaiian shirt said seriously. Indeed, from the current situation, it is possible that the two armored samurai attacked the victim. Having said that, I have no idea what's going on in this room. The room itself is very simple. The depth and width are about 10 meters. There are almost no furniture and household items. The walls are decorated with several ancient paintings and calligraphy with very dirty borders, and next to the wall are two pillars arranged in parallel longitudinally. There are many hooks on the pillars, presumably used to put katanas or bakute in them. The floor is paved with wooden boards, and the part near the center of the room is blackened and seemed to be very old, so I think this room probably used to be a kendo dojo. There are two framed sentences on the wall, which read to win or to lose by real swords and 1,000 miles to spare respectively. In such a place, a man got stabbed to death by a real sword. The armored samurai are located closer to the center of the room, standing side by side on the left and right, just like a pair of Neo statues. Both armors are facing the center of the room, or one could say they are gazing at the body that had fallen there. One of the armored samurai is holding its sword firmly in its hand. It looks like the inside of the armor's handguard has a structure similar to that of a hand that was holding the hilt of the sword. Kirigiri approached the armor and observed it carefully. The torso part of the armor is also stained with blood. It should be splattered on. The bloodstains are still fresh. We can assume that the blood was splattered on it not long ago. Bloodstains can also be seen on the floor nearby. Hey, Kirigiri-chan, this katana is the murder weapon, right? Yes, there doesn't seem to be any other external injuries. Then where is the shrine tanuki mentioned in the challenge letter? I didn't see anything resembling a tanuki. I think that's the name of this katana. Oh, I see. I looked it up later, and the correct way to spell it is dotanuki. Hey, this still doesn't make sense. There is no other possibility besides the armored samurai stabbing the old man to death, the man in the Hawaiian shirt said stiffly. If someone stabbed the old man to death, where did that person go? I can't find them anywhere. Did they escape? The woman with brown hair trailed off. You can see that all windows are locked, right? The windows are lined with wooden lattices, so no one could have gotten out. The other door is also tightly sealed with rubber bands from the inside. The sunglasses man walked over to the double door on the far end of the room. The doors aren't locked, but the left and right handles are wrapped with rubber bands that makes the door impossible to open. The door we came from had rubber bands hung between the doorknob and the wall rack, then wrapped around a few times. Said the woman with brown hair. The cut rubber bands are curled up beside the door. This should be called a locked room mystery, right? Said the girl with glasses calmly. Or the murderer might still be hiding somewhere in this room. But I took a rough look at the room, and there is nowhere for someone to hide. Kirigiri-chan. I whispered to Kirigiri while I careful not to be heard by people around me. If this is the locked room of this black challenge, then this matter has something to do with the Crime Victims Relief Committee, right? So is it possible that there is a mechanism somewhere in this room, like a place on the floor that can be opened, or the walls can be rotated or something like that, and that's how the murderer escaped? Your reasoning is the same as last time, Yui-wan-sama, but it's not necessarily wrong. She's talking about the Norman's hotel case, right? Anyway, it's best to assume all kinds of possibilities. By the way, Kirigiri asked the visitors, including the one who was killed, is this how many people came to this mansion today? Yes, that's right. The woman with glasses replied. The 4 people who were originally in front of the door were the Hawaiian shirt, bob haircut with glasses, sunglasses, and brown-haired hottie. They were worried that the victim would stay behind closed doors. With me and Kirigiri, it's 6 people, and counting the victim, it's 7. Everyone is here? I see. Kirigiri replied without emotion and began to check the floor nearby. Before the police arrive, let's check all the places we can together. Hey, who are you kids? Shouldn't you be ordinary guests? Yeah, aren't these 2 little girls a little suspicious? We aren't. We're actually. Just when I was about to say something, Kirigiri pulled the hem of my shirt, so I closed my mouth again. It won't be too late to explain later. Let's focus on the case now. Why yeah. Kirigiri and I checked the floor, walls, ceiling, and every other possible place, but there was no place or mechanism for a person to pass through. We decided to check the situation outside before the police intervenes. There might be traces left on the snow. I looked out from the window of the hallway. The outside is an atrium. It's pitch black, so I could barely see the atrium that's colored white with snow through the light coming from the window. At least from here, there are no footprints within sight. It's a whole clean field of snow. Then, we came to a position where we could view the entire scenery from the outside. From the corner of the main building of the mansion, we can see the shape of the kendo dojo through the window. That place can also be regarded as a backyard, a space surrounded by buildings and a bamboo forest. From here, I can see the double door which should be the one leading to the crime scene. The one which has its handles from the inside of the door are sealed with rubber bands. It's just that, no matter what, it seems certain that no one has ever entered or exited that door, and there are no footprints in the backyard. In other words, the crime scene is a snow-locked room mystery. At exactly midnight, the sound of police sirens and warning lights had already surrounded the haunted mansion. Policemen in uniforms, criminal investigation officers in suits, and criminal forensics in overalls rushed into the scene in droves. This is the first time for me to experience a black challenge involving the police. The items listed in the challenge letter have all been used, which means that the murderer's turn is over and it is our turn to act. However, with the police controlling the situation, it's unlikely for them to allow us to move freely. All the relevant personnel, including me and Kirigiri, were concentrated in the reception room. The rough-faced, suit-clad interrogators began to question us. I've said it several times. We received a black letter, which told us to come here and wait for a takeda or something. Said the man in the Hawaiian shirt sitting on the couch. Black letter? Out of my usual habit, I asked without thinking, and the interrogators turned their heads and glared at me. Sorry, please go on. It's true, I left the letter at home, so I can't show it to you guys. I have it with me. The coming January 10th will be the 100th birthday of Takeda Saiyan, the head of the Takeda clan. Therefore, to commemorate his centennial birthday, we will be hosting a feast at the Takeda clan's mansion. Chefs from Ryotai restaurants will be invited to prepare dinner. Please come visit our humble house. This strange invitation letter also gave me a sense of déjà vu, which is probably the usual pattern of the black challenges. Do you all know this person named Takeda Saiyan? An interrogator asked. That's. Everyone in the room shook their heads. If you don't know this person, why would you still be invited to a birthday party at a place like this? Didn't you guys think it's suspicious? Of course I thought so. The Hawaiian shirt man replied with an exaggerated shrug. By the way, Takeda Saiyan had already passed away more than 10 years ago, said the young interrogator. But if he was still alive, he would be exactly 100 years old now. I knew it was so. Does that mean we were called by a 100-year-old ghost? What a bad joke this is. Said the man in sunglasses. He crossed his legs and sat on the couch leisurely. From the perspective of those who don't understand the current situation, they might think that he is the one with the highest status among the people present. Incidentally, the woman with the bob haircut and glasses is sitting upright on the couch. The eye-catching brown-haired woman is in sharp contrast to her. She has put her legs on the coffee table, as if she doesn't care that she is wearing a miniskirt. It's difficult to believe, said one of the interrogators. For what purpose did you come here? I thought I told you that I was called here by a strange letter, said the brown-haired woman. Can you let me go back now? I can't let you go yet. I hate this old geezer. This is a homicide. A person has died. I hope you can take this matter more seriously. At the interrogator's advice, the woman pouted and didn't say anything. What about you young girls? They finally turned their attention to us. All right, what's the matter with these 2 little kids? Said the Hawaiian shirt man. Actually, we also received a black letter, so. That's strange. Just now you reacted as if you only just learned of the black letters. I heard that the 2 of you came much later than the others. Is there any reason for this? We had other things to deal with in the afternoon, so we didn't have time then, that's all. You are not ordinary children, are you? The man in his 80s intervened. You examined the body without a change in your faces, and then go around the crime scene to check if there are any hidden pathways. All right, I confess. I said with some self-loathing, telling the whole story. We are detectives. We came here to solve the case. We knew beforehand that an incident would happen here, but we can't say what our source of information was. When we arrived here, we were already a step too late. I shook my head. All kinds of stares were focused on me, among which the stares of the interrogators were particularly icy. Oh, a detective then, eh? What about you? I don't have to say anything to you. Kirigiri said blankly like a mannequin. Facing the criminal police with this attitude, I don't know whether to say she is well-trained or too cold. Hey little lady, this is a case investigation. This is not the time for amateurs to play detective. Are you listening to me? The interrogator looked like he could probably scare the suspect into tears just by looking at their eyes, yet in front of his interrogation, Kirigiri put on a matter-of-fact expression, looking into the distance. Inspector, please step aside to talk. At this time, a young policeman came and called to the interrogator. We'll talk later about what's going on. Inspector. The young policeman did not relent. What's wrong? Just now the police station called. The 2 policemen spoke in whispers. After their dialogue was over, the policemen turned around and bowed their heads deeply to me and Kirigiri. I'm very sorry, I didn't know that the 2 of you are assistants of Ryuzoji-sensei. In fact, you 2 could have told us earlier. Yeah. I nodded in confusion. What did Ryuzoji-sensei say? He just said he sent 2 detectives and asked us to take care of them. You 2 arrived very early. As expected, you are not the same as amateurs playing detectives. Let's go through the. I somehow feel a sense of joy. At the same time, even if we say that the case in this mansion is made by Ryuzoji, I'm sure no policeman would believe it. Then next, we want to ask you about the situation. We will summon you to another room for inquiries one by one. Please cooperate. It's not over yet? My skin's all dry. Who is responsible for this? Let's start with the one in the kimono. The interrogators completely ignored the dry skin problem and led the woman with glasses to the next room. At the same time, the remaining officers also left the reception room one after another, leaving only one uniformed police officer in charge of monitoring. Well, this is a trouble. said the man in the suit and sunglasses. Although he said that, his tone was very calm and did not look panicked at all. He treats people very politely, so he is not too annoying, but then it seems that he is probably a person who does what he wants. Speaking of which, I did not expect that you are detectives as well. As well? Yes, apparently all the guests gathered here tonight are detectives. Everyone? Even you? Yes. Why didn't you tell the police at the time? It was as if they were hiding their detective identity. Police and detectives always have bad relationships with each other. It is because we have experienced this in our past that we avoid unnecessary self-expression and have no other intentions beyond that. People working under Ryuzoji won't understand what we're talking about. A detective with no background like me having a rocky career, for example. The man in the Hawaiian shirt intervened and said, there are also many imperatives in the detective world. I can't help but think that. The reason for this thought is probably because I'm still an inexperienced half-baked detective. I'm sure I'll have to confide in the police when I'm questioned anyway, so I'll just tell you guys as soon as possible. I don't really want Ryuzoji-san to suspect me. The man in sunglasses took out the detective library registration card from the inner pocket of his suit. Salvador Fukuro Yadarigi DSC number 752. I specialize in counterfeit fraud cases. The man in the photo printed on the card is also wearing sunglasses. It's not the same as a passport or a driver's license, so it's okay. Rank 2. That's so cool, I'm only at 8. The brown-haired woman with 2 legs resting on the glass coffee table leaned out. It turns out that she is also a detective. She took out her card from her cleavage, and it was covered with shiny decals. Kaketsubata Korisa DSC number 488. My field of expertise is in animal affairs, so I guess I'm considered an animal enthusiast, right? Because of the many decals, her card is several times thicker than normal. This is the first time I have seen someone stick decals on their detective card. I think it might be impossible to plug it into the terminal of the detective library. Here's mine. The man in the Hawaiian shirt flashed his card casually. Yaki Hajiki DSC number 666. Area of expertise is gambling. I don't gamble, I just teach a lesson to those who break the law for easy cash. You already knew that everyone is a detective? Yes, in fact, before you came, we revealed our identities as detectives during the flow of the conversation. We are also all detectives, so it was more convenient to reveal than to conceal. Yadarigi pushed his sunglasses and said, it looks like it was all prearranged, said Yaki, using the window pane as a mirror and tidying up his shirt collar. The writing of the birthday party invitation that we all received should be the same, but the detective commission in the envelopes are different. For example, the one I received is that this mansion was used by someone as a venue for illegal gambling, and I was commissioned because this is my area of expertise, so the other party put an attractive bait to get me hooked. As for my detective commission, I was expected to judge whether the paintings in this mansion are real or fake. Yadarigi said with an exaggerated gesture. However, if even the content of the detective commission is false, then I have to say that the criminal knows the detective situations quite well. The birthday party is suspicious no matter how you look at it. It's precisely because this was too obvious that it was necessary to make the more specific life, that is, the detective request that looks more realistic. Presumably this is the trick of the criminal. What I read is that there were people buying and selling protected animals here. I thought it was a hassle, but if it's true, it would be bad, right? Isn't it natural to feel sorry for them? That means you've all fell into a trap and gathered here. Who you saying fell into a trap? Yaki said defiantly. No, it is the truth, so just admit it. Yadarigi persuaded him. We were caught in the trap of the criminal and were recognized as criminal suspects in this murder case. This pattern is very similar to the serious observatory case I experienced last month, in which detectives received fabricated detective commissions and then stepped onto the stage where the incident occurred. In that incident, the detectives were murdered one by one. There is only one victim this time. Since the police have already intervened, it should be considered that the murderer will not continue to commit crimes. Of course, there is no guarantee that this can be 100% assured. Then, what about you two? Are you really detectives? Hearing Kaketsubata's question, I showed her my detective library card. You seem to be young. How old are you? A high school student? Really? Aren't your boobs too big? By the way, you don't even specialize in murder cases, but you can still be a murder investigator? That's not fair. I want to do something like that too. There's a reason for this. I can't really explain it to her, so I changed the subject. This is Kirigiri-chan over here. She is a middle school detective who is younger than me. Isn't she cute? What is her specialty? Yadarigi asked with interest. Is it the right time to talk about this? Kirigiri replied coldly. You fell for the perpetrator's trap, and now you are suspected of murder. Wah! Yadarigi switched the sides of his crossed legs and opened his 2 long arms. You are right. If this incident is not resolved, it will not only be a problem of disrepute, we may be unnecessarily charged. TSK, I don't even specialize in murder cases. You're gonna have to solve it. Huh? I get the shivers from murders too. While the two of them were talking lively, the woman with glasses came back, and she sat down upright on the couch with a nice posture. Investigator-san asked Kaketsubata-san to go over. Huh? It's my turn next? I'm too sleepy. If my skin has a problem, will the police be responsible for it? That said, this feels the same as when I did bad things in school and was called to the faculty office. I feel a little excited thinking about it this way. Kaketsubata muttered to herself and went to the next room. The 2 young detectives just now introduced themselves. Yadarigi said in a smooth tone. Era, then I'll also introduce myself. She hid a smile. My name is Mizuyama Sarah, and about the reason why I came here, have you all already said it? Mizuyama Sachi DSC number 527. I'm in the same boat as all of you. The detective request I received said soliciting opinions on reconstruction. My field of expertise is construction related. By the way, what do you know about the man who was killed? Shiresu Suntetsu, 52 years old. Yadarigi replied. There was a registration card for the detective library and his belongings, and there were no suspicious items other than that. His DSC number was 126. This number means that he worked in the field of religion. He was mainly responsible for Oriental cults and other aspects, I believe. I wonder if this case has anything to do with religion. Mizuyama tilted her head and said. Who knows? The reason for his murder may have something to do with that. Yadarigi answered. What happened to the Shiresu person before we came here? I was told that he locked himself up in that room and couldn't come out. No, he didn't lock himself up. Yaki said while half lying on the couch, shaking his hands from side to side. That guy disappeared at some point, and because he disappeared so suddenly, we thought he was the one who brought us here. It looked like it was the case at that time. We checked his stuff and found his detective card. Then, while we were looking around for him, we found the door that couldn't be opened. In the daytime, that kendo hall was still accessible normally. Yadarigi explained. But at some point, the door suddenly would not open. Since there is no keyhole in the door, we guessed that someone inside blocked it. So who in the end did such a thing was the first thing we considered when we found that everyone except Shiresu-san had gathered at that place. This way, it was natural to think that the person behind the door was Shiresu. Then, while they were looking at the door, the 2 of us showed up. Immediately after that, the incident happened. When the victim was stabbed behind the door, Yadariji, Kakatsuba, Yaki, and Mizuyama were all on one side of the door. They gathered at the Takeda Haunted Mansion today, or yesterday, to be more precise, around 1 p.m. on January 10th. It's impossible to distribute invitation letters and get the actors together in just 1 hour. So the murderer had predicted that I would open the challenge book at noon on January 10th and acted in advance? Coincided with the day when everyone gathered, so the murderer quickly carried out the crime. After arriving at the mansion, Yadariji and the others first introduced themselves. At that point in time, they were still mutually probing each other, and no one revealed their identity as a detective. At 3 p.m., 2 hours after the meeting time, the client still did not show up. At which point everyone began to have doubts. After this, everyone started wandering around in the mansion at will, and whoever was doing what and where could only be asked about from them separately. At 9 p.m., everyone finally began to think that the requests themselves might be fabricated, and perhaps some suggested whether to leave. Among them, Kakatsuba was the first to reveal her identity as a detective, and then the others also revealed their real reason for their visit. At that time, Shiraisu disappeared. Everyone became more and more suspicious that Shiraisu might be the client, so everyone started looking for him everywhere, but found nothing. At 10 p.m., Yadariji noticed something unusual about the door of the kendo hall at the end of the outer corridor. He tried to open the door, but the door could only move slightly and couldn't be opened. In the next 30 minutes, Kakatsuba, Yaki, and Mizuyama appeared in the outer corridor one by one. 30 minutes passed as they explained the situation to each. At that moment, Kirigiri and I appeared. Next is what we experienced. When we tried to open the door, there was a loud noise in the room. We broke the locked room and entered, turned on the lights, and found the man with the katana stabbing him in the back, lying in the center of the room. It must have been the sound of Shiraisu-san falling down when he was stabbed, right? I said without a clear aim. Yes, when I rushed to the victim's side, I saw that the wound on his back was bleeding as if he had just been stabbed. That means that the person who killed him was actually there at that time, right? Yaki said as he folded his arms. When we stepped into the room, there were no lights. Mizuyama carefully translated her thoughts into words. Could the murderer have taken advantage of the darkness at that time to slip out through the door that had just been opened? No, I was the last to enter the room. During the time I was in the outer corridor after the fall sound, no one came out of the room. Moreover, the door opens outwards. The old trick of hiding behind the door wouldn't have worked. I felt for the room's light switch in the dark, but I do not think that lasted more than a minute. If the murderer had taken advantage of the dark to escape, they would have had to escape in just 1 minute. Yadariji explained. So there's nowhere to run. After that I checked the periphery of the scene with Kirigiri-chan, and there were no traces of footprints in the snow and such. Then where is the murderer who killed Shiraisu-san? Mizuyama put her index finger at the corner of her mouth and tilted her head. I knew it. It really was the armor who did it, right? Yaki frowned and said. The armor is empty inside. That is an absolute fact. Yadariji answered. I've seen it too. There was no one inside, and there were no suspicious tools or devices. That's not what I meant, see, that. What do you mean? It was Yuri. Why do you have to make me say it as an adult, Yuri? Yadariji asked very seriously, but no matter how anyone thinks about it, it's ridiculous and irrational. How could a Yuri become an armored samurai to kill someone? Moreover, although this reasoning may be a bit suspicion of omniscience, because this is a black challenge, it's impossible for the incident to end with a supernatural conclusion. The murderer must be motivated by revenge and used some method to kill the victim. But how did the murderer do it? The crime scene was a locked room, and when the victim was attacked, all the suspects were outside the door. There were no footprints around the building, and no third party could have been present. No matter from which point of view we look at it, this looks like an impossible crime. Can you tell me where and what each of you was doing after 3 p.m.? Kirigiri said as she rested her armband hand on her waist. As expected of a number 9 detective who specializes in homicide cases, she already assumes the posture of an investigator. Are you trying to check our alibi? Mizuyama said, her expression a little unpleasant. Of course it's okay for me to tell you, but why are you asking for an alibi from so long ago? Shiraisu-san was killed around 11. The victim disappeared around 3 p.m. From that point on, the murderer may have been in contact with the victim. So that's how it is. But there is no alibi. At that time, I was reading in this waiting room. Because this was supposed to be our meeting place, everyone came in and out frequently, but I basically stayed in that place all the time. It might be a bit rude to say that, but aren't you a little lacking in stress? I tried to tactfully ask. A mysterious figure called you to this haunted mansion. And you still had the time to be so laid back in this situation? I didn't think the situation was that serious. I only heard later that this is a haunted mansion, and I thought that as long as I wait a while, the client will appear sooner or later. I thought it should be prioritized to comply with the confidentiality obligation. Maybe she's right. At that time, there was nothing that could be called an incident. There was nothing unusual except the mysterious detective commission in hand. I probably would have taken the same actions as she did. Did you not see the victim at that time? About 3 o'clock, he was sitting on the couch over there fiddling with his phone, and after that, I don't know. He was making a call on his cell phone? I asked. No, he said he was checking stocks. I didn't ask, he took the initiative to tell me. I have been checking the calligraphy and paintings in the mansion since about 3 o'clock, Yadariji replied. I came here to identify paintings and calligraphy forgeries, so I plan to do a little homework in advance before the client shows up. I especially spent more time observing the paintings in the foyer. Incidentally, I rubbed shoulders with Shiraisu-san several times in the foyer, and there was nothing suspicious about that. But I can't remember the exact time. Then Yaki spoke up. There's not much to say. I just wandered around the mansion and never met the old man. However, I did keep bumping into that frivolous woman, and she said a lot of nasty stuff. She said she was on the phone and told me to get lost. Turns out that everyone was alone and no one was able to make an alibi for anyone. Having said that, it would have been rather out of place for anyone to have a reliable alibi for such a long period of time, from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. I was so tired. At that moment, the interrogators finally let Kakatsuba go, and she returned to the waiting room. She flung her hair, fluttered on the couch, and laid her head on the armrest. Next is you, burly Yankee delinquent. The scary old geezer is calling you. Who you calling Yankee delinquent? Where exactly do I look like a delinquent? Yaki tidied the nose of his risento and went to the next room. Everyone had already talked, so I'll also ask Kakatsuba-san to answer. I said to Kakatsuba in place of Kirigiri. After 3 p.m., where and what were you doing, Kakatsuba-san? Oh, you really look like an investigator now, she clapped her hands happily. At 3, right? Who remember those kind of trivial things? Just talk about it roughly. Well, I just went to various rooms and looked around, and called my friend on the phone while walking. I think. Got it. I feel that just asking won't lead anywhere. Yui-wan-sama, said Kirigiri close to my ear while standing on her tiptoes. There's nothing more to do here. Let's investigate a few places while we're at it. Let's go, to where? Kirigiri grabbed my wrist abruptly, intending to pull me out of the reception room. Duty abandonment. Kakatsuba's voice stung me in the back. Sorry, we'll be back soon. I turned around and threw down this sentence, and was dragged into the hallway by Kirigiri. What's the matter, Kirigiri-chan? You are rarely this active. She used to say that if she didn't receive a commission, it would be meaningless to solve the case. Otherwise, her sole purpose is to advance. She is always reluctant to get involved with black challenges, so it's hard to imagine that she would have such an attitude now. Not much time. Are you saying that there is not enough time? Indeed, the remaining time is decreasing by the second, but simply calculated, a case can take almost 28 hours, so there is still plenty of time. That's not what I meant. Kirigiri lowered her head, covering her mouth with her hand, as if it was difficult to speak, but at the same time, her hand that was holding my wrist did not relax at all. I watched closely behind her, watching her slender shoulders and back. What a heavy burden this 13-year-old girl's body is carrying, and how much of it she is taking on of her own volition. Can't I share some of her burdens for her? There are still some things you can't tell me, right? She didn't nod, nor look back. Because of all this mess of a black challenge, I never had the chance to ask you, is there any reason why you can't go back home now? We can discuss this later. Kirigiri shook off the helping hand I extended to her, and briefly refused. But I wasn't discouraged. Did something happen at your home? Yui-1-sama. Kirigiri cast a sharp gaze at me. There's no time for ramblings now. This isn't a rambling. I wanted to say that, but I gave it up. The transparent wall between her and me, I thought it no longer exists, but now I sadly find that it is still so insurmountable. We walked out into the hallway. The hallway connects the main building of the mansion to the kendo hall of the annex, which is the scene of the crime. Several forensic officers are collecting fingerprints and footprints at the entrance of the kendo hall. I bowed to them and entered the scene, holding up my armband proudly. Several more forensic officers are busy moving around in the room. The body seems to have already been moved out, leaving only a dark pool of blood on the central floorboard. The two armored samurai remained the same. The eerie atmosphere at the time of the incident seemed to have been gradually cleansed as the forensics officers worked in silence. Perhaps because of that, the armored samurai who had such a strong presence now looked like out-of-place foreign objects. Kirigiri approached the armored samurai who has the katana. Ah, be careful, it's sharp. One of the forensics warned. Kirigiri only stretched her neck and observed the katana from a distance. I wonder if this is the same kind as the one that was stuck in the victim's back. I don't know the detailed technique and manufacturing method, but I think it's safe to say that it's the kind of thing that comes to mind when you hear the word katana. Kirigiri brushed up her hair around her ear and stepped away from the armored samurai, then put on her black gloves. You girls Ryuzoja-sensei's little students, he's gotten pretty serious again lately, hasn't he? The forensic said admiringly. Apparently, Ryuzo usually dispatches the children he hires to crime Asinastager. Information. It's an act that's allowed because of Ryuzoji's track record. However, few know that Ryuzoji is an executive of a criminal organization. I wonder which is greater, the number of times Ryuzoji has contributed to solving crimes or the number of times he has been involved in black challenges. No, for him, both are relief. There's probably no distinction. What's the estimated time of death of the victim? Kirigiri asked the old man of the forensics. At the time of the investigation, the victim hadn't been dead for long. At most, he had been dead for about an hour. In other words, the estimated time of death is around 11 p.m. It's about the same time that we heard the sound in front of the locked room. So at that time, the victim was stabbed by someone and died on the other side of the door. Kirigiri stared at the pool of blood on the floor for a while, but then turned her eyes to the armored samurai in front of her. It seems that both of them were originally being displayed near the wall. I talked to Kirigiri's back. Why were they moved to the center of the room when the incident happened? Kirigiri didn't look back, but tilted her head as if she is holding her body with both arms. After a while, as if she noticed something, she approached the armored samurai who doesn't have a katana and crouched down. She seems to be looking at the feet. The armored samurai is wearing no waraji and tabi. What's wrong? Look, the waraji's dirty. When I looked at it, the old man of the forensics also looked at it from the side. True, it looks like mud. He lifted the edge of the waraji with the tip of a ballpoint pen and tried to look underneath it. It's a little wet. Like it was walking on the snow. Yeah, no way. The thought of an armored samurai wandering around in the snow gave me goosebumps. Did this armored samurai really move? The rumor that the spirit of a fallen samurai being witnessed may have been about this armored samurai. Yui-1-sama, you have a measuring tool with you, right? Yeah. I took the tape measure from my backpack. Do you want to use it? Kirigiri nodded, took the tape measure, and measured the size of the waraji. About 26.5 cm, I think. What are you measuring the foot of an armored samurai for? Kirigiri stood up and returned the tape measure to me. We will take the armor away, said the old forensic officer. Bloodstains were also found on the torso, necessitating further examination. Can I ask if it's the blood of the victim? I asked. We won't know until we do a DNA test. However, the blood type is AB, the same as the victim's. Is that so? We can only assume that this armored samurai moved and attacked the victim. Now I can imagine the specific scene. The armored samurai pulled out the shimmering sword from the scabbard and thrusted it towards the victim's back. In which direction are the police investigating now? At this rate, it should be considered a suicide case. As suicide? Judging from the situation of the scene, there was no other person in this room. But the victim was stabbed in the back, right? Is it even possible to stab yourself in the back with even a short kitchen knife, let alone a Japanese sword? No, he only needed to fix the sword in one place. Fixing the blade in a place to stab oneself is a very old-fashioned technique anyone can use to fake the illusion of being attacked by someone else. And what place was it fixed to? Ah, there is just the place for that here. It's the armored samurai. If he ran into the armored samurai with his back facing the Japanese sword, he should be able to commit suicide with it. But I shot the idea down immediately. This is the black challenge. There is no way this could be a suicide. No way. What if these people gathered here have nothing to do with the black challenge? Hey, Kirigiri-chan, could it? I wanted to talk to Kirigiri, but she seems to have lost interest in the armored samurai and walked to the double doors of the room. The rubber bands that sealed the door remained intact. There is a lock under the door handle, which means the door can be locked from the inside with just a single turn, but the murderer did not lock the door for some reason, but sealed it instead with rubber bands. Does this have anything to do with the locked room technique? Kirigiri remained silent, pressing both hands on one of the double doors, pushing her insignificant weight on it outward. The rubber bands that sealed the door stretched slightly, and a gap appeared in the middle of the door, barely letting the wind in. Behind the door is the backyard. It's pitch black, and I can't see anything. Let me help you. I lean my back against the door next to Kirigiri, intending to use the strength of my legs to open the door with my back. As a result, the rubber bands unexpectedly stretched by a lot, and the gap in the middle of the door can probably allow a person to put their arm through. These rubber bands are very loose. It's necessary to think about why the door was locked with rubber bands. Kirigiri walked away from the door. I think the key lies in the gap created when the door was pushed open like this. Yui-1-sama, let's not just push one side this time, try to push both doors open at the same time. We simultaneously pressed our weight on both doors and pushed them outward. The gap in the center of the door widened, almost allowing a slim person to squeeze through. It's just that the rubber bands are blocking the way at waist height. If you want to avoid it, you have to squeeze through a narrower gap. It looks like a little skill is needed. But this way, one thing becomes clear. There is a gap in this locked room. Just find something to jam in the doorway and you should be able to get in and out of the room easily. At first glance, this locked room looked like it was airtightly sealed with rubber bands, but in fact, there is a gap to be exploited. But there were no footprints outside. Ah, true. This door faces the backyard, and when entering and exiting from here, one must pass through to the outside. But when we found the body, there were no traces of anyone walking neither in the atrium nor backyard. This is a fact that we saw with our own eyes. Ah, but I suddenly thought of something. What about the outer hallway? If the rubber bands on the door over there were looser. When we opened the door, we tried our best to pull the door open to let the knife in. I don't think there was any way to create a gap for anyone to enter or exit. Then it's still a locked room? Is this an impossible crime? Who knows? The so-called impossible crime boils down to a crime that makes people think that it's impossible to achieve, just how we are doing now. However, as long as one person firmly believes that it's not impossible, then the illusion that it is impossible to commit such a crime will fizzle out like a bubble. We are detectives, we have to take on this responsibility, even if there's only one person left. Although Kirigiri said it dryly and resolutely, it's impossible for ordinary detectives to have her awareness. She is a natural-born detective, and to her, detective work is everything in life. Sure enough, only a person like her can reach this level. Maybe this is the barrier that separates me from her. Hey, Yui-wan-sama, let's take a look outside while we're at it. Right, that's a good point. Although it's faster to get out through the doors in front of us, we aren't wearing shoes, so we have to go back to the entrance first. We left the murder scene and walked along the outer hallway to the main building. There is a large pile of leather shoes on the concrete floor in front of the foyer, which should belong to the police officers. It took us a while to find our shoes among them. Before Kirigiri picked up her shoes, she picked up the shoes of the first 5 people who visited. What are you doing? Checking the sizes of the shoes. Yadariji 28.5, Yaki 27.5, Shirase 26.5, Kakatsuba 24.5, Mizuyama 22.0. You're concerned a lot about shoe sizes. Are they a clue? Yes, this may be one of the few clues that could lead to the killer. Although Kirigiri said so, I was completely confused as to how this could be a clue. After picking up our shoes, we didn't return to the crime scene, but walked straight along the hallway and opened the door to the atrium. As soon as the door opened, the light snow floated in with the air stung my skin. It hasn't been snowing much, yet the snow still seems to accumulate little by little due to the low temperature. I took the flashlight out of my backpack and turned it on. The white light traced a circle in the snow. It's cold. Kirigiri-chan, come closer. I held her right hand and stuck with her to fight off the cold as we walked forward through the snow. We walked through the atrium, passing between the narrow gap between the main building and the kendo hall. It seems that many investigators have already been here, leaving many footprints on the ground. You can see the inside of the kendo hall through the paned windows, but if the lights inside were not turned on, we wouldn't be able to see the inside from here. When the victim was killed, the lights in the room weren't turned on. It should be because the murderer was afraid that someone would witness the crime from outside the window before turning off the lights. But this way, the murderer must also have committed the crime having no sight. After walking through this narrow gap, we arrived at the backyard. Sure enough, there were many chaotic footprints here, which should have been left by the investigators. However, we have also confirmed that no one had been here after the body was discovered. The weather is getting colder and colder, alongside the sound of wind, and also the sound of running water. In the backyard is a lush bamboo forest, and the sound of water came from there. We climbed over the waist-high fence and walked in the bamboo forest for a while following the sound of water. A cliff appeared in front of us, and the sudden appearance of the abyss made my legs and feet stiff. That was close, I almost fell off. The bottom of the cliff is about 5 or 6 meters high from the ground. I shined the flashlight directly below. At the bottom of the cliff is a dark river. The water seems to be flowing very fast. If I fall, I will meet my end. We turned back to the bamboo forest and climbed over the fence again. Yui-wan-sama, look at this. Kirigiri found something and pointed to a place on the horizontal board of the fence. I turned my flashlight at it to take a look. There are fresh scratch marks on the top of the board, and a patch of snow nearby has been removed, as if something similar to an iron wire was hung here. I wonder what this is. Kirigiri raised her head and looked at the direction of the buildings. Opposite is the entrance of the kendo hall where the body was discovered. The doors facing the backyard are the double door that we spent a lot of effort before to open a crack in. Now the door is closed, and although the door opens outward, there is a porch with eaves that is a section above the ground. When the door opens and closes, it will not leave a trace on the snow. However, as long as you walk out of the porch and go back and forth between the main building and the kendo hall, you will definitely leave footprints. We first came under the eaves at the entrance of the kendo hall. On the right-hand side from here is the main building. The atrium where we were before is inside the main building. I shined the flashlight to the left, where there is a small ditch and a water wheel hut. Wow, that's amazing, it's a water wheel. The light from the flashlight reflected a retro scene. I couldn't help but exclaim. Since it's too dark, I never noticed that there is a water wheel here. The water in the ditch passes through the bamboo forest and flows to the bottom of the cliff. However, in the severe cold weather of the middle of winter, the water is frozen at the ditch, and the water wheel is completely still, with thick icicles on it. Judging from the sizes of the icicles, this water wheel should have been frozen for the whole winter. Just in case, let's go inside the hut and have a look. Kirigiri said, squinting against the wind. Huh, what's in there? It's because I don't know that I have to go and see. We huddled together and walked towards the water wheel hut. The entrance is across the ditch, and we had to walk along the small bridge above it. But the ditch is only 1 meter wide at most, and it isn't impossible to jump over. Late at night, in the middle of the darkness, a water wheel hut with a thatched roof beside a bamboo forest, I felt that something could pop up at any moment. There won't be any killers suddenly jumping out of the hut, right? Don't bring up unpleasant thoughts. Kirigiri said without changing face. We opened the old wooden door of the water wheel hut. I waved the flashlight as a weapon a few times to illuminate the inside of the hut. Apart from the stone mortar powered by water in the center of the room, there are only gardening tools like shovels piled in the corner of the room. Other than that, there is nothing that makes me feel threatened. However, there is one thing that makes me concerned. It's a jack, like a big spring, used to lift up cars when changing tires. Kirigiri dragged it out of the corner. It isn't heavy, and she can move it with her strength. Generally speaking, jacks are placed in places like car trunks in case they are needed, but even in this hut, it wasn't suspicious. Did you think of something, Kirigiri-chan? Yes, this should come in handy. She walked out of the hut with the jack in one hand. Next, we started to check the water wheel. It sure is a bit unusual. I put my cold hand to my mouth and breathed, snuggling close to Kirigiri. Snow, water wheel, and a Japanese sword, these are the 3 major elements of the trick. Yes. Kirigiri didn't seem very interested. Forget about those, look, that icicle is large. Do you want it? Then I'll break the biggest one down for you. I don't want it. Why? I'll take the second largest one and then we can play sword fighting with them. No. Kirigiri shook her head. The icicles are important evidence. And the icicles? Yeah. Kirigiri showed her usual smug expression. She might have thought that she didn't show her feelings, but it was actually written all over her face. Kirigiri-chan, have you solved the locked room mystery? Yes, the answer is obvious already. She said with an unfazed face. Although I saw the same things as her, I still couldn't figure out the north, south, east, and west of it all. Obviously I am a detective too. If you look at that icicle carefully, you should see a horizontal white line inside the ice, like a crack. Ah, that's right. This is the hard evidence that can prove the criminal method. Is that so? So the icicle was cut horizontally and then the two sections were put together and restored. But I don't know what this actually means. In this case, the water wheel didn't move anyway, since no water is flowing through the ditch. In order to get away from the cold, we walked through the atrium from the backyard and returned indoors. The inside of the haunted mansion isn't exactly warm, but it's still much better than the outside. We walked along the hallway with our shoes in our hands. The locked room mystery is solved, but it's going to take quite a while to pinpoint the killer accurately. How long will it take? By questioning everyone and listening to their testimonies, it will take 3 days to investigate the relevant information in detail, and it may take longer. There's not enough time for that. Of course, we can't take that long. If possible, it's better to solve it thoroughly, but since time is limited, we can't take care of much. Kirigiri said with an intense gaze and narrowed eyes. In addition to Yadariji, Yaki, Kaketsubata, and Mizuuyama, we also called some of the criminal policemen to the kendo hall where the murder scene was. It's already 2 a.m., and the faces of the people concentrated here are obviously tired. The only one among them who was maintaining the same calm expression as before is Kirigiri. So, what did Ryuzoji-san say? An officer quickly and respectfully asked us to explain. After all, Kirigiri and I are standing here as representatives of Ryuzoji. Kirigiri spoke up. This case looks complicated on the outside, but it's actually a very simple locked room murder case. May I ask if this is Ryuzoji-san's opinion or yours? Kirigiri ignored the officer's question and then continued on. All doors were sealed with rubber bands from the inside, and there was almost no way to open them. An adult man had to pull outwards with all his strength to create a little gap. Yes, we only got in after sticking a knife into the gap and cutting the rubber bands. Yadariji said. The question is, why did the murderer use rubber bands? Why didn't they choose stronger chains or wires instead of rubber bands? What is the reason for this? Start your deduction from here and the mystery of the locked room will soon be revealed. Aha! Then please show us a practical implementation. Several officers walked away from the doors and handed over the lead to Kirigiri. The severed rubber bands are being held in Kirigiri's hands, and they had been retied. This locked room made the witnesses mistakenly believe that the door was tightly closed, thus creating a perfect locked room. But in fact, this locked room wasn't so tightly closed, and it makes full use of the properties of rubber bands. A not so tightly closed locked room, huh? The officers nodded their heads while holding pencils and scribbling in their notebooks. At the same time, the 4 suspected visitors kept silent and watched Kirigiri's every move. First of all, the murderer called Shirase-san Tetsu to the kendo hall at any time after 3 p.m. I don't know how they persuaded the victim, but in the end, they made Shirase-san ingest sleeping pills or drugs with anesthetic effect when they were alone with him. As to the exact method, I can only imagine how. They may have mixed it with food or drink, or made him sniff some kind of drug or gas. Anyway, it was necessary to keep Shirase-san unconscious for a while. Can things go that smoothly? Yaki said, clutching his folded arms. Then again, couldn't that person just try to take him out when they were alone in the kendo hall? This is exactly what the murderer expected. Since the scene is a locked room, it's impossible for any of the 4 suspects to commit the crime, and there was no third party. So, the victim can only be suspected of committing suicide. Judging from the situation at the crime scene, suicide wasn't impossible. There have been cases where someone committed suicide because they couldn't get life insurance money, so they created the illusion of a homicide. But it's rare for the deceased himself to create a locked room. However, that's not what this case is about, is it? Yes. If the victim himself disguised the suicide as a homicide, I don't think he needed to create a locked room. Not making a locked room in turn can make the suspicion of homicide even greater. Unfortunately, this case is not a suicide disguised as a homicide. So it really is a locked room murder case? I asked. It's just that, it feels like no one could have committed the crime. No, only one of them could have committed the crime. The officers heard Kirigiri say this and observed the faces of the 4 suspects. Yadariji, Yaki, Kaketsubata, and Mizuuyama all looked distressed. They looked at me and I looked at them. It's not complicated. You just need to make use of this poorly locked room. First, the murderer stabbed the sword into the back of the unconscious victim in the kendo hall between 10 and 11 p.m. and deliberately let his blood splatter on the armor, a false clue to lead us to the conclusion of suicide. Then, the murderer stuck this jack in the door leading to the outer hallway and hung the rubber bands between the doorknob and the hook on the wall and wrapped it around several times. Kirigiri put down the jack she found in the water wheel hut and pushed it into the middle of the double door. The gap created between the doors is about a fist's width. Pull the rubber bands as much as possible at this stage. After that, use the jack to hold the door gap wider. Kirigiri cranked the handle of the jack, opening the doors little by little. The rubber bands stretched and became longer and thinner, but they were still not torn. After the door had opened considerably, Kirigiri stopped cranking the handle. This is almost the limit. But only children can pass through this kind of gap. Kirigiri should be able to go through. I feel like I can't. Among the 4 suspects, the one who can pass through this gap. Only one person. Mizuuyama-san, please give it a try and see if you can pass through this gap. The officer grabbed her elbow and urged her. She almost screamed and shook her head. And no, it's not me. It's okay, it's just a test, please give it a try. This is too messed up. Mizuuyama panicked and then asked Kirigiri. Are you trying to frame me? Even if I was the only one who could leave the locked room with the help of the jack, when the crime happened, I was with everyone in the hallway, right? If I'm the murderer, then what about the loud sound coming from the room at the time of the crime? It's not that difficult to make a sound. Kirigiri signaled at me, and I dialed my mobile phone number as she told me in advance. The sound of the cell phone vibrating came from the feet of the armored samurai. For example, like this, you can dial another cell phone in the room with your cell phone and make the cell phone ring. As long as you set the cell phone ringtone to a clattering sound, it will sound like the murderer is killing someone behind the door. It's perfectly possible to fake such an illusion. Then you can just take back the phone when others find the body in confusion. That's. I didn't kill anyone. Let's hear the rest at the police station. 2 officers held Mizuuyama's arms and seized her. Then they led her out of the room. Yadariji, Yaki, and Kaketsubata still looked confused about the situation, staring blankly at the back of Mizuuyama disappearing behind the door. I didn't expect that woman would be the murderer. Yaki said in dismay. She didn't show any sign of it at all, that's why women are so scary. Just like that, the locked room murder case of the Takeda haunted mansion came to an end. Not long after, the police issued an order for all to leave, and we left the scene one after another. Except for 2 police officers who stayed at the door to guard, all the other investigators also left. Those who didn't have a transportation method took police cars to go back. In the end, among our group, Kirigiri, Yaki and I rode in the same police car. Although the police had explained to us before and told us that they weren't taking us to the police station to assist in the investigation, Yaki seemed to be very excited and became particularly talkative. Hey, Kirigiri-chan, we sat side by side in the back seat of the police car. Is Ms. Uyama-san really the murderer? I feel that many questions haven't been explained. The police will explain to her. I think she should be released by now. Eh? I asked the police to cooperate with me in a play. She isn't the murderer. The use of the jack to create the secret passage in and out of the hall was a pre-designed trap by the killer to lead the detective straight to this simple answer. If it was me, I would definitely go straight to this answer. Having said that, I, who's playing the detective, probably would have entered the resolution stage before even encountering this trap. I wonder if I will be able to continue like this in the future. I have similarly designed a trap, although it doesn't fit my style. Since there's no time to prepare adequate evidence in theory, I also had to adopt a somewhat rough approach. It didn't take long for the police car to start heading back. 3 a.m. The empty Takeda haunted mansion blended with the darkness, turning into a place where ghosts rampage. The breath of life has disappeared from there, and the precipitation of cold air overflowed from the rooms and drifted down the hallways, covering the entire mansion. And now, a person is walking through the darkness, slowly approaching the mansion. But the darkness is not rejecting this person, because they are also a resident of darkness. The person clothed in darkness didn't enter the mansion, but crossed the fence near the cliff and walked into the bamboo forest, probably because they thought it wouldn't be easy to leave footprints there, or it might be because they were afraid of bumping into the police officers guarding there. The person finally came to the backyard of the mansion. Their goal is here. The person slowly approached the water wheel. Then, they took out something that looked like a crowbar and held it high. That's enough. Along with the voice of the young girl, the searchlights hidden in the bamboo forest emitted a strong light. The darkness cloaking that person immediately dissipated. The person exposed in the lights was Kaketsubata Korisu. She squinted her eyes and stared at the searchlights, putting her hand on her forehead, having a hard time catching the figure of the young girl in the glare. It's Kirigiri Kyoko standing with arms crossed. What is going on? I asked the police for a favor. Kirigiri raised a hand to the officers hiding in the bamboo forest. I knew you'd come here to erase the only trace left of the crime scene. What are you talking about, kid? Kaketsubata tilted her head and said. Then can you explain, why are you back here at a time like this? One of my earrings fell here. These earrings are expensive, so I came back to look for it. Is there any problem with that? Kaketsubata answered fluently. I wondered if this was the answer she had already thought of, or if it came to her suddenly on a whim. In any case, the frivolous woman who spoke in a prolonged voice seemed to have disappeared, and now she appears very clever. What is that in your hand? Earrings sometimes fall out of reach. I was afraid this happened, so I brought this just in case. But that thing looks more like a tool for causing damage. Kirigiri continued with her hands on her waist. It's useless for you to try to defend yourself. I know everything you've done. I don't know what you're talking about. You are the one who killed Shiraisu-san. I thought you were going to say something like that. Kaketsubata shook her head in disappointment. The same is true for the policeman. Did you actually take this child's words? Seriously, and now you all are lining up your grumpy faces at me? Isn't the murderer that Ms. Uyama, who was the only one who could enter and exit through the rubber band's locked doors? Yes, according to the murderer's idea, that's what happened. The murderer should have investigated the files of those invited visitors in the detective library and deliberately selected a small detective who can come out of the rubber band's locked room with the aim of planting evidence on her. But you made a mistake in choosing Ms. Uyama-san. In terms of body size, she can indeed pass through the narrow gap, but it was impossible in reality. Impossible? I couldn't help asking. By the way, I was hiding behind the searchlights with the officers earlier, waiting for the time to turn on the lights. The problem lies in the clothes. She was wearing a kimono. She had limited mobility in that outfit. It was impossible to squeeze through such a narrow gap. Moreover, Harabi will be been hooked. Although she appeared like this in her detective file, you didn't expect that she would come in the kimono. This depends on how much the rubber bands are stretched. Kaketsubata retorted. As long as you open the door enough with the jack, you can get by in a kimono or whatever you wear. If that's the case, then everyone has that ability, as long as you operate the jack to make the gap wide enough to allow yourself to pass. That'll break the rubber bands off. If we don't try to see if it will be broken off, no one will know the answer to this question. All suspects may or may not have been able to pass through. Then I might not be able to get through either, right? And you're pointing the finger at me as the culprit? The evidence that you are the murderer is in another place. What? How could there be evidence? Then let me ask you, what were you doing in the backyard after 3 p.m.? Backyard. What makes you think I was in the backyard? Stop talking nonsense. No, this isn't nonsense. For all we know, you might have been walking around in the backyard wearing the waraji of the armored samurai. Kaketsubata was speechless at Kirigiri's words. So the reason why the waraji was dirty was because they were worn by Kaketsubata-san? I asked. What are you talking about? What's wrong with the waraji? In order to carry out the locked room murder, you needed to set up a mechanism. In order to do that, you needed to go to the backyard, but you didn't have shoes to go out with. However, there was a reason that forced you to complete the preparations as soon as possible, so you had to put on the waraji and go out. Why would I be in such a hurry? It's snow. When the snow is still falling, even if you left footprints in the backyard, it will be covered by the snow. The locked room you created is based on this, so you had to prepare as soon as possible before the snow stopped. The time of the crime was about 11 p.m., and we didn't find any traces similar to footprints at that time. If things were really like what Kirigiri said, the murderer was making preparations to set up the mechanism in the backyard, then the preparation should have been completed a few hours before the crime occurred. It was snowing all the time yesterday. Even if she left some traces, it would have been covered by snow a few hours later. You called Shiraisu-san out and made him lose consciousness, then you found out that you had no shoes to go out with. There were two choices at that time, either to go back to the entrance to get your shoes, or to put on the shoes in the hallway and go out from the door to the backyard. Unfortunately, neither of those two options would have worked, because Yadarigi-san was in the hallway. Indeed, Yadarigi said that he was identifying the paintings hanging on the walls in the hallway. If you hadn't done anything wrong, all you would have had to do was walk past him and get your shoes back, but that wasn't the case. If Yadarigi-san got suspicious about you and asked where you were going with your shoes, then your murder plan might have gotten all ruined. You had no choice but to wait for Yadarigi-san to leave, and because you were afraid that the snow will stop, this worry made you anxious. Kirigiri explained mildly. Kaketsubata is looking for an opportunity to retort, and she hasn't said anything until now. You didn't have shoes, but you had to go out. What to do in this case? Go out barefoot. I said. That is a possibility. But in this severe winter, walking barefoot on the snow must be difficult. But you can just endure it? It's not like you have to walk for several hours, you can just go out and get back quickly. It's not that it was intolerable, but more importantly, for some psychological reason, you still try to avoid going out barefoot. Psychological reason? What if the snow doesn't completely cover the footprints? There would be no way to avoid the traces of your bare feet that would be left on the snow. In order to avoid this, it's better to find a pair of shoes to wear. Does anyone have a different opinion on this theory and steps? No one said anything. Then, the conclusion is what I have already said: you found the waraji worn by the armored samurai and decided to go out wearing them. Wait, why is this person me? Kaketsubata spotted this opportunity and retorted. Among all these truths you said, is there even evidence that the person wearing the waraji was me? I checked the sizes of the shoes. The waraji is about 26.5 centimeters. But generally speaking, there's no sizes for waraji. You wear them slightly smaller than your foot size, with your toes exposed. You know so much, Kirigiri-chan, I didn't even know that. I've always been interested in Japanese culture and customs, she said, looking far away. From this point of view, the person who meets the requirements is the person whose foot size is larger than the size of the waraji, that is, Yaki-san and Yadarita-san. Then, shouldn't it be one of them who wore the waraji? No, that's not true. If one of them is the murderer, then the murderer wasn't wearing the waraji. I said just now that the parts of their feet exposed outside the waraji would leave clear traces on the snow. From a psychological aspect, the murderer tried to avoid this happening. In other words, the person who wore the waraji should be the person whose toes won't get exposed outside of it. So it was that Mizuyama woman after all. Her feet are 22 centimeters in size, too small to wear those waraji. Then what's left is Kaketsubata and Shiraisu. However, Shiraisu is the victim and should be excluded. Our eyes focused on Kaketsubata's pale face. After she went out wearing the waraji of the armored samurai, she completed the preparations for the mechanism and then returned to the kendo hall, cleaned the waraji and put it back in its original place. However, the stains on it weren't completely removed, and so evidence was left behind. But what about after that? I asked. At that time the door to the outer corridor had been sealed with rubber bands, right? Since there were no shoes, there was no way to go through the backyard and return to the main building. Presumably when she was preparing the mechanism, she walked through the bamboo forest with the waraji and went back to the parking lot. The lightweight car should be Kaketsubata-san's car, isn't it? It's not easy to drive in high heels, so you have prepared shoes specifically for driving. You just had to wear those shoes when you go back. She remembers well, even things that would normally be overlooked. That's so impressive. WHWH, what is up with these waraji? You treat me as a murderer just because of that insignificant thing, aren't you too much? And what even would I want to avoid psychologically? The shoes are too small to wear? Do you dare on that? Dare to say that this was what happened? Not absolutely. That's why I specifically asked the police for help in setting up this trap for you. If no one came here, then I would have had to admit my defeat. I told you I came here to find my earring. This is a lie. You are here to destroy the traces left by the mechanism. Kirigiri pointed straight at Kaketsubata. At that time, you were outside the locked room and used the mechanism arranged in the backyard to kill Shiraisu-san inside. The traces of that murder technique were left on the icicles of the water wheel. Kaketsubata gritted her teeth and stopped talking. What kind of technique was it? I asked. Wasn't Kaketsubata-san in the hallway with us? Did she use a remote control to control the armored samurai? That's absurd. Kaketsubata seems to have a sudden enthusiasm. The armor was empty when we entered the room. Didn't you guys make sure that there was nothing strange in it? You don't need something as advanced as a remote control, Kirigiri said. Just some ropes, a water wheel, and a Japanese sword, things that have existed since ages ago. A water wheel? What use can a water wheel that can't be moved be? I'll explain it in order. First, prepare a rope. Although it would be best to use a strong wire. Pass it through Tetsuboth, the Japanese sword that will be the murder weapon. There is usually a hole in the center of the tsuba where the blade is inserted, as well as two holes called the hitsu on the left and right. These two holes are used for many purposes. Sometimes the purpose of the left hole may be different from the right one. Anyway, you just need to know that these two holes were used to tie the rope or wire. After the police inspected the sword, they found that the tsuba did indeed have two hitsu holes. And then what? After listening to your explanation, everyone here has learned how to tie a Japanese sword to a wire, so what about it? One end of the wire is tied to the sword and the other end to a heavy object. The heavier that weight is, the better, but it's even better if it can float on water. So it was most likely firewood or logs or other kinds of wood. By looking carefully around here, you should be able to find a lot of wood that meets the requirements, or you can also chop a piece of bamboo for use. The other end of the wire only needs to be wound into a circle so that the preparations are complete. How is this strange murder weapon used? I can't think of any way at all. First, put the wire loop at one end of it around the icicle hanging on the water wheel. That icicle isn't too fragile, it's not formed recently after all, it's very strong, and it became a little thicker after a whole winter. A few taps won't break it. What's next? Next, you probably needed a little strength. First, you opened the double door facing the backyard. The inner side of the doors has already been locked with rubber bands. After opening the door, you jammed the jack inside the door crack to keep the door from closing. The jack was used for that time. Then the Japanese sword used as the murder weapon with the wire tied to it was placed on the rubber bands, like a slingshot, or like a bow that uses the Japanese sword as an arrow. Gradually, I can see what the final conclusion of Kirigiri's explanation is. Finally, you let the wire be long enough for the other end to pass through the backyard, over the fence, through the bamboo forest, to the top of the cliff, and to the heavy object I just mentioned. You tied the wire firmly to the heavy object. And then kicked the heavy object to the bottom of the valley. The heavy object fell into the river, drifting in the currents, and kept pulling the wire. This pulling force also became the force that kept pulling the slingshot back. But that Japanese sword that turned into an arrow wasn't shot out immediately because it was blocked by the icicle on the other end of the wire. I finally have the whole picture in my mind. To use an analogy, the door and rubber bands were a bow with an arrow on the bowstring, and that arrow was the Japanese sword. The bow was drawn by the heavy object at one end of the wire, and the icicle was a delaying device so that the arrow won't get launched immediately. At that time, you took out the jack stuck in the doors, and the force that's pulling the bow became the force that held the doors. Thus, the device made of a wire from the water wheel to the kendo hall, to the backyard and to under the cliff, was completed. The loop attached to the icicle was continuously pulled, allowing the ice to melt little by little. Ice has a property where it melts under pressure. However, the wire wouldn't cut the icicle quickly because the place cut by the metal wire will immediately be frozen. The cut will be frozen immediately, and closed again, the wire almost completely sinks into the ice, slowly moving towards the other end of the icicle. Finally, when the wire comes out of the icicle, the force holding the sword in place would be gone, and the rebound force of the rubber bands would launch the murder weapon. While we were watching the interior outside the door, the murderer had been waiting for the moment when the Japanese sword would get launched. But how did she aim at the target? I asked something that suddenly occurred to me. How could have the Japanese sword stab the victim so coincidentally? That's when the armored samurai was used. Those two armors weren't just props to create a haunting atmosphere for the haunted mansion murder case. What do you mean? Weren't the armored samurai standing side by side in the center of the room? The victim fell in between the armored samurai. Then let us imagine what the situation was like when the victim wasn't dead. Hey, Yui-wan-sama, I've said much, you should understand, right? Ah, could it be? Both armored samurai maintained a posture with their elbows bent. If the victim had lost consciousness at that time, then it should have been possible to let the two armored warriors support the victim's armpits and force him to keep upright. So, the armored samurai were the supports that held the target in place. That's right. The bloodstains on the armor must have been because the armored samurai were supporting the victim at that time. The victim was stabbed with a sword and his body fell forward due to the impact. The result was the murder scene we witnessed. After the double doors acted as a bow for shooting the Japanese sword, it closed automatically with the force of the rubber bands. The door wasn't only one of the elements of the locked room, but also a part of the killing mechanism. By the way, the metal wire arranged in the backyard should have floated away by the water along with the heavy object under the cliff, and may never be found even if one goes to search along the downstream. Then, the traces of the wire dragging may also be left on the snow, but it had been covered with snow and cannot be seen. The traces left on the fence, after being covered with snow, are no different from the other numerous scratches. The only trace that was left is the trace of the metal wire that cut off the icicle horizontally. Kirigiri held her arms and slowly approached Kaketsubara. I thought the murderer would definitely come back to destroy this evidence, so I followed the murderer's intention by proving that Mizuyama-san was the murderer, so that you would appear here with confidence. Kaketsubara fell dejected. It seems that the winner has been determined. Who the hell are you? Isn't the detective the other girl named Samidare Yui over there? Are you a detective hired by her? Or are you really one of Ryuzoji Gekka's underlings? Kaketsubara lowered her head and said, Whoever I am, this is your end. End? Kaketsubara murmured, slowly lifting her head up, her ghostly sunken eyes staring at Kirigiri. Then, she slowly raised the crowbar-like object that she is holding in her right hand. Don't. I ran out in the snow, stepped between Kaketsubara and Kirigiri. Kaketsubara's arm stopped above her head. It's against the rules to hurt the detective. I warned her with my arms wide open. Are you an idiot? Kaketsubara didn't seem to take my words seriously. I'm going to lose the game anyway. Do you think I'm still afraid of breaking the rules? Oh, now that you mention it. But hey, beating you would just end up as a way to let off steam. Kaketsubara said with a sigh and dropped the crowbar-like thing. To be honest, I don't care about whether the game is won or lost to begin with. I just don't like being a sore loser, you get me? As long as I got my revenge, that was all that mattered. Did you really have no other way but revenge? You should have had other ways too. Because I can hear it. Kaketsubara interrupted me, almost shouting. I can hear the sounds coming from behind the door. No matter what kind of door it is, the moment a door is closed, there will be sounds behind it. Those sounds are asking for help. They say, it's scorching hot, save me. Scorching hot? Save me. Do you have any impression on the fire in the mountain railway tunnel 8 years ago? It was quite a sensational news at the time. The cause of the fire was a short circuit in the motor. When escaping, a man closed the gate in order to escape the fire, and 28 victims couldn't escape, including my family. I went ahead of my family and was saved, but I saw the man right behind me slamming the gate shut. He said that this was the only way to survive, but there were so many people behind the door. I have a vague memory of this news. A passenger closed the gate of the escape route, killing those who couldn't escape in the fire. But at the same time, there were testimonies stating that it was the closed gate that blocked the smoke and allowed more than 200 passengers to escape safely. The media and the police were unable to determine the identity of the passenger who closed the door. The prevailing opinion at the time also tended to avoid discussing the search for the passenger. Was the person closing the door guilty? An observer who stayed out of the matter naturally wouldn't be able to answer this question. So, after you killed this person, are you redeemed? I don't know. Kaketsubara smiled self-deprecatingly, staring at her hands. To be honest, I didn't feel like killing someone by my hands at all. I just put things in place and pulled the strings as instructed. It's hard to imagine that I myself killed someone. When I saw that man's body, I didn't have any sense of joy or accomplishment. On the contrary, I felt confused. I even felt that someone else killed him on my behalf. Even now, it's like I'm still having a nightmare. Then why did you kill someone? I can only say that it was for some kind of redemption, so those people behind the door can rest in peace. Kaketsubara smiled calmly. After the door closes, I will never hear the call for help again. My relief has put their grievances to rest. She, too, is a person who is struggling with a tragic fate. People like her who can't get out of the shadows of the past are always targeted by the Crime Victims Relief Committee. Do you have any way to pay back 151 million? Kirigiri asked. How can I? If there is a way, I wouldn't have done such a stupid thing in the first place. Then I'll give you a piece of advice. Kirigiri said to Kaketsubara's ear. Go with the police. The police officers here should be able to take you to the police station safely. What are you talking about? You've been targeted by the Crime Victims Relief Committee. They will recover the 151 million at any cost, including your life, of course. How is that possible? Kaketsubara said with trembling lips. There's nothing that can be done? Don't you guys know them well? Help me. Don't get me wrong, you've crossed the line. From my point of view, you are already on that side. Kirigiri turned her head to look at the darkness of the night, ignoring the hair that was blown against her face by the wind. That's... If you can, I hope you ask me for help before you become a criminal next time. Wait, hey. You've got to help me. Before she knew it, the vicinity was heavily surrounded by police officers, and they took Kaketsubara into the police car. The police car should be real, and the criminal police shouldn't be fake, because I saw that they had arrived during the preliminary investigation. The door of the police car in which Kaketsubara sat enclosed. At this moment, Kaketsubara's face froze for a moment. She covered her ears, widened her eyes in panic, and shook her head desperately. She acted defiantly like a frightened little child. Had she really been redeemed? Then again, what is salvation to her in the end? The police lights disappeared behind the bamboo forest. 4 a.m. The police car drove us to a business hotel in the nearest business district, and they seemed to even pay for our accommodation. The police still thought we work under Ryuzoji. Until dawn, Kirigiri and I sat on the bed with our backs against the wall, turned on the TV, turned off the sound, and saying nothing. Thinking back to what happened today, it felt as if it had been days ago. But the bruises that hadn't disappeared on the slender and pale neck of Kirigiri are still so clear, telling me that everything is still the harsh reality. Does it hurt? I touched Kirigiri's bruise with my fingertips. She repulsed and turned her face away. Sorry. Next time it might get worse than this, she said as if it had nothing to do with her. I look forward for Yui-wan-sama to protect me. After that, she sat down with her knees folded, pulled the blanket to her chest, and closed her eyes leaning on me. As long as her outstanding talents are still there, she will encounter all kinds of dangers, and she may be injured again. It might be easier to simply not let her be a detective at all, but I don't think she can make that choice. More importantly, I hope she will always be a detective in the future. The world needs light to illuminate the darkness. I watched the shopping program in a daze, and I just sat still and fell asleep without knowing it. At that time, the sky outside the window was faintly white, and the snow on the windowsill was glistening, signaling the arrival of dawn. The morning sun was slanting into the train, and the train car was empty, with only Kirigiri and I in it. On the rickety return train, we sat side by side for a brief moment of peace. At this time, the snow had stopped, and there was still a little snow left outside the window. Sitting on the train like this, the scenery seems to never change. However, reality is always cruel, and the people who came in one after another quickly blocked the windows and the scenery outside. We got off at the train station where we went home from. It was 10 a.m. when I returned to my dormitory. Back in my room, I was about to take a long breath. But suddenly I realized something was wrong. 5 pieces of black papers arranged horizontally were nailed with darts in the most eye-catching place on the wall. The 5 pieces of paper were all marked with a big done written in highlighter, and there were Polaroid pictures of people that were also pinned with darts, each to a black paper. No way, for real? I mumbled in disbelief. Those are 5 of the 6 challenge letters that Liko was responsible for. Done means that he finished solving them? It looks like that. Even Kirigiri's eyes widened. I can't believe it. That means he solved 5 cases in one night? I pulled out one of the darts and checked the contents of the challenge letter. Location, Otobari Island, 70 million. Murder weapon, guitar, 10 million. Technique, locked room, 120 million. Miscellaneous, speakers, 20 million. Total expenditure, 220 million. The photo pinned to the challenge letter showed a young man sitting on a chair with his hands seemingly tied behind his back. He is looking at the camera with an angry face. There is a group of teenagers next to the man, who are gesturing with a V sign and giving the camera a full smile. I'll call Liko. I used the phone that Ryuzoji gave me to call Liko. 3 call tones later, Liko answered the phone. Hello, Liko? Good morning, Yui-san. I was at your place in the evening, but you weren't there. I was looking forward to seeing you. What a shame. You went into my room without permission. Okay, that's fine, but what's with the darts on the wall? Sorry, I made a few more holes in your wall. I got used to doing that. No, I didn't mean that it is a problem, but what do those pieces of paper mean? They are solved challenge letters. So you're saying that you actually solved all 5 cases? How did you do it? How is that possible? There's nothing impossible. On the contrary, I thought those cases were too simple and a bit disappointing. It seems that these challenges were truly aimed at you after all, Yui-san. Stop lying, tell me the truth. It should be impossible to solve 5 cases in one night even for you, or did you know the contents of these black challenges in advance? I didn't lie, and I didn't know anything about the contents of the black challenges beforehand. Knowing the answer in advance makes solving mysteries really boring for me. Indeed, considering his dedication and love for solving puzzles, it's hard to imagine that he would deliberately spend his time on questions that he knows the answers to. Perhaps he really can solve these high cost of 200 or 300 million cases easily. I realized once again that triple zeros are far more special than I could have imagined. Judging a person by his appearance, or treating him like a boy younger than me isn't going to work. He is a detective comparable to Ryuzoji Geka. I will only reveal a little bit. The suspects of the 5 cases posted on the wall were all arrested before the cases happened. If the suspect is a runner, once he runs, you must be faster than them so you can catch up with them. But if the suspect is standing still on the starting line, then you just need to put your hand on their shoulder. The trick to solving those 5 cases in one night is in there. What's the trick? You haven't explained it all. In other words, no matter whether it's a locked room or an impossible crime, as long as the case is solved before it occurs, you will save a lot of effort. If I could do it, I wouldn't have to put in so much effort. Is there any logical method to catch the real culprit in a case that hasn't yet occurred? It may be natural for a detective to be able to solve cases, but Liko's method can almost be regarded as predicting the future. But I actually kind of regret that I solved the cases before I saw the techniques used by the murderer with my own eyes. It didn't feel good at all. Date of birth, December 29th. Date of birth, February 10th. Profession, diving instructor. Remarks, has 3 daughters. Revenge for his wife who was killed in a robbery and murder case 10 years ago. Location, Yellow Springs Aquarium, 50 million. Murder weapon, sulfuric acid, 10 million. Technique, locked room, 100 million. Miscellaneous, blowtorch, 5 million. Total expenditure, 165 million. Perpetrator's name, Kachiki Atsuko, age 21. Date of birth, February 25th. Profession, college student. Remarks, daughter of Kuchiki K. Revenge for her mother who was killed in a robbery and murder case 10 years ago. Location, Sawamiki Nature Meeting House, 30 million. Murder weapon, round log, 3 million. Technique, locked room, 100 million. Miscellaneous, parchment, 50 million. Miscellaneous, gems, 200 million. Total expenditure, 383 million. Perpetrator's name, Oboro Tatsutora, age 33. Date of birth, April 13th. Profession, detective, DSC number, 355. Remarks, he was investigating an international counterfeit money case. Revenge for a 150-year-long grievance between the Oboro family and the Sawamiki Nature Meeting House. Location, Deboken Mansion, 180 million. Murder weapon, large shears, 5 million. Technique, locked room, 200 million. Total expenditure, 385 million. Perpetrator's name, Komano Saika, age 20. Date of birth, July 1st. Profession, college student. Remarks, planning a closed circle of 8 college students. Revenge for his friend who was believed to have died in a car accident during a school camping event. In this way, we can say that 6 of the 12 cases have been solved. With half of them gone in just one day, and all the cases Liko was responsible for were solved before the cases happened. So far, there is only one victim. Who would have thought we'd get such good results? Having said that, there are still 5 cases in which Kirigiri and I are responsible for. By the way, Yui-san, do you know where I am now? Why are you suddenly quizzing me? I had a quick thought. I know, you're on the cruise liner, right? Correct answer. Liko said happily. I'm on the Echidna, a ship currently in the Pacific Ocean. This is the last case I am responsible for. It would be a waste to solve them all at once, so I'm going to use my life as a bargaining chip and play a game with the murderer. Right now I'm having a fun time. Echidna. What, are you okay? The things Kirigiri and I experienced at Norman's hotel are now happening to Liko. But as long as it's Liko, no matter what the game is, he can't be bothered. Can you contact the outside world anytime now? It looks like the phone is against the rules in this game settings, but I still managed to keep this phone. Please feel free to contact me if necessary. Okay, I should go back and continue the game now. Wait, Liko. What is it? Don't die. Don't worry, when I'm back in one piece, you'll have to kiss me. The phone hung up. Are things really going to be okay? I put down the phone. Yes, Liko seems to be doing well. Let's start solving the next case. I checked the challenge letters. In terms of monetary value, the Takeda Haunted Mansion case was the 3rd from last. Of the remaining 5 cases, 2 are less than it and 3 are more. I'm worried of what will come next. The closer one seems to be. I rummaged through a stack of challenge letters and inadvertently glanced at Kirigiri and realized that she is staring at the wall, as if she is thinking about something. Kirigiri-chan, what's wrong? Kirigiri snapped back to her senses and looked at me. She shook her pale face. Are you not feeling well? I'm fine. She doesn't look like she's fine. It would be better for you to take a break? I'll collect the information about the case. You can just wait here. I can't do that. If you fall ill at this time, then it will be hopeless. I beg you, please take a little rest, okay? I forced Kirigiri onto the bed and covered her with a blanket, and she looked at me with a troubled expression. I gently brushed the hair on her face, and as if resigned to her fate, she pulled the blanket up and covered half of her face. I'm sorry, Yui-wan-sama. No need to apologize, you need to rest now. But time is. It's okay, it's okay. Didn't we say before that the time that can be spent on each case is 28 hours? Then the remaining 5 hours we have now are extra. You can use this time to rest. Kirigiri seemed flustered, with trembling eyelids, staring at me as if she had something to say, but in the end she didn't say anything and shut her eyes. I stayed with her by the bed until she fell asleep. She tossed and turned, and slept very restlessly, like she was having nightmares. What had driven her to this point? Why would someone as unbelievably calm as her be scared? After solving the Norman's hotel case and returning home, she started being off. Could it be that something happened at her home? An incident that made her even reluctant to go back home again. With her in such a bad state, I wonder how much longer she can hold out. For her sake, maybe I should investigate what happened to her. If possible, I want to drive this pain away from her. But she definitely intends to take on all of it alone, and she seems unwilling to involve others. That's it, I have an idea. While she's asleep, why not go to her house and investigate? Just to take a look, even if it's just to understand a little bit about what's really bothering her. Just as I was about to stand up, the hem of my clothes was suddenly caught. Unknowingly, Kirigiri had grabbed the hem of my shirt, and when I moved, she woke up. Yui-wan-sama, you are leaving. She said worriedly with a sleepy look on her face. I'm have to, go. She tried to support her body. I pushed her back and said, I just have some stuff I want to check out and I'll be right back. Just in case, I'll give you this phone with my phone number stored in it. If something happens, call me right away. I put Ryuzoji's phone in Kirigiri's hand. There was no significant change in her expression, but her lips make me feel that she always has something to say. I was able to come up with several answers to the question she wanted to say, and maybe all of them were right. Then I'll go. Until the end, Kirigiri didn't say anything. When I left the room, she turned over and faced the wall, which was probably her way of expressing her opinion. I walked out of the dormitory. Although I'm a little worried about leaving her alone, now it's too late for me to turn back. I left the school and ran all the way to Kirigiri's house. I can't waste too much time. Her house is on a mild slope, the mansion perched high on the hillside overlooking the area below, as if it is its ruler. The vast area is hidden behind white walls and huge doors. I observed the situation at the bottom of the hillside, and as I surveyed the situation, the sky suddenly clouded over and darkened around me, almost as if the mansion is exerting its intimidating force to drive me back. I summoned all my courage, climbed the slope, and came to the door. I knocked on the door a few times, but no one answered it. I walked away from the door and along the outer walls. On the way, I found a small wooden door in a place on the fence. The people who live in the mansion, including Kirigiri, seem to come in and out through here usually. I tried to push the door open. Of course, the door didn't open, it's probably locked. If I was the old me, I would probably head back. But I feel that even if I know it's dangerous, I can't hold back now. Standing in this place, this idea of mine became stronger and stronger. I came here once on Christmas Eve. After that, I always vaguely felt that something was wrong. Did I get some major misunderstanding? The question was mainly related to Kirigiri's grandfather. Kirigiri Fuhito is the current head of the Kirigiri family who has inherited the lineage of detectives that was passed down from generation to generation. I've heard that he travels around the world, and even accepts commissions from government officials. Moreover, he was also one of the people involved in the foundation of the detective library 15 years ago. Among those veteran figures was also Shinsen Mikado, who is currently in charge of the Crime Victims Relief Committee. The two of them seem to have a connection. Did something happen between them 15 years ago? Perhaps only they know. In addition, Kirigiri Fuhito wasn't only one of the founders of the detective library, he also opposed the DSC system of classifying detectives. The reason is that he believes that the pride of the Kirigiri family doesn't allow them to be rated as detectives. However, 15 years later, Kirigiri Kyoko, who should have inherited the name of the Kirigiri family, has gone through the registration formalities at the detective library and has been rated and classified. And, according to her, Grandpa did it for me. Isn't that a contradiction? Or perhaps the 15 years had changed Kirigiri Fuhito? This shouldn't be the case. He is still a detective and the head of the Kirigiri family, and his position hasn't changed. Why would such a person let his only surviving heir be registered in the detective library? Could it be that he wants her to be trained as a detective? That kind of reason is too shallow. The Kirigiri family values the pride of the detective so much that they would value detective work more than the loss of a loved one. If they don't adapt to that, then it's over for them, but it also shows that their perception is very high. Others might compare the detectives of the Kirigiri family with other mediocre detectives, so it's possible that he registered her in the detective library under that premise. But it's hard to imagine that he would value the Kirigiri family's reputation cheaply. However, Kirigiri Kyoko has a very positive attitude towards raising her DSC rank. She seems to have her own purpose. However, it wasn't her who registered herself at the detective library, her grandfather did that, which is making me think something is off. There is also another thing that concerns me. According to Kirigiri, grandfather basically lived abroad. In fact, Kirigiri Fuhito is still abroad now, unable to return home for a short period of time. Even on New Year's Eve, he seemed to be in an overseas country. At that time, Kirigiri Kyoko said on the phone, "Happy New Year, Grandpa." Is it too early for you there to say that? It should be because of the time zones. Kirigiri Kyoko had been living abroad with her grandfather for many years before now. When she was 7 years old, her mother passed away due to illness, and she didn't return to the country at the time, she was instead with her grandfather. According to her, for about 5 years, my grandpa and I went to many places overseas. After her mother passed away and her work temporarily came to an end, she returned to the country once, and then immediately went to live abroad again, or something like that. And about 2.5 months ago, in order to finish her studies, she returned home alone. After hearing this, I asked her, "You live here with your grandpa alone?" She nodded and told me that there are also servants living here. After that, I actually saw her grandfather walk out of this house. But something was wrong. It felt like the whereabouts of the grandfather were erratic. The first thing that didn't seem right to me was that the grandfather, who was supposed to be in his home on Christmas Eve, called from another country on the first day of the year. Of course, this is not impossible. But isn't this too much traveling around? International detectives may be like this sometimes, and that's all I thought of, so I put this sense of incongruity behind me. If only I realized all this, I would have asked Kirigiri more about her grandfather's situation. But she was originally reluctant to talk about her own affairs. She would be even more reluctant talking about her family, so I haven't been able to ask too much. However, I'm now getting closer to the source of this sense of incongruity. In front of my eyes there stood a snow-white wall, showing me refusal. I stood under the wall and looked up. I should be able to reach it. There are no figures around. For some reason, there are no signs of life near this mansion. There are no cars passing by, and no older women walking their dogs. On the other hand, it's just what I want. I grabbed the top of the wall with the help of my good vertical jump. I propped up my body so that my chest was higher than the top of the wall, then lifted my legs and climbed up. It was surprisingly easy. The next step was to jump to the other side of the wall. I felt like I had become a cat, flying lightly in the air and landing silently on the ground behind the wall. The temperature here feels a few degrees lower than outside the wall. Perhaps due to this reason, there are still some unmelted snow in many areas. The garden plants in the courtyard are neatly trimmed and the gravel path extended forward. At the end of the path, I can see the back door of the Japanese-style mansion. No one came to answer the door. I wonder if that was because there's no one in the mansion, or because the people here are hiding. It would be great if it's the former. I lowered my body and approached the mansion. The rain screen windows are closed, so I can't see what's going on inside. If there are people living here, the rain screen windows should be open at this time. Before I know it, dark clouds have enveloped the sky. The sunrise, which was so bright before, is nowhere to be seen, and the mansion became shrouded in darkness. This in turn made it easier for me to hide myself in the darkness. I tried to push one of the rain screen windows. It wasn't locked. I tried not to make any noise, and carefully pushed the window, opened a gap, and looked behind the window glass. But there was nothing in the dimly lit hallway. I couldn't see anything from the outside too. Is there any place I could go to? I walked around the building. In worst case scenario, I may have to break the window glass to get in. Of course, I never dared to be so bold before, but now this kind of behavior isn't going to work anymore. There must be something in this mansion. I hid in the corner of the building, observing the courtyard in front, when I suddenly heard a noise from behind me. I tried to restrain myself from screaming and looked back in the direction where the sound was made. The rain screen window that I had just opened a gap in is now wide open. A person peeked out from inside. It's a woman wearing a dark knit shirt and skirt, covered with a white apron, watching the situation outside with vigilance. Her bangs were neatly combed to one side to expose her forehead, which was covered with neurotic wrinkles. She should be a young woman, but she looks old at the same time. Is she a servant who lives here? I'll just ask her directly. What's happened in this mansion? I was about to stand up, but immediately dismissed the idea. The woman in the apron stretched out her hand, intending to close the rain screen window. She's holding a dull gleaming kitchen knife. I quickly hid in the shadows of the building. That should be for cooking, right? What other reason is there? Maybe she noticed someone breaking in and planned to drive the intruder away? The temperature is getting colder, yet a cold sweat still trickled across my face. Time to pull out. I momentarily left the building and came into the shadow of some garden plants. In front is an open courtyard, and there are no places to hide in the middle. No, going back empty-handed isn't going to help. As long as time allows, I must check it out. All in all, running through the courtyard, which is nothing but spacious, should be the best option. Okay, ready to run. I manifested the gusto of a 100-meter runner and rushed out. But halfway there, I stumbled and fell on my face. My foot sank into the ground. The land here is extraordinarily soft, and a low spot compared to the surrounding area. I didn't even notice it before because there was still a bit of snow on it. I was lying on the ground. In order to support my body, I put my hands on the ground. There is a man sleeping in a kimono where I put my hands. No. To be precise, there is a person buried. It's a corpse. The corpse is half decomposed and half white bones. I remember seeing the corpse's body type and clothing somewhere. Perhaps. It's Kirigiri's grandfather who came out of this mansion to greet me in Kirigiri on the night of Christmas Eve. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. Kirigiri's grandfather is dead. Why? Who killed him? What on earth happened here? I sat there and my body became limp as the pain of the fall and the inexplicable fear made me unable to stand up. I couldn't even pay attention to what's behind me. So at this time, I didn't notice that a dark figure was approaching me quietly from behind. I realized danger was imminent when the shadow of the figure covered the ground around me. When I looked back, the woman in the apron was standing behind me with her kitchen knife raised high in the air. Ah, this is it, I'm going to die. At that moment, I understood the current situation as if everything in front of me had nothing to do with myself. There is a sense of detachment that felt like a dream. And the sharp blade of reality is swinging down at me. The moment I had this thought, the woman in the apron was weakened and fell on her knees. Behind the woman stood a man in a suit and tie. It seems that he tapped the woman's knee with the shovel handle in his hand. Then, he lightly tapped the woman on the shoulder, and the woman fell backwards facing the sky. The man immediately took the woman's hand, turned her body, letting her face down on the ground, and then tied her two hands behind her back. I watched the scene in awe as he gestured to me with his finger. He seems to be asking me to run. I intended to stand up. My legs and feet were completely weak, and I staggered over as I went under the wall. There is no way to jump over in this state. Just when I was at a loss, the man just grabbed my wrist and ran. I stumbled and barely followed him. Finally, I saw a small wooden door in the middle of the wall. The man unlocked the inner lock of the door and opened the door. I was pushed through the door and outside the wall. Then the man came out immediately as well. He closed the door, took the key out of his pocket, and inserted it into the keyhole. Hurry up. The man said so, and then trotted all the way down the slope. After running for a while, I saw a black car parked on the corner of the mansion. The man opened the lock with the remote control key and urged me to get in. Only then did I see the man's face clearly. He should be around 35 years old, and his strong-willed eyes and awe-inspiring expression seemed to resemble someone. I got into the passenger seat of the car, and he immediately started the engine. The mansion reflected in the rearview mirror became smaller and smaller, and in front of the road, a beam of light shone through the gaps in the clouds. The car blended into the traffic of the business district. I finally felt like I came back to reality. Thank you for helping me. No, you don't need to thank me. If possible, I'd like you to forget you ever met me. All right. The silence lasted for a while. However, the person who couldn't stand the silence first was him. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. He put both hands on the steering wheel inside. You are. Sorry, I can't answer this question, he said, casting his serious eyes forward. My position is rather complicated, please be considerate. I nodded vaguely. I suddenly noticed a folder haphazardly laid out on the dashboard, and there was a familiar symbol on the cover of the folder. That symbol is the school emblem of Hope's Peak Academy. Noticing my eyes, the man picked up the folder with his other hand while driving and inserted it into the side pocket of the car door, as if trying to hide it. Oh right, I know who he looks like. Kirigiri Kyoko. Her father is supposed to be a teacher at Hope's Peak Academy. Then this person. Could it be that you are Kirigiri-chan's, the father of Kirigiri Kyoko? He just loosened his tie a bit and didn't answer anything. But I already knew it. He has the key to the wooden door of the mansion, and not many people have the key to that mansion. What were you doing in that kind of place? He asked me in turn. I have a friend, her name is Kirigiri Kyoko. I mentioned her name on purpose. She's looking a bit off lately, like she's very reluctant to go home. I didn't know what's going on, so I went to her house to have a look. Really? That was his response. The car stopped at a red light. Inside the stationary car, he spoke again. She's not hurt, is she? No. That's good. The car started moving again. I think she saw the body. So she sensed danger and left home. And she hid her whereabouts and wandered outside for almost 10 days. But something is wrong. The body had been partially turned into bones. At least 2 or 3 months should have passed since the body was buried. In that case, almost half a month ago, on the night of Christmas Eve, what appeared in front of us wasn't Kirigiri's grandfather. Ah. I see. It was Shinsen Mikado. When did it start? When did he start deceiving Kirigiri Kyoko? For what purpose did Shinsen do that? Where is she now? In my dorm room. Really? Are you going to meet her? I don't have the face for that. He shrugged and said. He took me all the way to the dormitory, and I got off the car. He didn't say his name till the end, and he told me not to tell anyone that I met him, including her, of course. I started to worry about her and rushed into my dorm room. Kirigiri was awake and was sitting on the bed brushing her hair. You're back, Yui-san-sama, just in time. Come help me braid my hair. I nodded and walked around behind her. Her hair is soft and beautiful, like an entity condensed from her pure heart. I braided her hair, and tears couldn't help but fall down my face. Why does the world have to be so cruel to her? I secretly wiped away the tears. I won't forgive whoever is hurting her. To be continued.